At the fateful moment on November 11th, a shocking announcement spread across the world, declaring that the end of the blue planet had finally arrived. The office fell into total chaos as re-dyed zombies charged in, turning the entire floor into a sea of blood and corpses. Lu Xin froze in terror and staggered backward, screaming in desperation while praying the monsters would not come any closer. Even through her fear, she forced herself to stay alive because her parents were still waiting for her, and reaching the storage room meant there was still hope. But then a zombie slowly crawled toward her, while another one slammed a coworker to the ground right before her eyes. With his final breath, the coworker shouted one last warning, begging Lu Xin to run. The shock crushed her completely as she collapsed to the floor, crying helplessly while pleading for someone to save her. But at the very last second, a lightning-fast figure suddenly rushed in. He leaped clean over the zombie with incredible speed. Then he split it in half with a single sword strike. A notification instantly appeared, confirming the level 1 zombie kill and awarding 10 points. The man who saved her was none other than Yun Qi. Without wasting a second, he quickly cut down another zombie. When he turned around, he saw Lu Xin still sitting on the floor in shock. He immediately pulled her to her feet and urged her to escape at once. Lu Xin finally snapped out of it and hurried after Yun Qi. Outside, the hallway looked like hell as zombies hunted the living, while blood and bodies covered the floor. Even while running for her life, Lu Xin still could not believe the apocalypse had really begun. Yun Qi calmly replied that even he could not tell whether this nightmare was reality or just a terrible dream. He introduced himself as Yun Qi, the 21-year-old young master of the famous Yun family in Zhongdu. Just 10 minutes earlier, he had been posing as an office worker. Now he was fighting with a sword just to survive. Yun Qi's thoughts drifted back to the moments before the disaster began. At that time, he had casually walked into the company carrying his usual briefcase. Lu Xin greeted him with a cheerful yet worried smile, reminding him that today was the prophesied apocalypse and asking him to take her home. Yun Qi simply smiled and brushed it off, saying the prophecy had been around for 10 years, and no one even believed it anymore. But Lu Xin insisted she was genuinely afraid. Deep down, she secretly believed Yun Qi would never refuse her request. Just then, a male coworker stood up and teased the office goddess for being scared of the apocalypse. Soon the other men joined in, competing over who would get to escort her home after work. Embarrassed, Lu Xin turned them down before playfully complaining that Yun Qi was way too stubborn, adding that he would never find a girlfriend with that attitude. Yun Qi quietly set down his briefcase, thinking that this apocalypse excuse was actually pretty amusing. 10 years earlier, the Titan supercomputer had issued a global warning about a dark star heading toward Earth, predicting the blue planet would be destroyed on November 11. Back then, humanity fell into panic as the military ordered everyone to stay indoors and seal every entrance while preparing for the disaster. But over the next 10 years, the prophecy never came true. Every year ended peacefully despite the warnings, so people stopped believing them and even turned the apocalypse into a joke or a dating excuse. Yun Qi no longer cared about the prophecy either. With a faint smile, he slowly opened the briefcase in his hand. Instead of documents, a jet-black sword rested inside, carefully placed on a layer of soft velvet. A coworker walked by, spotted the sword inside the briefcase, and joked that Yun Qi was buying another toy even though he was already in his 20s. Yun Qi stayed silent. He picked up the note, which revealed the weapon was the Sin Slayer sword, forged from ginseng metal, sharp enough to slice through Titan jade with ease. The sender was none other than Lu Yunxi. Yun Qi knew this was no ordinary collectible. It was an advanced high-tech weapon, classified as a level 3 prohibited item for civilians. What puzzled him most was how she had managed to send it here. Turning the note over, he saw a familiar message. "It has been 3 years since you came home. When are you finally coming back?" The words made him pause. 3 years earlier, Yun Qi had left the glamorous city of Zhongdu and moved to District 105 to escape his family's plans and live on his own. Thinking back, he smiled to himself. It was time to end this rebellious chapter. Once he got paid tomorrow, he would go home. But at that exact moment, the entire building shook violently. Explosions echoed everywhere as the ceiling cracked open and debris rained onto the floor. Everyone rushed to the windows and froze in horror. A massive crimson planet was slowly approaching, covering the entire sky. Panic swept through the office as people believed Titan's prophecy had finally come true and wondered why the authorities had stayed silent. Suddenly, a cold mechanical voice announced that humanity had officially entered a survival game where people would become monsters or NPCs and had only 24 hours to level up before the real players arrived. The system declared one brutal rule. NPCs could not kill players, but players could kill NPCs, and death in the game meant death in the real world. Yun Qi quickly analyzed the situation and wondered who the real players were, if everyone else had become monsters or NPCs. Moments later, the global communication channel activated as the system forced everyone to choose a class within 5 minutes before the game began. A status panel appeared before Yun Qi, showing that he was only a low-level NPC in the beginner village with 0 experience. The terrifying realism made every one of his senses sharper than ever. The system offered 3 starting classes: warrior, mage, and knight. Each class came with its own unique skills and base attributes. After thinking it over, Yunqi glanced at the sword on the desk and decided that warrior or knight would make the best use of it. But then the sword suddenly burst into a dazzling light that completely surrounded him. The system detected the strange energy and immediately granted him the exclusive SS-ranked class, Demon Knight. The class focused on physique, strength, and spirit, while its passive skill, Ruin, placed an inescapable death mark that reduced healing, caused level loss upon death, or erased enemies forever if they died under its effect. Sweat poured down Yunqi's face, but he could not hide his excitement after realizing he now had the power to send even players to their graves. Before he could recover, the system rewarded him again with the talent Child of the Plane, which boosted 3 non-combat attributes by 10 times and refreshed once every day. Yunqi was stunned by the endless rewards and thought this beginner bonus felt like outright cheating. While he had obtained an incredibly rare class, his coworkers were screaming because they had not received a single class option. They shouted that the system was unfair and insisted something had gone seriously wrong. The countdown reached 0, and the apocalypse game officially began. In an instant, countless people mutated into zombies and turned on their coworkers. Heartbreaking screams echoed throughout the entire office. The survivors fled in terror, while those who had been bitten quickly lost control and transformed before everyone's eyes. A female coworker collapsed and became a zombie within seconds. The man standing nearby realized in horror that the virus spread at an unbelievable speed. As the monster lunged forward, Yunqi stepped in without hesitation and shouted for everyone to run before they were trapped. Gripping his sword tightly, he escorted Lu Xin through the blood-soaked hallway filled with bodies in search of a way out. While moving forward, Lu Xin suddenly heard a loud noise ahead. A man in a business suit burst out from around the corner like he had lost his mind. Once Yunqi recognized him as Liu Yang, he lowered his sword and relaxed his guard. Liu Yang quickly stammered that he was still conscious and had not turned. Yunqi ignored him, coldly warning him never to make another reckless move before leading Lu Xin away. Left behind, Liu Yang shouted in anger, accusing Yunqi of abandoning his own teammates. Yunqi turned around and exposed Liu Yang's true nature, from stealing credit and ideas to forcing a coworker into an abortion, declaring that someone like him was not worth saving. After saying that, he walked away with Lu Xin, ignoring Liu Yang's desperate offer to form a team because he had become a knight. Lu Xin hesitated for a moment after hearing about the powerful class, but Yunqi calmly replied that no matter how strong Liu Yang became, he would always be a coward. Humiliated, Liu Yang grabbed a mop and launched a sneak attack from behind, making Lu Xin scream a warning. Yunqi effortlessly blocked the strike and sent Liu Yang flying with ease. At that moment, a zombie in a business suit walked up behind Liu Yang. Its bloodshot eyes locked onto Yunqi's sword as it demanded he hand it over. Liu Yang turned pale and begged Yunqi to save him. Without the slightest hesitation, Yunqi took Lu Xin and walked away, even though she still wanted to help. Yunqi sternly told her to abandon her misplaced kindness and face reality. He reminded her that the world had already collapsed. The city was now nothing more than ruins beneath a crimson sky. Meanwhile, the undead were relentlessly hunting down every surviving human. His harsh words left Lu Xin completely speechless. Yunqi warned her that if she clung to her old innocence, she would become the next victim. He then decided they needed a temporary shelter as more zombies continued to gather. Just as they approached an office, the door suddenly cracked open. A short-haired woman happily called out Lu Xin's name. Her relief vanished instantly because a swarm of zombies was smashing against the glass behind her with terrifying roars. Inside the room, Yunqi calmly watched the security monitors, carefully observing every movement of the monsters. Looking around, he realized that out of the once crowded company, only 7 people were still alive. A suffocating sense of fear and despair filled the room. Some sat in the corner and cried. Others dreamed of making it home, while the rest prayed the zombies would not break through the door. Just then, Director Cao Xiaoqian slammed the table and blamed Lu Xin's group for opening the door and leading the zombies to everyone. He even sneered that if they wanted to die, they should go outside alone instead of dragging everyone else down with them. Hearing those selfish words, the middle-aged security guard finally stood up and fought back. Yunqi clearly remembered that the director had also run inside after them and accidentally brought the zombies along. But Cao Xiaoqian kept insulting him, even accusing the guard of being infected and demanding that he leave the room to die. Losing his patience, the guard grabbed the director by the collar, while Cao Xiaoqian still threatened to fire him. The guard let out a cold laugh and said that if the director already saw him as a monster, then he would show him what a real monster looked like. He smashed the window and dragged the director onto the balcony on the 17th floor. Cao Xiaoqian panicked and begged for his life. Yunqi tightened his grip on the sword as the situation spiraled completely out of control. Just as the guard was about to let go, Lu Xin rushed over to stop him, revealing that she was a mage with a healing skill that could cleanse wounds if he had been infected. Cold sweat ran down Yunqi's back because Lu Xin had carelessly exposed all of her abilities. While everyone else was hiding their trump cards to survive, she had practically painted a target on herself. The guard stared at Lu Xin and asked if she was truly certain about her class. After she confirmed it and urged everyone to work together to survive, he simply gave her a mysterious smile. While Cao Xiaoqian was still celebrating the hope of being rescued, the guard suddenly released his grip. A desperate scream echoed through the air before his body disappeared into the ground below. Lu Xin froze, unable to understand how that man could be so cruel. He only replied coldly that he had never liked that manager anyway. When Lu Xin brought up the value of human life, he sneered, raised his glowing blue hand, and declared that in this new era, the weak existed only as stepping stones. He believed his warrior class would let him survive and rule the world, and his status panel confirmed he was already a level 1 warrior. Watching everything unfold, Yunqi sighed and realized that once laws and morals collapsed, people became the greatest monsters of all. The warrior laughed arrogantly and walked toward Lu Xin, forcing her to become his woman and leaving her terrified. Just as he reached out to grab her, Yunqi swung his sword and stopped him. The man looked at him with a mocking grin, convinced Yunqi wanted to steal Lu Xin for himself. Yunqi calmly answered that he only cared about a mage's virus cleansing ability because it was the most valuable asset in this world. Furious, the warrior grabbed a fire extinguisher and charged, shouting that Yunqi would become the first step toward his ambition. With a single effortless slash, Yunqi broke the attack. At that moment, he noticed a bite wound on the man's waist, along with eyes that were slowly turning red. Yunqi realized the man was infected, but still conscious, proving the warrior class slowed the mutation and made him stronger than a normal zombie. Refusing to leave such a threat alive, Yunqi charged forward at once, forced him back, then delivered the finishing strike. A painful scream echoed as the blade split both the fire extinguisher and his body. The warrior was sent flying, blood pouring everywhere before he died on the spot. The room fell into a terrifying silence. The survivors trembled as they stared at Yunqi after witnessing yet another death. Lu Xin quietly watched his back, her mind filled with countless thoughts. Yunqi knew the harshest lesson never came from words, because only seeing true devastation could wake people up. He secretly hoped this incident would help Lu Xin become less naive and stop trusting the wrong people. Although his main goal had been to eliminate Chunyan before he completely lost himself, Yunqi also used the opportunity to warn everyone else. His icy gaze swept across the room as he asked if anyone else still wanted to steal his people. Faced with that overwhelming killing intent, everyone could only shake their heads in fear, saying they just wanted to stay alive. Seeing everything under control, Yunqi stored his sword in the system and ordered Lu Xin to treat everyone's injuries. She immediately cast holy light to heal Jia while gently asking if she felt any discomfort. Taking the chance, Yunqi walked over to inspect the computer. He pulled out his phone and tried to make contact. The result was complete silence. Every signal bar had vanished, and the screen clearly displayed out of service. He quickly concluded that normal communication had completely failed, leaving the system chat as the only way to reach the outside world. The world channel had become complete chaos, filled with desperate cries for help, arguments over whether the military would arrive, and calls for everyone to gather at Zhangjin Building in Ji City. After skimming through the chaos, Yunqi easily realized that most people were completely isolated and could only wait for a miracle. He decided to open his status panel for another review. Besides his famous Ghost Knight class and the Decay skill, he still possessed the Plains Child talent. After carefully reviewing his non-combat stats, he realized only bonus points and compatibility qualified for the tenfold boost. Since he still had no idea what compatibility actually did, he decided to ignore it for now and keep his advantage. To stay safe, he chose the most reliable option and multiplied his earned points by 10. The system confirmed the upgrade, meaning every point he earned from now on would be multiplied by 10, allowing his growth to leave everyone else far behind. Just then, Lu Xin's stomach growled after exhausting so much energy from repeatedly casting magic. Jia also realized their food supply was completely empty, and at this rate, they would starve long before the zombies arrived. Looking up at the blood-red sky, Yunqi estimated there were still about 20 hours before the real players descended. He knew that once the countdown reached 0, Earth would become a living hell, far deadlier than the current zombie outbreak. That was why he had to use every second to grind and grow stronger as fast as possible. The moment he stood up with his sword, the entire room erupted in panic as everyone tried to stop him, terrified of the zombies outside. Ignoring every warning, Yunqi calmly told them to move aside. Lu Xin rushed over in panic, begging him not to risk the safety of their shelter. Yunqi coldly replied that without supplies, hiding here was no different from waiting to die. He was going out to gather resources, and anyone else could stay if they wanted. The moment he finished speaking, Jia and the others immediately protested his reckless plan. In their minds, hiding in a corner was far safer than facing bloodthirsty monsters. Lu Xun kept trying to persuade him, hoping he would stay calm and wait for the rescue forces. Just as he was about to expose the truth behind rescue efforts in this apocalypse, a massive explosion shattered every office window. Countless advanced airships appeared overhead, and Lu Xun cried out after recognizing the Alliance's floating fortress. An officer named Chu Liang appeared through a hologram, assuring everyone that the military had arrived and would secure the situation within 3 hours. He ordered everyone who could still move to head for the rooftop and wait for helicopters, while the injured should remain hidden. Cheers erupted everywhere as people believed the nightmare was finally ending. Jia's group sighed in relief, and Lu Xun looked at Yunqi with a smug expression, convinced she had been right. But while Chu Liang was still promising rescue, his body suddenly glowed red with strange symbols as the system coldly announced that all outside interference would be eliminated. In an instant, the entire floating fortress became a massive fireball and exploded high above the clouds. Burning wreckage rained from the sky like the end of the world, destroying buildings as screams echoed across the city. The office floor beneath them began to crack, then collapsed, sending every survivor into freefall. Yunqi moved like lightning and grabbed Lu Xun, while everyone else fell into despair. Clinging to a remaining section of wall, he gritted his teeth as he realized this stage truly lived up to its hell difficulty. The system followed with another announcement, stating that NPCs would remain as target practice for players, while supply crates were scattered across the map. Yunqi ordered Lu Xun to get ready to jump. She was crying in fear because of the height, but she had no other choice. Yunqi pulled her into his arms and leaped straight toward the ground without hesitation. Just before impact, he released his inner energy to create a protective airflow that sharply slowed their fall. They landed safely in the middle of a cloud of dust. Lu Xun was still shaken by the deadly leap, while Yunqi had already regained his footing and fixed his eyes on the distance. What caught his attention was not the destruction, but the green supply crate sitting nearby. Only then did Lu Xun realize he had risked everything just to claim this priceless resource. She was stunned by how calm he remained even in a life-or-death situation. Before they could reach the crate, a zombie suddenly burst out from the rubble. Yunqi reacted instantly, slashed with his sword, then stepped back to maintain a safe distance. Its roar became a signal that drew an entire horde of zombies charging in from every direction. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were completely surrounded. As the encirclement tightened, Yunqi told Lu Xun to split up, making her nervously ask what she should do if the zombies chased her. Yunqi gave no reply and charged straight into the horde, carving a bloody path with his sword while shouting for her to run. A level 1 zombie fell, and his reward points instantly increased tenfold. Even then, he reminded her one more time to keep running. Just as he expected, all 7 zombies immediately turned and rushed toward him. Lu Xun sprinted away as fast as she could, with the monster's deadly growls echoing behind her. Even after giving it everything she had, she screamed in panic because she had no idea how to escape them. While the chase reached its most intense moment, Yunqi calmly separated the zombie horde. He suddenly appeared right in front of Lu Xun and even praised her for her impressive running. Before she could answer, the Sinslayer sword flashed with an icy glow and swept across, beheading 3 zombies in a single strike. More reward points poured into his account without stopping. Standing among piles of zombie corpses, Yunqi still had no time to rest because another wave of zombies was already approaching. He charged into battle, and every clash between his sword and the zombies' claws sent bright sparks flying. After a fierce fight, every zombie in the area had been wiped out. Only then did Lu Xun finally breathe a sigh of relief. Yunqi quietly celebrated the tenfold reward bonus, and even joked himself that a Gatling gun would make everything perfect. Remembering his real goal, he walked over to open the green supply crate. The moment he touched it, the system awarded him 1,000 points, and the global ranking instantly appeared. Fan Gan ranked first, followed by Yuan Tan, while Yunqi's name sat right behind those 2 legendary figures. Seeing the rankings, he could not hide his surprise. In his mind, Fan Gan was the legendary god of war, while Yuan Tan was the alliance chairman and the mastermind behind countless strategies. Both were pillars of hope for humanity. He quickly figured out that their 3,000 points had to come from constantly securing supply crates rather than simply killing zombies. When the system asked whether to hide his identity, he immediately chose yes to avoid attracting the attention of those powerful figures. Lu Xun curiously peeked inside the crate. Opening it, he found essential supplies, including healing medicine, enhancement injections, and a razor-sharp dagger. With these items in hand, he finally felt relieved, knowing he could treat his own injuries. A thought suddenly crossed his mind. If he now had medical supplies, perhaps Lu Xun had become a burden he needed to reconsider keeping around. Suddenly, his instincts sensed a wave of killing intent descending from above. A white-haired figure dove down at incredible speed. It was a blood-covered female zombie, whose presence was far more terrifying than the ones before. Yunqi signaled for Lu Xun to fall back before charging straight at the monster. His sword collided head-on with its razor-sharp claws, sending sparks everywhere. The zombie was knocked back but landed effortlessly, proving it was far more agile than ordinary low-level zombies. Before he could recover, it shot toward him like a crimson bolt. Even after trying to dodge, a deep slash tore across his chest, sending him crashing hard onto the ground. He quickly forced himself back to his feet. Yunqi realized the zombie looked strangely similar to Lu Xun, but its strength was clearly on an entirely different evolutionary level. Knowing this would not be an easy fight, he immediately injected himself with an enhancement serum. His stats increased by 20% for only 10 seconds. The short duration was frustrating, but he had to make every second count. Yunqi rushed forward like an arrow and drove his sword straight through the monster's chest. Even after taking a fatal hit, the creature roared wildly and launched a brutal counterattack. Fresh wounds opened across his arms, waist, and face from the retaliation. Watching Yunqi suffer one injury after another, Lu Xun could only scream in terror. The female zombie roared again and unleashed blazing streams of crimson energy at him. While dodging the attacks, he slipped behind a nearby boulder and calmly searched for an opening. Unfortunately, the enhancement serum wore off at that exact moment, making him regret not emptying the supply crate earlier. Looking at the open crate in the distance, a risky plan flashed through his mind. Waiting for the perfect opening, Yunqi dashed forward, dodged with incredible speed, and drove the dagger into the monster's throat. Without wasting a second, he turned and sprinted toward the supply crate. The monster seemed completely unharmed and chased him relentlessly, forcing him to shout for Lu Xun's help. Instantly understanding his plan, she grabbed the dagger and waved it high to draw the monster's attention. Lu Xun shouted at the top of her lungs, doing everything she could to lure it toward her. Surprisingly, her clumsy distraction worked perfectly. The zombie paused for a brief moment, its eyes locking entirely onto Lu Xun. Taking advantage of those precious seconds, Yunqi grabbed 2 injections from the crate and immediately used them. System notifications appeared one after another. 20% increased combat power for 10 seconds, and 60% reduced pain for 10 seconds. Feeling strength surge through his body, he smiled with complete confidence and prepared to finish the battle within those brief 10 seconds. Realizing it had been tricked, the monster roared and charged like a raging storm, but this time Yunqi refused to retreat. A jade-green aura enveloped his body as the Sin Slayer sword released a dazzling wave of killing intent. In a single breath, he unleashed a crescent-shaped slash that tore through the air and struck the monster head-on. The devastating impact blasted the creature into the air as blood sprayed everywhere. When it crashed back to the ground, its body had been split clean in half, twitching weakly before finally dying. Seeing Yunqi covered in wounds, Lu Xun rushed over and immediately cast a healing spell. A soft green glow wrapped around him as his injuries closed at an incredible speed. Feeling the warm energy, Yunqi was amazed by how much Lu Xun had improved. While healing him, Lu Xun made a silent promise because she knew he could have left her behind, but he came back instead. She wanted to become a reliable partner and fight beside him through this chaotic world. Fully healed, Yunqi smiled calmly, while thinking a skilled healer was worth far more than a few supply crates. He picked up a dagger, handed it to Lu Xun, and urged her to destroy the zombie's heart. Taking a life for the first time made her hands tremble with hesitation. Yunqi firmly told her that survival meant relying on herself, instead of becoming someone else's burden. Hearing his words, Lu Xun gripped the dagger, took a deep breath, and stepped toward the monster. She let out a loud battle cry. Then she drove the dagger straight into its heart before pulling it out, without hesitation. The system announced she had slain a level 5 zombie, earning 500 points and the rare level 1 recovery skill. Lu Xun excitedly ran over to share the news, while Yunqi stood there speechless. He quickly realized that with his 10-fold point bonus, defeating that boss himself would have easily put him on top of the rankings. Seeing her gain another rare skill made Yunqi want to collapse from regret, but he only forced a tired smile. Deep down, he decided he had to keep Lu Xun close, because a versatile healer like her could never fall into someone else's hands. After clearing the battlefield, Yunqi said they needed a new shelter because this area had already been picked clean. Just then, Lu Xun suddenly revealed she knew a place packed with food supplies. The two immediately headed toward the city center. The road was covered with zombie corpses and signs of a brutal massacre. Lu Xun stayed on edge, afraid more monsters were still hiding nearby. Looking at the apartment complex ahead, Yunqi instantly recognized it as Green Bay. Lu Xun asked how he knew where she lived, and he casually replied that his coworkers had talked about driving her home before. Blushing, Lu Xun admitted she wanted to check on her parents, and the rooftop supplies were real because her mother always stocked food from the family farm. She shyly invited Yunqi to stay at her home and meet her parents. Yunqi ignored the invitation and calmly said it would be a waste to turn back now when they could gather more supplies instead. He kept walking, leaving Lu Xin to hurry after him. After a few more steps, he stopped her and gave her a survival knowledge test, catching her off guard at first. She quickly regained her composure and listed the 3 types of people they should avoid. First were trained fighters who used their combat experience to overwhelm others, especially close-range marksmen with armor-piercing attacks. Next came gun users, because in the early stage, 1 bullet was enough to decide life or death, making them extremely dangerous. Finally were tamers who relied on their pets, and they became even harder to deal with over time. Yunqi nodded and stressed that marksmen remained the greatest threat because they could kill from a distance without warning. The moment he finished speaking, a red laser dot appeared on his chest. His instincts screamed danger, and he rolled aside just in time before realizing a real sniper was targeting him. Lu Xin called out to him in panic. From his hiding spot, the sniper reported over the radio that he had found 2 suspicious targets. Yunqi immediately realized they had been mistaken for zombies. Both of them raised their hands and repeatedly insisted they were human. The gunman coldly replied that if they wanted to live, they had to prove it. Yunqi rapidly searched for a way out. Right then, a nearby zombie charged at them. With one swift slash, he cut off its head in an instant. The system awarded him another 100 points. After proving their identity, Yunqi realized this was the perfect chance to farm easy points. He told Lu Xin to quickly clear the remaining zombies, while he cut down another one. Lu Xin rushed into battle with her dagger. Following Yunqi's guidance, she easily defeated the low-level zombies. Her score kept climbing as system notifications appeared, one after another. Watching the pair casually farm points, the sniper became furious and shouted for them to come upstairs. He teased Lu Xin by calling her Yunqi's girlfriend, making her blush while Yunqi showed no reaction. As soon as they arrived, an armed squad surrounded them and demanded an infection check. Yunqi quietly observed the enemy's numbers. This squad was highly disciplined, with every class working together like a well-trained unit. Yunqi immediately guessed the commander had a military background. The inspection confirmed both of them were completely free of zombie infection. The blonde deputy smiled and said they were lucky to run into the law enforcement team. Yunqi asked if they were police officers, and the deputy confirmed they were. He explained that the moment the apocalypse began, Captain Hong Yi secured the armory as their base and spent every day evacuating survivors from the city center until the area was nearly empty. Hearing that, Yunqi finally understood why he had only seen monster corpses and no survivors along the way. At that moment, every officer suddenly stood at attention and saluted someone approaching. The man who appeared was Hong Yi, the leader of the law enforcement team, carrying an icy presence and commanding authority. Without wasting time, Hong Yi questioned Yunqi about his identity and how they had crossed the zombie-infested dead zone alive. Lu Xin quickly interrupted and nervously asked if Hong Yi had any news about her parents trapped in Green Bay. After a brief silence, Hong Yi bluntly said Green Bay had already become a dead zone, leaving almost no chance that anyone survived. Those cold words drained the color from Lu Xin's face as despair consumed her. Seeing her on the verge of breaking down, Yunqi gently patted her shoulder before looking Hong Yi straight in the eyes. He calmly questioned how Hong Yi could be so certain when all communication systems had already failed. The hot-headed deputy exploded in anger, but Hong Yi silenced him with a single wave before answering himself. He revealed they had been sending messages through the world channel, but after Green Bay stayed silent for over 30 minutes, they assumed it had already fallen. Combined with the endless zombie horde pouring out from that direction, Hong Yi concluded the area had been wiped out and warned Yunqi that no one could stop such a massive swarm. Yunqi remained silent as he considered those arguments. Hong Yi then advised Lu Xin to give up the rescue because any parent would rather see their daughter alive than rushing towards certain death. Tears streamed down Lu Xin's face, while the surrounding officers silently agreed that returning to Green Bay now was suicide. Just as the tension reached its peak, a massive explosion shook the entire area. A scout rushed over and reported that a force other than zombies was rapidly approaching from the north. Everyone immediately turned toward the source. In the distance, a herd of enormous wild boars charged forward, making the ground tremble with every step. The blood-red-eyed leader let out a terrifying roar, revealing them to be deadly mutated zombie boars. Keeping his composure, Hong Yi immediately ordered everyone to engage. The marksmen quickly moved into their firing positions. Warriors and knights formed the front line to intercept the charge. Tamers secured every entrance, while the mages fell back to focus on healing support. Within seconds, a perfect battle formation was complete, leaving Yunqi impressed by how professional they had become so soon after the apocalypse. The blonde deputy shouted that the monsters were now within range. Without hesitation, Hong Yi gave the order to open fire. A storm of bullets roared through the air and slammed into the charging beasts. But the boars' thick hides shrugged off the bullets, slowing them for only a moment before they charged even harder. The defensive line began to collapse as the deputy shouted that their firepower could not stop the attack. Hung Yi gritted his teeth, shocked that their strongest weapons were useless against the beasts. Realizing the battle was turning against them, he immediately ordered everyone to fall back behind the barricades. While retreating and firing, one marksman shouted that he was completely out of ammunition. A soldier with an injured leg stumbled behind and could no longer keep up. He stared in despair as a giant beast charged straight toward him. Hung Yi turned back and desperately shouted his teammate's name. At the final moment, a high-pressure water blast slammed into the monster and knocked it flying sideways. Everyone stared at Yun Qi after he saved a soldier with the water gun from a supply crate. Hung Yi was stunned that a simple water gun could unleash such overwhelming force. Once the wounded soldier was pulled to safety, Hung Yi thanked him, but Yun Qi calmly said he only wanted to keep the blood from attracting even more monsters. In truth, he had planned to stay hidden and observe their real combat skills. Looking at the endless zombie horde, Yun Qi wondered how many more monsters were still lurking nearby. Realizing the crisis, Hung Yi ordered the heavy weapons into action. The grenade launcher squad rushed forward and fired in perfect unison. Massive explosions ripped through the zombie pig formation. A sea of flames swallowed an entire section of the battlefield. As the smoke cleared, a charred pig covered in blue lightning walked out, making the tension even worse. Yun Qi realized this costly attack was a mistake, because without hitting the weak spot, every shell was wasted. One soldier wanted to fire the last rocket, but another revealed it was their only remaining round. Knowing this was the decisive moment, Yun Qi grabbed the grenade launcher while the soldier stood frozen. He infused the shell with energy and pulled the trigger. Instead of aiming at the monsters, the shell flew straight toward a nearby high-rise. The soldier shouted in anger, convinced Yun Qi had missed. Then a deafening blast brought the entire building crashing down onto the road. Huge slabs of concrete crushed many zombie pigs and blocked the path of the rest. Everyone stood speechless in disbelief. The soldier, who lost his launcher, could not believe the incredible turnaround. Yun Qi sighed in relief as the plan worked, while Hung Yi quietly praised his tactical instincts. But the battle was far from over as the surviving pigs crawled out of the rubble. Hung Yi warned everyone not to lower their guard, because the monsters still outnumbered them. Yun Qi pointed at the power plant and proposed using the emergency electricity to wipe them out. Hung Yi instantly understood and ordered his deputy, a professional electrician, to remove the copper core from Zone B. At the same time, water from broken pipes flooded the streets. Another team quickly sprayed even more water across the flooded ground. Meanwhile, the trapped zombie pigs kept clawing at the collapsed barrier. Before long, the deputy returned carrying a heavy power cable. Following Hang Yi's instructions, he shouted for everyone to back away before throwing the cable into the water. The current hit the water and sparks exploded with loud crackling sounds. A powerful electric surge spread across the ground and engulfed every zombie pig. The monsters convulsed, roared in agony, and collapsed one after another. The system kept announcing the defeat of level 1 mutant pigs, along with the reward points earned. Yun Qi was satisfied, because even the survivors had clearly lost most of their fighting power. The deputy was shocked by the immense voltage, but Hung Yi explained that metal particles in the water had amplified the attack. The earlier collapse had made the entire area incredibly conductive. Hung Yi looked at Yun Qi with deep admiration. He was amazed by how Yun Qi used the environment and every available resource to turn the battle around. Before anyone could celebrate, Hung Yi spotted several surviving pigs crossing the water and charging again. The soldiers immediately formed a defensive line. One monster leaped over the shields and slammed straight into Yun Qi with terrifying force. He held his ground and absorbed the impact. Then he twisted smoothly and redirected the force to throw the monster aside. From that single clash, Yun Qi realized they were even stronger than level 5 zombies and far beyond what ordinary soldiers could handle. The defense line quickly began to collapse as cries for help echoed everywhere. Yun Qi picked up a shield, his eyes turned icy, and he knew it was time to end the battle himself. At that moment, the giant alpha beast let out a thunderous roar and charged like an arrow. Without a second thought, Yun Qi raised the shield and rushed straight at it. Hung Yi panicked and warned that facing the alpha head-on was pure suicide. Yun Qi tightened his grip, killing intent filled his eyes, and he swore the monster would be the one to fall. As soon as he finished speaking, he drove the shield into the concrete, shattering the ground around it. Using the shield as an anchor, Yun Qi spun forward and unleashed a lightning-fast sword strike. The instant the mutant pig charged, his blade pierced straight through its head. Without slowing down, he followed with another icy blue slash that sent blood spraying everywhere. The system instantly announced the level 1 enemy's defeat and awarded 2,000 points. Yun Qi smirked as his total points jumped to 5,140. Even better, his first-class skill, Resurrection, had finally been unlocked. His status screen revealed he was a level 1 NPC with the Death Knight class, the Child of Dawn talent, and well-balanced stats. The skill could revive a lower-level creature, match its level to the owner, and granted an extra 2 to all stats, but only one revived creature could exist at a time. After reading the details, Yunqi could barely hide his excitement because he had finally obtained a truly valuable class ability. He glanced at the alpha pig's corpse and came up with a bold plan. Without hesitation, a green glow covered his body as he reached toward the corpse and activated the skill. An eerie green aura burst from the monster's body. Moments later, it reformed into a gigantic pig spirit, whose roar made everyone nearby tremble. The deputy had barely recovered from Yunqi's solo victory before freezing again at the bizarre sight. He shouted in panic, believing the monster had come back to life, and urged Yunqi to retreat. But then, the deputy was left speechless, as Yunqi calmly jumped onto the spirit beast's back and rode off like the wind. All he could do was stammer out the nickname, Pig Knight. Hearing the cheesy title, Yunqi frowned in annoyance. Even so, he had to admit the mount's overwhelming power was incredible. Using the momentum, he charged straight into the remaining monsters. Swinging his sword with a wide grin, he knew this was his moment to go all out. Rider and beast tore through the battlefield, and every slash from Yunqi brought down another enemy. The system kept announcing victories as his points climbed rapidly. The spirit pig was just as savage, ripping the monsters apart within seconds. Before long, every mutant pig had been wiped out. Everyone could only stare in complete disbelief. Hong Yi quickly adjusted the formation and ordered the marksmen to focus their support fire on Yunqi. With his teammates backing him up, Yunqi fought even harder. He cut down the last enemies while the entire squad watched in amazement. Only a few minutes later, the battlefield fell silent, leaving behind piles of monster corpses. Yunqi stood in the middle of the battlefield and let out a relieved breath, thinking it was finally over. But through the dust, another group of zombies slowly staggered forward. One soldier smiled, thinking they only had to clean up this last group. Hong Yi lifted everyone's spirits and promised they would finally go home after this battle. The entire squad prepared to charge, but at the last second, Lu Xin suddenly froze in place. Her face turned pale as she recognized her parents among the zombies. Yunqi looked closer and confirmed she was right. Lu Xin burst into tears and desperately called out to her parents. She tried to run toward them, but Hong Yi stopped her with a sharp shout. As she broke down, Yunqi silently stepped in front of her like an unshakable shield. He quietly reminded her that those creatures were no longer her parents, making the atmosphere even heavier. Hong Yi firmly ordered everyone to eliminate them and warned the squad not to hesitate. The soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons and prepared to charge like a storm. But Yunqi moved first, sending the spirit beast soaring over the zombie horde. The zombies roared wildly and rushed after him. The beast slammed into the ground with terrifying force, blasting away everything in its path. Yunqi drove his sword into the ground, and a piercing screech echoed as he came to a sudden stop. Surrounded on every side, he could only sigh and mutter that this had become a real mess. The zombies gave him no chance to breathe as they attacked all at once. Just as death seemed certain, rapid gunfire erupted, and the first 2 zombies had their heads blown apart. Yunqi looked back in surprise and saw his teammates already covering him, while one guard yelled at him for being so reckless. Hong Yi and the squad rushed forward, scolding him for taking such a dangerous risk alone. One soldier laughed and declared they would all earn points together, instead of letting Yunqi take them all. Yunqi confidently replied that everyone should just handle their own targets. Gunfire and furious roars merged into a brutal battle that raged for 20 minutes. Yunqi tore through the zombie horde like a storm, his body covered in enemy blood. Hong Yi fought just as fiercely, giving everything he had even with his shield badly bent. At last the noise faded, leaving only piles of corpses behind. Yunqi planted his sword into the ground and gasped for breath. He admitted that without the squad's support, he would have been badly injured. Lu Xin rushed over, checked on him with concern, then knelt to heal his wounds. A gentle green light flowed from her hands and wrapped around his injuries. As she healed him, her eyes turned red because the fear of losing her last family broke her composure. Yunqi smiled, thanked her, and gently told her to say one final goodbye to her parents. She looked at him in confusion, not understanding what he meant. He quietly pointed at the 2 zombies beneath his spirit mount, explaining they had only been subdued, not killed. Lu Xin went pale as tears streamed down her face when she saw her parents again. She finally understood why Yunqi had risked everything to spare them. Yunqi handed her his sword, and she accepted it with trembling hands while softly thanking him. Every heavy step carried her closer to her parents. Before her stood 2 strangers with glowing red eyes and blood-stained hands. Lu Xin gripped the sword tightly, knowing its weight matched the painful choice she had to make. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she called out to them, hoping for a miracle. Watching from afar, Yunqi quietly offered to end it for her if she could not. Lu Xin shook her head, looked back at him, and whispered that she still had a trustworthy companion by her side. The bloodshot eyes of the zombie couple suddenly trembled as if a final trace of awareness had returned. Lu Xin took a deep breath and vowed to live well so her parents' souls could finally rest. Gathering every last bit of courage, she swung the sword through her tears and ended their suffering. Yunqi froze when the system announced that his immortal spirit beast had fallen, and another could not be summoned for 3 more minutes. Lu Xin collapsed beside her parents while the spirit pig vanished into nothingness, leaving only the sword standing in the ground. As Lu Xin cried in despair, Yunqi knelt and called out to his fallen companion, leaving her completely puzzled. He could not believe his powerful level 5 summoned beast had been killed so easily by Lu Xin's strike. Hang Yi's squad began clearing the zombie corpses to prevent disease, while Yunqi sighed over the loss of valuable resurrection material. He crawled to the beast's remains, shaking it in hopeless grief as tears poured down his face. Lu Xin wondered why an outsider seemed even more heartbroken than the beast's owner. But before Yunqi could answer, a medic called out. A soldier shouted for all the mages to gather immediately and heal the wounded. Lu Xin regained her composure, thanked Yunqi, and quickly left to carry out her duty. Yunqi nodded quietly and watched her silhouette disappear into the evening sunset. He thought the large group of mages would keep anyone from noticing her unique ability, and the work might also help ease her pain. Just then, a strange voice and a mysterious interface suddenly appeared in his mind as though waiting to connect. Yunqi looked around cautiously, but no one in Hang Yi's group seemed to hear it. After confirming that nobody else heard the voice, Yunqi realized something extraordinary was happening. He guessed this was not a normal communication network, but a hidden game interface. Messages from World Chat and Team Chat flooded his mind, making him frown in annoyance. A blue interface appeared with multiple tabs, including World Channel, Team Channel, and private group chats. A system notification confirmed that he had officially joined the group known as the 10 Doomsday Walkers. A beam of blue light swept away his consciousness and carried him into a vast circular hall. 9 mysterious figures sat on numbered chairs, while Yunqi appeared in seat 7 with his old sword. After a quick look around, he realized this special feature had no option to leave or add new members. A voice echoed through the hall, declaring that every member had been carefully chosen long ago. Yunqi immediately demanded to know what this group really was and why he had been brought there. The man in seat 6 laughed at his ignorance and asked whether his parents had ever mentioned the treasure that had been entrusted to him. Staring at the sword, Yunqi realized its secret had to be tied to the weapon his sister left him. The woman in seat 5 coldly warned everyone not to dig into each other's identities since today's ally could be tomorrow's enemy. Yunqi refused to give up and asked what the Endwalker title really meant. Seat 6 explained it belonged only to the 10 chosen owners of the Titan Divine Weapons. 3 months earlier, the Titan supercomputer predicted the apocalypse and forged 10 divine weapons for 10 selected people in Zhongdu. Each divine weapon worked like an independent game system that kept evolving by collecting data. Yunqi finally understood the blade in his hand was one of the 10 divine weapons, left behind by his parents to protect him. Annoyed by Yunqi's silence, Seat 6 complained, but Yunqi ignored him and asked about the major clans in Zhongdu. They said every great clan survived, thanks to Titan's warning except the Xie family, whose old patriarch became a zombie and was killed by his own son. Knowing his family was still safe, Yunqi finally let out a sigh of relief. Seat 6 shifted the topic to divine weapon compatibility and proudly showed off his 10% rating. The others revealed similar numbers, but no one knew what they truly meant. After running out of useful information, Seat 6 ended the discussion and left the group. The grand hall faded away as Yunqi's mind returned to the battlefield. He concluded the group was full of suspicious people, and the Titan divine weapons were far beyond ordinary gear. Just as he wondered whether the sword had its own consciousness, a streak of blue light suddenly burst from the blade. It transformed into a tiny dragon that laughed at him for taking so long to notice it. Thrilled, Yunqi quickly asked if anyone else could see it. The dragon confidently said only a divine weapon's owner had the power to see it. Yunqi guessed it was Titan's core intelligence, but it denied that and introduced itself as an intelligence copy called Ancestor Daode. Yunqi tried to persuade it to reveal a few survival tricks in case he died, and the divine weapon was lost. The dragon replied that everything he had came from his special class, and it was still analyzing the game's rules, so its abilities were limited. Before disappearing, it told Yunqi to rely on himself until the real game officially began. Yunqi sighed, realizing the system was still unreliable, and decided to wait until the game truly started tomorrow. At that moment, Lu Xin and Hang Yi walked over. Hang Yi thanked Lu Xin for saving him, but she humbly refused to take the credit. Hang Yi invited the two of them to join his team. Yunqi politely declined, because he already planned to leave the city. Lu Xin felt embarrassed, but firmly insisted on following Yunqi wherever he went. Hang Yi smiled, and agreed that leaving the zombie-filled city center was the right choice. Before parting ways, Hang Yi gave Yunqi a vehicle key to thank him for helping wipe out the mutant boars. Yunqi accepted the gift, but wondered how Hang Yi's team would travel. Hong Yi simply smiled, said his teammates always stayed together, and walked away. He even joked that he hoped they would not meet again as monsters. Lu Xin asked why Yunqi turned down such a safe team. Ancestor Daoudbi appeared and explained that bigger groups were not always better, so Yunqi chose a remote place to hide until the situation became clearer. Yunqi asked Lu Xin for directions to the farm where her mother once worked, and she confirmed she remembered the location. Lu Xin suspected Yunqi was fooling her, but he only smiled and urged her to check out Hong Ji's gift. Both of them were stunned by a futuristic hoverbike glowing with dazzling blue neon lights. Yunqi could not stop admiring the dream machine every man wanted. Unlike his excitement, Lu Xin only shrugged as if it was nothing special. Yunqi shouted with excitement and fired up the engine. The hoverbike shot through the ruined streets like a bolt of lightning, forcing Lu Xin to cling tightly to his waist in fear while Yunqi laughed with pure joy. They left the city, crossed the suburbs, and stopped in front of an old European-style farmhouse. Lu Xin nodded and confirmed this was the place her mother used to visit. But the moment they stepped onto the ground, a feeling of danger washed over them. A battered robot covered in dried blood slowly emerged from the darkness. Looking closer, they saw the entire road blocked by dozens of the same killer machines. One robot turned around, its glowing red eyes locking onto the two of them. Lu Xin explained that modern farming relied on autonomous robots, while humans simply enjoyed the results. Yunqi stared at the bloodstains on the metal and sarcastically asked if slaughter was part of that system too. Lu Xin froze as she noticed the dried blood covering the robots, and her face turned pale with fear. Yunqi quickly reassured her, explaining these robots were built only for farming and lacked real weapons. Lu Xin immediately activated her light sword and prepared for the battle ahead. At that moment, a strange object shot toward Yunqi, forcing him to block it with a single swing. It was a mechanical bee glowing with an eerie blue light, hovering right in front of them. Yunqi carefully observed it and told Lu Xin not to panic because the real threat was the one controlling it. The bee spoke in a mechanical voice, ordering Yunqi to leave at once and surrender Lu Xin along with their vehicle. Enraged, Yunqi lunged forward and grabbed the bee without hesitation. Ignoring the electric shocks and endless warning alarms, he crushed the machine in his hand and vowed to hunt down the mastermind behind it. A system notification appeared, confirming that destroying a boss-level control unit awarded 10 points. Yunqi was surprised that even such a tiny support device counted for points. Suddenly, a giant creature with glowing red eyes emerged behind the robot army, and Yunqi guessed the farm owner had evolved into the boss controlling the entire area. Seeing the reward potential, he considered wiping out every robot on the farm to climb the rankings. But he held back because the enemy was still hidden while Lu Xin remained exposed. Understanding his concern, Lu Xin firmly declared she would never become a burden and was ready to risk her life to support him. Yunqi dismissed her worries and began taking apart the remains of the mechanical bee. He pulled out a compact pistol for Lu Xin and told her to use it whenever the robots got too close. She was stunned to see such a unique weapon with no user restrictions. Yunqi explained it was an electromagnetic pulse gun designed to disable rogue robots, consumed heavy energy, and could not harm humans. His deep knowledge of the technology left Lu Xin speechless. Yunqi only laughed and said it was basic knowledge from his time at Zhongdu University. Before the fight began, he reminded her to stay alert and protect herself. Then he tossed a piece of metal ahead to test the enemy's reaction. The hidden controller mocked him, saying Lu Xin's weapon had a cooldown and could never defeat him. The moment Yunqi heard the word points, his interest immediately sharpened. The mysterious man smirked and revealed the game was nothing but a massacre, where points decided who survived. Killing monsters or even other humans earned points needed to stay alive. He proudly admitted he had slaughtered the entire village just to collect thousands of points. The horrifying truth left Lu Xin completely shocked. Yunqi coldly condemned him for abandoning his humanity on the very first day of the apocalypse. Even while facing the robot army, Yunqi stood his ground as the controller mocked him for having so few points. Yunqi fired back, claiming he already had over 10,000 points and ranked third. Lu Xin feared the killer would target Yunqi after hearing that. Yunqi smiled and quietly told her everything was going exactly as he planned. He challenged the man to come out and see if he had the courage to kill him for those massive points. The giant robot hesitated, refusing to believe Yunqi had achieved such an incredible score. Yunqi calmly claimed he had found a 10 times point multiplier item, allowing him to gain points so quickly. To make the story convincing, he destroyed another mechanical bee in front of the enemy and told him to check the rankings. Sure enough, the anonymous player's score instantly surged upward. Watching the numbers climb, the hidden controller completely fell for the trap. Blinded by greed, he became convinced that killing Yunqi would earn him nearly 20,000 points. He ordered the entire robot army to attack, and every machine locked onto its target with glowing red eyes. Knowing the real battle was about to begin, Yunqi told Lu Xin to retreat. She wished him luck and quickly pulled back. Alone in the middle of the encirclement, Yunqi charged straight into the danger. He cut down robot after robot and realized the enemy was trying to wear him down through sheer numbers. Seeing through the strategy, Yunqi unleashed a massive sword strike wrapped in blue lightning, wiping out the swarm before pressing forward. From a distance, Lu Xun watched in awe as he completely dominated the battlefield. But then a giant robot suddenly ambushed him from his blind spot. The powerful punch sent Yunqi flying before he slammed into the ground. His sword slipped from his hand, and he lay motionless, making Lu Xun scream in panic. She realized Yunqi had only destroyed the robot's outer shells, leaving their energy cores untouched. Laughing from the shadows, the controller ordered the robots to finish Yunqi and claim his points. But just as they closed in, every robot suddenly froze as if they had lost control. Lu Xun had fired the electromagnetic pulse gun Yunqi gave her. The pulse spread across the battlefield and completely disabled the robots surrounding Yunqi. However, the weapon's energy dropped to 40%, revealing its limited number of uses. At that moment, one unaffected robot charged straight at Lu Xun. As she prepared to fire again, the controller finally stepped out of hiding. He was a thin man with a twisted grin, already holding a knife after his plan fell apart. He declared he would ignore Lu Xun for now and kill Yunqi first to steal his enormous score. Seeing him approach, Lu Xun shouted that she would shoot if he took another step. He only laughed because he knew the weapon could not harm humans. Suddenly, a robot everyone thought was destroyed stood back up and tried to crush Lu Xun. She fell into despair as the gun was nearly out of energy. The controller moved in confidently, convinced both of them had reached a dead end. Just as he was about to strike, Yunqi suddenly opened his eyes. He sprang to his feet, leaving the man too shocked to react. Yunqi smirked and admitted he had only pretended to be unconscious because those robots could never defeat him. He immediately rushed forward with a deadly sword slash. But a massive red robot suddenly stepped in and blocked the attack. It activated its defenses and unleashed a storm of bullets at Yunqi. He grabbed Lu Xun, pulled her onto the hoverbike, and sped away through the exploding gunfire. While escaping, Lu Xun anxiously asked if he was hurt. Yunqi assured her he was fine, but admitted he had nearly paid dearly for underestimating the enemy. Behind them, the red robot chased relentlessly as the controller screamed for revenge. Lu Xun was horrified to realize it was military-grade hardware and had no idea why it was hiding on a farm. Yunqi skillfully dodged wave after wave of heavy attacks. Lu Xun pointed out that racing into an open field only made them easier targets. Even so, Yunqi remained completely calm. He said they did not need to escape the village. They only needed to find the right target. Spotting a dead dog beside the road, he slammed on the brakes. After making sure no mutated creatures were nearby, he used his resurrection skill on the corpse. The dog rose again, surrounded by ghostly flames, and ran beside the hoverbike as an undead beast. Lu Xun finally realized he had never been fleeing. He had been searching for reinforcements. Even then, she doubted a single dog could stand against that giant machine. As the red robot closed in, Yunqi ordered Dahei to attack. The undead dog leaped high into the air. It spat a stream of thick yellow fluid that covered the robot's cockpit. Blinded by the corrosive slime and overwhelmed by warning alarms, the controller screamed in frustration. Yunqi seized the opening and charged. He poured all his strength into a slash aimed at the robot's knee joint. The massive machine collapsed after losing its balance. Its emergency system tried to compensate by redirecting airflow to the damaged section. Yunqi immediately ordered Dahei to attack again. The undead dog coated the robot with even more corrosive slime, forcing the cockpit to open automatically to prevent suffocation. The controller struggled to stay inside, but was thrown out by the system. The moment he hit the ground, the robot's defense system identified him as a hostile target. Seeing Dahai charging toward him, he desperately ordered the robot to stop firing before it killed its own master. After receiving the command, the robot entered hibernation mode, and all of its functions shut down. The gigantic machine crashed to the ground and finally ceased operating. Standing atop the ruins, Yunqi smiled with relief, as everything went even smoother than he expected. He stared at the pilot with icy eyes and mocked him for tearing down his own defense barrier, handing Yunqi the victory. The man finally realized the AI he trusted most had become the double-edged blade that destroyed him. As panic took over the controller, Yunqi charged without the slightest hesitation. Seizing the chance, he drove his sword straight into the machine's energy core with all his strength. Alarms blared non-stop as the central core exploded and completely destroyed the robot. Watching his masterpiece fall apart, the controller screamed in despair. A notification appeared as Yunqi earned 6,000 points for defeating the boss. He jumped down, aimed his sword at the defeated man's face, and declared him the next target. All his arrogance vanished as he fell to his knees and begged for mercy, but Yunqi coldly reminded him of the innocent lives he had traded for points, before ending him on the spot. Another 10,000 points were added, bringing his total to 42,860. Yunqi sighed at the scoreboard. He wanted to hide his strength, but somehow ended up at the very top. The global rankings officially placed Yun-Chi at number 1, surpassing every famous powerhouse, along with an exclusive NPC title if he could hold the position. Yun-Chi could no longer hide his excitement after seeing what he had achieved. Lu Xun rushed over and said the World Channel had exploded with discussions about him. Opinions split into two camps. Some praised him as humanity's savior, while others questioned whether the fate of mankind should rest on an unknown figure. Yun-Chi quietly watched the discussion and noticed that even the Apocalypse Walkers group had become restless. The members eagerly guessed whether the top-ranked player was one of their own. Right after that, the player ranked second urged everyone to put aside their pride and unite to protect the planet, saying humanity's future rested in everyone's hands. Hearing those words, Yun-Chi guessed the speaker was most likely Yu Wenjin or Fang Qian, the alliance's biggest names. Some believed they revealed their identities to preserve their symbolic status and keep the public calm. But now, the appearance of the mysterious newcomer had turned everything upside down. Some argued that everyone chosen by Titan had to stand up and fight the invaders. Others immediately pushed back, saying no one was obligated to become a hero or sacrifice themselves for this world. The debate reached its peak when an ambitious player proposed collecting all 10 Titan artifacts to rule the apocalypse. Yun-Chi reached one conclusion: everyone had their own beliefs, but while the rules remained unknown, choosing a side too early would only lead to death. It was better to hide his trump card and keep watching. He told Lu Xun to get ready for the next journey. Lu Xun looked confused when he refused to rest after such a deadly battle, but Yun-Chi insisted there were still more important things to do. That night, they took shelter in an abandoned building. Lu Xun happily brought out the food she had gathered and joked that it was their first truly precious meal since the apocalypse began. After eating, she thanked him because she had earned a huge amount of points thanks to him today. She remembered how he had deliberately let her finish off the zombies so she could sharpen her skills instead of wasting those points. Thanks to his guidance, Lu Xun officially entered the rankings at position 856. She silently appreciated him, knowing his strict attitude had always been his way of protecting her. After the exhausting day, Lu Xun stretched and announced she was going to take a shower. Yun-Chi shook his head and wondered how she could be so careless. Lu Xun teased him by asking who she was supposed to guard against, then even suggested they shower together to stay safe. Yun-Chi blushed and hurriedly turned her down. He even patted the dog on the head and joked that he would rather bathe with it than with her. That careless remark made Lu Xun puff out her cheeks in frustration. She shot him a glare before slamming the bathroom door shut. Yun-Chi let out a relieved sigh, reminding himself this was no time for romance, and she was probably just joking anyway. But behind the closed door, Lu Xun's face grew heavy as she remembered the parents and home she had lost in less than a single day. Feeling safe beside Yun-Chi made her long to grow closer, yet his distant attitude left her questioning how he truly felt about her. A bold idea suddenly crossed her mind, and she decided to test his feelings. 10 minutes passed. Wrapped in a towel, Lu Xun stepped out and softly called Yun-Chi's name. The only reply was the steady breathing of Yun-Chi, fast asleep on the sofa beside the little dog. Embarrassed and annoyed, she gritted her teeth and muttered that he might as well spend the rest of his life with that dog. The next morning, Lu Xun woke up and found Yun-Chi had already packed everything. Still half asleep, she asked why he was up so early. Yun-Chi kept it short and told her to finish packing so they could leave. Seeing him loading supplies, Lu Xun asked where they were going. Tightening his backpack, Yun-Chi announced their destination, Zhongdu. They had to leave immediately. Lu Xun strongly objected, saying the farm still had supplies, and Zhongdu might not be any safer. Yun-Chi looked her in the eye and calmly listed 3 reasons. First, the food stock here would only last a week, so it was never a long-term shelter. Second, the real game would begin in just 6 hours. Once chaos erupted, leaving would become nearly impossible. Finally, his family was in Zhongdu. He had to find his older sister, make sure she was safe, and learn where the equipment she gave him had come from. Lu Xun's imagination ran wild again, as she wondered if he was some wealthy heir worried about his fiancée. Yun-Chi sighed helplessly at her imagination. He admitted he did have a fiancée, but there were no feelings between them. Before she could keep rambling, he urged her to get in the jeep. Together they loaded the vehicle with food, water, fuel, and sleeping bags. Dahae even helped carry supplies before sitting neatly among the cargo. Yun-Chi also carefully brought along the flying motorcycle because of its mobility. With everything ready, he confidently stepped on the gas. Right then, his phone announced there was exactly 1 hour left before the game officially began. A massive announcement appeared across the sky, revealing new rules for the surviving NPCs. Both of them instantly went on high alert. Yun-Chi could already feel a wave of danger closing in. The system announced that after 60 minutes, the preparation phase would end, and every NPC could choose either the player faction or the civilian faction. However, player faction slots were extremely limited, giving priority to those with the highest points, while also allowing players to kill NPCs and steal 50% of their points. Yunqi immediately saw the system's plan to encourage everyone to slaughter each other. For a single spot, people would betray their allies without hesitation, destroying every trace of order. Just as he was about to ask Lucine, her body suddenly began glowing with a brilliant pink light. A sphere of energy completely surrounded her. In the blink of an eye, Lucine was transported into a strange realm filled with countless stars. She frantically searched for Yunqi, but found only endless emptiness. A gigantic gate slowly opened, and a gentle voice welcomed her. A woman with radiant wings appeared, placed a hand on Lucine's shoulder, and called her the Here of Light. Lucine stepped back in shock and demanded to know who she was. The woman smiled and introduced herself as the embodiment of light, a supreme existence within this game. She confirmed that Lucine's power had awakened and offered her the chance to become the next great successor. Lucine stood frozen, as a warm current of energy flowed through every vein in her body. Deep within her mind, the light entity urged her to join the player faction and enter the Temple of Light. Her radiant wings released ancient energy, as she declared this was the only path to becoming the Light King, the ruler destined to lead the forces of good against the darkness. Bathed in golden light, Lucine was overwhelmed with doubt, as she wondered whether she was truly worthy of saving the planet. After a long pause, she asked if joining the players would not be the same as betraying her own world. The light entity calmly replied that light and darkness had always existed together. The Light King's duty was to hide within the darkness and spread hope. Then she asked whether Lucine was willing to sacrifice herself for the people she loved. That question struck her like a fatal blow and left her speechless. At that very moment, Yunqi's worried voice echoed through the void and pulled her back to reality. Before disappearing, the light entity sternly warned that if her secret was ever exposed, the system would immediately strip away her status as the Light King. Lucine quickly buried her thoughts and forced a smile, claiming she had only zoned out for a moment, but Yunqi still sensed something was wrong. Suddenly remembering the new rules, Yunqi slammed on the brakes. He turned toward Lucine and seriously asked whether she intended to join the player faction. Lucine exploded with emotion and declared she would rather die than stand beside the players who had murdered her family. Even so, the mysterious being's words continued to haunt her from deep within. After a long silence, she looked at Yunqi and asked what he would choose if he were in her position. Yunqi answered without a second of hesitation, absolutely not. Lucine still tried to persuade him, insisting that joining the player faction was the best way to survive the brutal apocalypse. Yunqi gave a faint smile and said people always romanticized paths they had never walked. He admitted NPCs were nothing more than monsters in the eyes of players, and this road was filled with danger. But once he chose to stand with humanity, he would never look back. Lucine anxiously asked if he would regret it if he already knew death was waiting at the end. Yunqi smiled and said there would always be people who charged forward even when they knew hope was gone. Those words completely shook Lucine, and she realized nothing could change his resolve. As for herself, if there was even the slightest chance to change the planet's fate, she wanted to fight for it, no matter the cost. Taking a deep breath, Lucine looked him in the eye and declared that she would join the player faction. Yunqi fell silent, knowing deep down that her choice was not wrong. If there was a safer path, who would willingly wander through this ruined world instead? He pulled the jeep over to the side of the road. Handing her food and water, he told her to take the flying motorcycle back to the farm and wait for the players to arrive. Lucine's eyes turned red as she softly called his name, unable to hide her sadness. Yunqi forced himself to smile. He placed a helmet on her head and joked that maybe one day he would become the final boss, while she led an army to defeat him, giving them another chance to meet. The joke only made her cry even harder. She rushed forward, hugged him tightly, and swore that even if they stood on opposite sides, she would never raise a hand against him. Yunqi quietly let her rest against his shoulder. He gently tapped her helmet and teased that she was almost 30, but still acted like a child, though he knew their different ideals would eventually make them enemies. After that, Yunqi urged her to leave before the players flooded into the world. Lucine revved the engine, and the flying motorcycle shot down the highway. Yunqi and Dahei watched her disappear into the distance, and he quietly realized the dog was now his only companion. He looked up at the sky and calmly waited for the game to begin. At that moment, a massive countdown clock appeared overhead. Every second passed with growing urgency. The numbers kept ticking, while Lucine continued speeding away on the flying motorcycle. Yunqi stood perfectly still, his eyes filled with unwavering determination. The final second reached 0. Static rippled across the sky as an announcement declared the apocalypse game had officially begun and all players were entering the world. The jeep remained parked on the deserted road, but everything around it had completely changed. The system automatically activated autonomous driving mode. New interfaces and rules flooded the display, and Yunqi finally understood why Titan had never been able to decode the game's data. the system announced that the preparation phase had ended. NPCs would now be ranked by points. The top 1% became boss-class NPCs. The top 5% became rare-class NPCs, and their stats would scale with the players. All remaining NPCs were assigned to elite, normal, or beginner village classes. Looking at the rankings, Yun-Chi was certain he had reached boss status, though he still had no idea how to upgrade that title further. Another important rule stated that only players could gain experience from monsters, while NPCs relied entirely on the system and player strength to grow stronger. Yun-Chi laughed bitterly. NPCs were nothing but pieces on the game's board, though at least his starting points had been converted into apocalypse coins. He opened his personal status screen. The system officially confirmed that he was now a boss-class NPC. All his attributes increased by 25%. He jumped straight to level 12. His Death Knight class was activated, and his ability to resurrect the dead remained intact. Looking over his new stats, Yun-Chi was satisfied. While players were still starting at level 1, he was already a true level 12 boss. His plan to hunt players was immediately crushed by another rule. Every player was protected inside beginner villages, and any NPC that attacked them would be forcibly downgraded. The system then introduced source energy, allowing every class to use it to unleash supernatural abilities. Custom energy armor was unlocked. Its defense scaled with Constitution, and without it, Constitution dropped to only 20%. Any weapon lacking source energy became useless. Yun-Chi instantly saw the game's true goal. It was wiping out old technology to force humanity into relying on source energy, where players clearly held the advantage. The World Channel erupted into fierce arguments over whether joining the player faction was a personal choice or an act of betraying the planet. Yun-Chi was surprised by the intensity of the debate. He learned that Yu Wentan, the chairman of the Alliance, had publicly joined the player faction and was now standing against Zhongdu's war god. The news shocked everyone, and people demanded an explanation from the Alliance. Yun-Chi was stunned because Yu Wenjin's actions would turn Zhongdu into a blazing war zone. Even so, he ignored the chaos and focused on studying the rules, because gaining an edge mattered most. The system granted him a special notice. His one-of-a-kind title boosted all stats by 25, unlocked every NPC interaction, granted access to divine artifacts, and let him issue one peerless quest to players every 2 days. After reading it, Yun-Chi felt proud of this truly unique title. Even at the same level as other lords, the title gave him a huge advantage. Combined with the Death Knight class, his power would rise to another level. Yun-Chi clenched his fist and felt power surging through him. Now he understood why everyone wanted the top ranking. His eyes stopped on the divine artifact vault. Before he could react, the jeep suddenly came to a stop because something blocked the road. He looked up. A cargo truck blocked the road, and 4 strange men stood in his way. The leader wore crude armor, gripped a baseball bat, and ordered him to get out of the jeep. Yun-Chi calmly stepped out with Da-Hei, studied their armor, and decided to activate his energy armor for a test. A green glow covered his body as the system rapidly assembled the warframe and completed the process. In an instant, sleek black armor with bright neon green lines wrapped around him while he gripped his greatsword. Behind a demon-fanged mask, his eyes glowed with a cold and deadly light. The bandits laughed and mocked the bulky armor, saying it would never move fast. The blonde leader even bragged that he would feed Yun-Chi's corpse to the zombies after taking the jeep. Yun-Chi stayed expressionless and calmly asked if they feared punishment for robbing and murdering innocent people. The leader burst into laughter and mocked him. He claimed the Alliance's authorities had already fled, so now only the strongest ruled. The man in the helmet glared at him and declared that the weak existed only to be trampled by the strong. Before he could finish speaking, Yun-Chi threw a powerful punch. It slammed into the man's face and sent him flying dozens of meters away. The other 3 froze in disbelief. One of them trembled and screamed in fear. Yun-Chi calmly repeated their own words. The strong had the right to decide everything. The system announced he had defeated a level 8 target and rewarded him with 1 divine weapon tech point. Yun-Chi was slightly surprised and quickly opened the newly unlocked interface. It was an exclusive feature for the Peerless title, unlocking the divine weapon tech tree. The first upgrade raised weapons to purple quality and added nano resize, but it required enough tech points. Without hesitation, he used the planet's child talent to alter the reward rate and force every future tech point gain to be multiplied by 10. Green energy erupted around him once again. The system confirmed the setup was complete. Seeing the remaining bandits fleeing in panic, Yun-Chi smirked and ordered Da-Hei to hunt them down instead of wasting those valuable points. The undead dog let out a thunderous roar. It charged like lightning and tore through the fleeing men's armor with ease. Agonized screams echoed as the blonde man's face turned pale after watching Da-Hei rip apart energy armor like paper. Yun-Chi nodded in satisfaction. Da-Hei was now the same level as him and had gained another 5 stat boost, making it a level 12 elite warhound capable of dominating the area. Before the blonde man could recover, Da-Hei leaped forward and ended his life. The last survivor desperately ran toward the truck, hoping to escape. But when he turned around, Yun-chi was already blocking his path, with a sharp blade aimed at his throat. Yun-chi mocked him for being in such a hurry, then finished the bandit's journey with one clean slash. After the bandits were wiped out, the energy armor dissolved into countless green particles. The system awarded another 300 divine weapon tech points, just enough to unlock the first upgrade. Just as he finally relaxed, a clear female voice suddenly spoke from behind him. Yun-chi instantly turned around with a cautious gaze. Amid the pool of blood and the scattered corpses, a young girl sat casually on the hood of the jeep with a playful smile. What shocked him most was that neither he nor Da-hye had sensed her presence at all. The girl lightly jumped down from the jeep. She calmly introduced herself as Jiang Xiaoduo, a 19-year-old player. Yun-chi kept a cold expression and never took his eyes off her. Meanwhile, the girl confidently called him by name. She opened her quest panel and explained that a player had hired her to deliver a shipment of supplies to him. The moment she finished speaking, her expression turned fierce. She rushed forward and unleashed a powerful kick at Yun-chi. Acting on instinct, he dodged to the side. Jiang Xiaoduo looked surprised when the strange flash of light blocked her attack. Before she could react, Yun-chi closed the distance with terrifying speed. His icy blade stopped right at her throat. Jiang Xiaoduo froze before being knocked back, then angrily complained that he was way too violent for an NPC. At that moment, Da-hye roared and lunged at her. The girl flipped aside and dodged with ease. She even stepped on the dog's head and sent it bouncing backward. Witnessing that speed, Yun-chi was genuinely shocked. Even after investing heavily in agility, he still could not catch her, proving she was no ordinary opponent. Seeing the tension rise, Jiang Xiaoduo raised her hand and called for a truce, demanding to know why he attacked her. Yun-chi coldly replied that she had attacked first, and that strange light looked exactly like an ambush skill. She blinked in confusion and explained it was only the experience reward effect for completing a quest. Pointing at the cargo, she insisted it contained medicine and food from another player. If she wanted him dead, she would never have brought relief supplies. Yun-chi checked the shipment and confirmed it was genuine. He guessed the sender was Lu Xin because only she knew his location, and that eased his worries about her safety. Yun-chi then asked about the quest system, and she explained it was a privilege reserved for high-level NPCs. She said she had accepted a 20 Apocalypse coin escort mission to guide him to the next city, but Yun-chi refused without hesitation. He called Da-hye back into the jeep and prepared to leave. Jiang Xiaoduo kept insisting she was capable, but Yun-chi still refused because players would see him as nothing more than a walking boss. Keeping such an unpredictable person around would only cause trouble and slow down his research. The jeep sped away, leaving Jiang Xiaoduo stomping her feet in frustration after failing to complete the contract. Inside the jeep, Yun-chi opened the technology interface and spent 30 points to unlock the first upgrade. The system confirmed success. His weapon's durability reached SSS rank, and the nano resize feature was activated. Nanoparticles reforged the greatsword into a much sharper and more powerful form. Yun-chi was pleased with the result, though the glowing effects were a little too flashy. Suddenly, he heard an odd sound and turned his head in shock. Jiang Xiaoduo was furiously pedaling an old bicycle while somehow keeping pace with the jeep, shouting that she would follow him until she earned those 20 Apocalypse coins. Yun-chi was completely speechless and could not understand how she was keeping up with a car on that broken bicycle. In the end, he ignored her as if she did not exist, even while she kept calling his name. A system notification appeared. A live stream showing players invading the beginner village was trending with 13.5 million viewers and invited him to watch. Yun-chi frowned, wondering what kind of broadcast could attract such an enormous audience. But the moment he opened the stream, the horrifying scene sent chills down his spine. Flames covered the city as towering buildings vanished beneath thick smoke. On the streets, terrified civilians trampled over each other while fleeing, and desperate voices screamed that the enemy had arrived. Cold sweat ran down Yun-chi's forehead. The scene shifted to a field, piled high with corpses, where a group of well-equipped players stood with arrogant smiles, treating lives as worthless. The camera focused on a purple-haired man with eerie pink eyes. He sneered and called the people of the Blue Planet nothing more than NPCs. The broadcast shifted back to the streets. The players were still relentlessly hunting down every fleeing survivor. An exhausted man fell to his knees and begged for mercy. His killer only laughed before cutting him down, treating the slaughter of NPCs as something completely normal. Elsewhere, a blonde player struck down another victim. He cheered excitedly, believing he had scored another kill. Only seconds later, a pink-haired girl stabbed him through the back. She coldly mocked him, saying players could respawn after death, but NPCs only had one life. The group continued the massacre, treating it like a competition for kill points. The cries of children, the elderly, and desperate pleas for help echoed everywhere. A mother clutched her child and cried in despair, asking where the law enforcers were and who would save them from these ruthless demons. Yun-chi clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white with rage. The desperate cries for justice echoed in his mind as the stream showed a group of players spotting a mother and her child trying to escape. The purple-haired Huang Tianhao grabbed the woman, dragged her before the camera, and grinned with arrogance. He introduced himself as the captain of the Twilight Squad from Beginner Village 2689 and openly challenged any NPC who saw him to run while they still could. The moment he finished speaking, he brutally killed the woman. Blood splattered everywhere as the child fell to the ground, crying in complete despair. Covered in blood, the mother still crawled toward her child and begged for mercy. But Huang Tianhao coldly crushed her head beneath his foot right in front of the live stream. The system announced that the broadcaster had died, and the stream would end in 10 seconds. Before the live stream completely disappeared, Huang Tianhao left one final taunt before turning away without a trace of emotion. At that very moment, Yunqi suddenly slammed the brakes on the jeep. Jiang Xiaoduo nearly crashed into it on her bicycle and hurriedly asked what had happened, thinking he had finally agreed to let her protect him. But when she looked inside, she saw Yunqi sitting motionless, with his eyes locked on the now dark livestream screen. One glance was enough for her to recognize the group as the Twilight Squad. She shook her head and called them nothing but bloodthirsty maniacs, but suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Yunqi's eyes glowed with an icy blue light, and the killing intent around him was so heavy, it felt like the air itself had frozen. Feeling the bone-chilling killing intent, Jiang Xiaoduo instinctively stepped back and quickly warned him not to challenge the Twilight Squad. Huang Tianhao was infamous for his cruelty and had powerful backing. As an early-stage NPC, Yunqi had almost no chance of finding them, let alone fighting the entire squad alone. After hearing her out, Yunqi calmly looked at her and said he only needed one simple favor. Before Jiang Xiaoduo could respond, a massive quest window appeared before her eyes. Yunqi directly issued her a peerless quest, asking her to share the world map. The reward was all the experience for her current level, and 100 apocalypse coins. She stood there, completely stunned. Only top-tier players could ever hope to receive a quest like this, yet the requirement was simply sharing a map. It was almost unbelievable. Without a second of hesitation, Jiang Xiaoduo accepted the quest. She opened the three-dimensional world map and completed the objective instantly. System notifications rang out non-stop as she jumped straight to level 11, earned over 1,100 apocalypse coins, and gained 100 favor with NPC Yunqi. The massive reward left her grinning from ear to ear because this single quest was worth more than hundreds of beginner village quests combined. She immediately decided to stick with this generous boss no matter what. Unlike her excitement, Yunqi calmly started the jeep, checked the map, and announced that he had found his destination. He then drove away and told Jiang Xiaoduo there was no need to keep following him. Left behind once again, Jiang Xiaoduo could only stomp her feet and call him a heartless opportunist. As the journey continued, Yunqi checked the route to Zhongdu and was surprised to discover that Beginner Village 2689, where Huang Tianhao had massacred innocent civilians, was directly along his path. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoduo quickly realized the same thing. Remembering the terrifying killing intent she had seen earlier, she finally understood that Yunqi truly intended to hunt down the Twilight Squad alone. 4 hours later, as the sky faded into sunset, the jeep finally stopped outside the gates of Beginner Village 2689. Yunqi stepped out with his greatsword, while Dahei silently followed behind him. At that moment, Jiang Xiaoduo finally arrived on her battered old bicycle. Gasping for breath, she tried to stop Yunqi and warned him that any NPC entering a beginner village would have their level reduced, their stats weakened, and even their immunity effects removed. Yunqi immediately checked his status window and confirmed it. His level had dropped from 12 to 9, every attribute had fallen sharply, and even Dahei had been heavily weakened. After a brief moment of thought, he decided to leave Dahei behind to guard the jeep and supplies while entering the village alone. Seeing that, Jiang Xiaoduo anxiously shouted that he was walking straight into certain death. But at that exact moment, the system displayed another quest from Yunqi, ordering her to stay behind and protect Dahei. The reward was 75 current level experience and 75 apocalypse coins. She clenched her teeth in frustration, knowing he had trapped her again with a mission reward. Even so, Jiang Xiaoduo called after him one last time and asked why he would risk his life to hunt the Twilight Squad. Players could respawn, but NPCs only died once, and Yunqi was no exception. When she asked if any of this was truly worth it, Yunqi suddenly stopped walking. He slightly turned his head and replied in a low voice, "There are things players like you will never understand." After that, Yunqi walked into the beginner village. He froze, as the village looked almost untouched, just like before the apocalypse, even though it had become a starting zone for new players. Only the countless corpses and the heavy smell of blood proved a brutal massacre had taken place just hours earlier. Yunqi slowly scanned the silent street as a bad feeling grew inside him. Had everyone from the livestream already left, or was he still one step too late? Right then his eyes locked onto the end of the street. A group of people was gathered around a corpse at the far end. The tall blonde man turned toward Yun-Chi with a cocky grin. He found it amusing that a level 9 boss dared face them, instead of running like every other NPC. The pink-haired girl beside him smirked and even complimented Yun-Chi on his good looks. Yun-Chi ignored them and calmly asked where Huang Tianhao was. The whole group burst into laughter. They mocked him for daring to challenge their leader, then mentioned the recent livestream and claimed he was walking straight to his death. In their eyes, Huang Tianhao did not even need to show up because they could kill him themselves. The weakest member stepped forward, cracking his knuckles as he volunteered to defeat his first boss for easy experience. He instantly activated his speed boost and bloodthirst, sending his physical power soaring. His full force punch exploded on impact, shaking the ground and covering the area in dust. As the dust settled, Yun-Chi had already moved aside with ease. He realized the enemy's attack power exceeded his own stats, and taking that hit head-on would probably destroy even his armor. But the man's obsession with strength had left his speed as a fatal weakness. A faint smile appeared on Yun-Chi's lips. He burst forward in an instant and delivered a devastating kick to the man's face, launching him straight into the wall behind him. Without giving his enemy time to recover, Yun-Chi charged again like a streak of blue light. The blonde shield user panicked and quickly raised his shield. But Yun-Chi's greatsword pierced through the defense, as if slicing paper. Staring at the hole in his shield, the man was horrified and wondered what rank this weapon was. Without his energy armor reducing the damage, he would have died instantly. Terrified, he immediately shouted for everyone to attack together. At that moment, the pink-haired girl pulled the trigger and fired directly at Yun-Chi's back. The system instantly reported that his armor had lost 5 durability. Keeping her gun aimed forward, she sneered and said it was a shame such a handsome NPC was about to die. But before she could celebrate, Yun-Chi grabbed the player who had challenged him first. A scream echoed through the street before the man's body shattered into countless data fragments before his teammates' horrified eyes. System notifications appeared one after another. After killing his first player, Yun-Chi gained 30 Divine Armament Technology points and unlocked a new class skill called Death Vortex, which could deal massive damage to enemies or restore double health to his undead minions. Only then did he realize that new class skills could only be unlocked by killing players, which explained why he had gained none from level 1 to level 12. Without wasting a second, Yun-Chi immediately activated his newly unlocked skill. A massive green skull-shaped wave of energy erupted from his body and swept across the entire area. Screams rang out everywhere before suddenly falling silent. The ground split apart as the remaining 2 players were erased instantly, their bodies breaking into shimmering data fragments before fading away. Only 1 player remained, frozen in place and drenched in cold sweat after watching his entire team disappear from a single skill. Yun-Chi pointed the tip of his greatsword at him and coldly asked only one question: where is Huang Tianhao? Unable to withstand Yun-Chi's killing intent, the player trembled and confessed everything. Huang Tianhao was gathering the Twilight Squad at a building located at coordinates 2363, 846. Yun-Chi then ordered him to open his map radar and share the location. He knew only players had access to the world map and radar, while NPCs like him could not pinpoint locations with coordinates alone. The player obeyed immediately. A holographic map appeared, but the shared access would expire in less than 10 minutes. Yun-Chi silently noted that limitation for later. As for now, the player had outlived his usefulness. One flash of his sword, and the last player dissolved into data. Before disappearing completely, he heard Yun-Chi's fineful message for Huang Tianhao: wash your neck and wait for me. Staring toward the building where his target had been hiding, Yun-Chi smiled with murderous intent. The night had only just begun, and it was time for those players to learn what true fear of death felt like. Meanwhile, at the respawn zone, golden pillars of light kept appearing as the 3 players killed by Yun-Chi revived one after another. The blonde man still clutched his arm in pain, cursing non-stop because the sensation of being killed had felt unbelievably real. One of his calmer teammates immediately suggested reporting the boss to Huang Tianhao to earn some credit, but the blonde man refused to give up on revenge. He insisted they had only lost because they underestimated Yun-Chi, and that greatsword would eventually become his trophy. As everyone continued talking, the girl in the group suddenly turned pale. She was shocked to discover that her level had dropped. The others quickly panicked after seeing the level 8 players fall to level 7. Even the level 7 players had dropped to level 6. According to the game's rules, dying only cost experience, not levels, but this completely broke the normal system. It did not stop there. All 3 were afflicted with the Deathmark debuff, reducing all their stats by 10 for 10 minutes. The blonde man slammed his fist into the ground in fury, shouting that a boss capable of making players lose levels should never exist in the beginner village. Before long, more and more players killed by Yun-Chi respawned at the starting point, filling the entire area with curses and complaints. Some had lost all their equipment, while others dropped days of hard-earned progress. Every one of them wanted Yun-Chi dead. Amid the chaos, the blonde man suddenly remembered that Yunqi had asked about Huang Tianhao before attacking. His eyes lit up as he shouted that the boss' real target was Huang Tianhao. The crowd immediately changed direction and rushed to warn him, convinced that Huang Tianhao could easily deal with Yunqi. But at that exact moment, a newly revived player was cut down again by a single sword strike and instantly turned into data. Yunqi glanced at the map and frowned slightly. The location he had tracked was completely empty, proving Huang Tianhao had left before he arrived. After spotting a group of players running while shouting Huang Tianhao's name, Yunqi quietly followed them. When they reached the gathering point, they discovered Huang Tianhao had already left. One player quickly checked the radar and confirmed he was hunting in another area. From the rooftop of a tall building, Yunqi silently watched everything unfold. To Yunqi, these players looked no different from the humans of Blue Star, yet they belonged to the race that had crushed the planet's civilization and possessed game-like resurrection. He could not imagine what technology could achieve such a miracle unless this world was never real to begin with. Even the Titans might not know the answer. He quickly pushed those thoughts aside, because the only thing that mattered now was making the murderers pay. Suddenly, Yunqi froze after sensing an incredibly familiar aura below. On a street soaked in blood, Huang Tianhao stood proudly among his followers, laughing loudly over the enormous amount of experience he had gained today. Just then, the players behind him finally arrived and excitedly called out to young Master Huang. They immediately reported the boss that had appeared in the beginner village, one capable of making players lose levels after death, and warned that Huang Tianhao was his next target. After hearing the report, Huang Tianhao merely curled his lips into a confident smile, without the slightest hint of concern. The messenger continued by saying the boss had already reached level 9 and possessed a skill powerful enough to kill a level 8 player in a single attack, adding that he himself had fallen victim to it. In the quiet night, Yunqi stood alone under the moonlight and finally found his target. Ahead of him stood Huang Tianhao, protected by nearly 50 players. Gripping his sword, Yunqi made up his mind. He rarely stepped into other people's battles, but no one deserved to have their right to live crushed by people like them. This time, there was no turning back. Without hesitation, Yunqi started an anonymous livestream and titled it, "Justice is not dead yet." The chat exploded instantly. Some wondered who was brave enough to charge into Newbie Village 2689 alone. Others claimed they would call him boss if he made it back alive. Many believed facing hundreds of players alone was nothing but suicide, because the invaders were said to be impossible to kill. The debate grew even louder. Some called him a true hero, while others mocked the crowd for only talking and never taking action. To Yunqi, the real fear was never the enemy. It was people who had bowed their heads for so long that they had forgotten how to fight back. He slowly put on a metal mask that covered half his face, leaving only his determined eyes exposed. This time, he would become a lone hero. Just then, 2 private messages suddenly appeared. The sender called himself Marshal Fang, and the name pulled Yunqi back to old memories. He recalled the commanding general sitting calmly in the command chair. The man once declared that justice would never disappear. If Yunqi read this message, he wanted to invite him to join the army. But above all, he hoped Yunqi would return safely. After a few stunned seconds, Yunqi's livestream chat suddenly filled with endless words of support. Countless viewers sent the same message, hoping he would come back alive. Watching the comments flood in, Yunqi smiled beneath his mask. He understood their concern because every enemy this time could revive after being killed. Even so, he calmly walked forward. His battle aura erupted as his cold eyes swept across the crowd. Then he declared that today he would find out whether so-called immortality was truly impossible to defeat. On the other side, Huang Tianhao swaggered in with his followers, laughing as he mocked Yunqi for walking into certain death alone. Wanting to show off his victory, he also started a live stream to record himself, defeating the boss in front of every player. Faced with that arrogance, Yunqi simply replied that the one dying today might not be him. It could very well be Huang Tianhao. Hearing that, Huang Tianhao burst into laughter, as if he had just heard the biggest joke. But before the laughter ended, Yunqi vanished and rushed forward so fast that only an afterimage remained. Huang Tianhao's face instantly turned pale. He remembered the rumor that anyone killed by this boss would lose a level, and fear quickly took over. Without wasting another second, he frantically ordered every marksman to open fire. Bullets rained across the battlefield, but every shot passed through empty space because Yunqi was simply too fast. One terrified marksman admitted he could not track the target at all. Huang Tianhao cursed his useless men and immediately offered a huge reward to anyone who could stop Yunqi. The moment they heard the reward, a summoner confidently stepped forward and ordered his summoned beasts to attack. But Yunqi only needed a single swing. Every summoned beast turned into data before reaching him. The sight left the summoner frozen. He quickly shouted for more summoned beasts, but Newbie Village had no powerful creatures to contract. They only had a few low-level dogs, nowhere near strong enough to slow down the terrifying boss. The gap in strength was simply overwhelming. The summoner hurried to call his pet again, but a system message suddenly appeared. It announced that defeated summoned beasts had entered a weakened state and could not be summoned again for 10 minutes. He panicked, denied it repeatedly, and even thought the game had bugged out. Standing among the fading data fragments, Yunqi calmly explained that although the mark of death could not kill summoned beasts instantly, it was enough to leave them completely unable to keep fighting. With that, he raised his sword, unleashed a crushing killing intent, and charged straight into the enemy formation. Sword flashes burst like lightning as player after player fell and dissolved into data. In less than a minute, the battlefield was filled with countless glowing data fragments drifting through the air. The survivors stood frozen. The summoner Junzei admitted in despair that every summoned beast had been wiped out by Yunqi in the blink of an eye. His speed rivaled the deadliest assassins, while his strength matched the strongest warriors. Who could possibly stop a boss like this? The thought of dying in front of everyone filled him with fear. Even so, Huang Tianhao forced himself to stay proud and ordered the Dusk Squad to charge with him. They answered weakly, before reluctantly rushing into battle. Just then, a female gunslinger stepped forward with twin pistols. She believed that at close range, Yunqi would never dodge every shot. A barrage of orange bullets streaked toward him. Yet before everyone's stunned eyes, Yunqi glided like a shadow and effortlessly dodged every single round. The players erupted in shock. Some could not believe an entire squad of marksmen failed to hit one NPC. Others were terrified by Yunqi's unbelievable speed, while one girl was completely captivated by both his overwhelming strength and his icy composure. Beneath his mask, Yunqi smiled faintly. Dodging bullets was never about being faster than the bullets. You only had to react faster than the person pulling the trigger. Besides, these marksmen were nowhere near Jiang Xiaoduo's level. That thought only confirmed that leaving Jiang Xiaoduo behind to guard the vehicle had been the right choice. If she had been fighting for the enemy, this battle would have been far more troublesome. The moment the thought ended, Yunqi exploded forward at full speed and charged straight into the enemy formation. The female gunslinger panicked as Yunqi suddenly appeared right in front of her, while her magazine had already run dry. Another player desperately shouted for everyone to counterattack, believing that sheer numbers would eventually overwhelm Yunqi. Yunqi answered with nothing but a look of contempt. He coldly told the extras to stop wasting his time before activating Death Vortex. A gigantic energy skull appeared and covered the entire battlefield as screams echoed from every direction. Without slowing down, he surged ahead like a raging storm. One devastating kick instantly sent the Scarfist man flying. He then pinned down everyone blocking his path with a control skill before advancing toward his real target. Someone realized his intention and desperately warned Huang Tianhao, but it was already too late. In the blink of an eye, Yunqi was standing right in front of him. Huang Tianhao forced himself to stay calm and raised the golden shield he had just bought for 300 doomsday coins, proudly declaring that no one could break its defense. A sharp metallic clash rang out, but with a single slash, Yunqi knocked the shield aside. Yunqi smirked and mocked him, saying the money was well spent because the shield made a perfect target for his sword. As soon as he finished speaking, his sword came down a second time. The blade tore through the defense and plunged straight into Huang Tianhao's chest. His eyes widened in horror as he watched his prized shield fail so easily. A moment later, his body shattered into countless data fragments before his stunned followers. No one expected Huang Tianhao to be killed in the middle of such a massive formation. Yunqi remained standing proudly in the center of the battlefield, surrounded by swirling green killing intent that intimidated everyone who saw him. News of a player's death spread rapidly. Some called it the beginning of humanity's counterattack and urged everyone to take up arms. Others reminded them that players could still revive, so the battle was far from over. As Yunqi stood in the middle of the battlefield, with green energy swirling around him, two blades suddenly sliced through the air. They instantly cut down an enemy right in front of him. At the same time, Yunqi sensed a wave of killing intent rushing toward him from behind. Without even turning around, he spun and drove a powerful kick into the ambusher's stomach before coldly mocking that only fools relied on sneak attacks. The assassin was launched backward and skidded across the ground like a stone skipping over water. After assessing the situation, Yunqi realized that although these two assassins were incredibly fast, someone even faster had secretly intercepted the first sneak attack for him. That made him curious about the identity of the mysterious stranger. Just as the tension reached its peak, the sound of a barking dog suddenly echoed through the air. Looking up at a nearby balcony, Yunqi spotted Jiang Xiaoduo grinning proudly while holding the leash of a dog beside her. She teased him, saying one simple mission was never enough to keep her away. Luckily, she had brought the dog along, and now she wanted to see what other surprises Yunqi had in store. Before he could answer, another wave of players rushed onto the battlefield. They shouted that Huang Tianhao had revived and was offering 1,000 doomsday coins to anyone who could hold the boss in place. The massive reward instantly lit up everyone's eyes, and they charged forward like a tidal wave, determined not to let Yunqi escape. Surrounded by countless enemies, Yun-Chi calmly assessed the situation. The enemy had overwhelming numbers, while his equipment durability was limited. He had to end the battle as quickly as possible. Just then, a private message appeared. Marshal Fang calmly pointed out the priority target, the warrior standing second from the left. Almost at the same moment, a silver-haired player roared and charged in, eager to claim the reward. Without hesitation, Yun-Chi unleashed Death Vortex. Green energy instantly bound the enemy in mid-air, leaving him completely helpless. On the other side of the screen, Marshal Fang remained focused on the livestream. Yun-Chi could not help but admire how the Marshal analyzed the battlefield through the camera angle and kept giving perfectly timed instructions. Another message arrived. Marshal Fang promised to keep identifying the most dangerous targets and said he hoped Yun-Chi, the spark that could ignite humanity's resistance, would never fall so easily. With those precise directions, Yun-Chi moved like a ghost. The moment a target was marked, he was already closing the distance. His sword carved icy arcs through the air before striking the shoulder of a warrior charging toward him. Less than a second later, another warning arrived from Marshal Fang, revealing that an enemy was about to launch a sneak attack from behind. Yun-Chi instantly changed direction and leaned aside at the exact moment the attack came, dodging it with unbelievable precision. Before the warrior could react, Yun-Chi spun around and drove a devastating kick into his face, knocking him flat on the spot. Watching everything unfold, Marshal Fang could not hide his excitement. He estimated that Yun-Chi needed less than 3 seconds to eliminate each threat after receiving guidance. That level of reaction belonged to a top-tier warrior. However, the silver-haired woman beside him disagreed. In her opinion, Yun-Chi's reflexes were exceptional, but his power was lacking. After fighting for so long, he still had not defeated every player. If she were there, they would already be dead instead of merely restrained. Marshal Fang only smiled and shook his head. He said that was not weakness, but proof of strength beyond common sense. His answer left the woman speechless. Marshal Fang calmly explained that within only a few minutes, Yun-Chi had already figured out the true pattern of the battle. He was deliberately avoiding killing the players, because once they died, they would immediately revive and return to the fight. The smarter strategy was to disable them and strip away their ability to fight, gradually weakening the entire enemy force. Even more astonishing, Yun-Chi had begun predicting Marshal Fang's intentions before the next instruction was even sent. His ability to adapt and learn was truly terrifying. Back on the battlefield, Yun-Chi unleashed another Wideria skill. Countless green energy chains shot outward and bound every player within range. Panicked screams filled the battlefield as no one could break free. Staring coldly at the crowd that had completely lost the ability to resist, Yun-Chi slowly shifted his gaze toward the last remaining target. In the distance, the newly revived Huang Tianhao appeared in dazzling golden armor, walking forward with complete confidence. He laughed loudly, claiming Yun-Chi had foolishly given him enough time to prepare. Now, the boss would finally pay the price. Seeing Huang Tianhao return, the players erupted in cheers, convinced the tide of battle was about to change. He proudly showed off his new equipment and the massive stat boosts surrounding him, boasting that he had spent a fortune in Doomsday coins to gain this power. This time, Yun-Chi would learn the difference between a wild monster and a real player. The moment he finished speaking, Huang Tianhao roared and charged forward, swinging his massive greatsword with unstoppable force. But behind his mask, Yun-Chi simply smiled. He casually raised his sword and blocked the enormous strike. The deafening clash of steel rang across the battlefield, leaving Huang Tianhao completely stunned. He could not believe that even with his boosted stats from expensive gear, he was still stopped with ease. Yun-Chi calmly forced him back and mocked him, saying young Master Huang had improved since last time. But Huang Tianhao was still frozen in shock. Yun-Chi appeared behind him like a shadow and drove his icy sword straight through his chest. He raised his head slightly and coldly said, behind the mask, that he would help him understand what it truly felt like to be killed. Huang Tianhao screamed as his body shattered into streams of chaotic data before disappearing. Even as he faded away, he stubbornly threatened to return with stronger gear, more allies, and defeat Yun-Chi next time. Seeing Huang Tianhao lose again left the players speechless. Some panicked because even top-tier gear could not beat this boss, while others believed they still had a chance if they figured out Yun-Chi's abilities. Yun-Chi ignored them and quietly turned around as green killing intent continued to surge around him. Just when everyone expected another massacre, Yun-Chi suddenly burst forward and shot out of the encirclement like an arrow. The players could only stare in confusion, unable to understand why a boss with the upper hand had suddenly retreated. Some believed he had only come to teach Huang Tianhao a lesson. Others guessed he left because he expected young Master Huang to bring stronger gear and more reinforcements. But the more they thought about it, the more a few players felt it was not that simple. Even inside Yun-Chi's secret channel, everyone argued non-stop. Some urged him to leave before being surrounded, while others regretted missing the chance to kill more players. Then one member suddenly realized Yun-Chi was not heading toward the exit of the beginner village at all. At that moment, a girl watching Huang Tianhao's livestream turned pale when Yun Qi appeared on the screen. One glance was enough for her to realize his target was the respawn point. Just as she expected, everything unfolded at the glowing golden respawn circle. Huang Tianhao had just respawned and angrily complained about losing 2 more levels. He even declared that he would gather people and capture Yun Qi alive for revenge. But the moment he looked up, he froze, as Yun Qi was already standing in front of him with a chilling aura, covering the entire area. Without giving him a single chance, Yun Qi brought his sword down. Blood splashed across the ground inside the area, everyone considered the safest place. Huang Tianhao had no time to react before he was struck into critical condition. The scene left every viewer completely silent. From Jiang Xiaoduo and Yuan Shuifeng to countless other players, everyone was stunned by what they saw. Yun Qi calmly raised his hand as green energy instantly bound Huang Tianhao before activating Death Vortex. Another scream echoed as Huang Tianhao's newly restored body broke apart into data once again. In total panic, he could not understand how Yun Qi had found this place. Yun Qi casually replied that the players had exposed the respawn point themselves through their own showy behavior. Moments later, Huang Tianhao's respawn was interrupted again as his body slowly faded inside the magic circle. Another system notification struck him hard as his level dropped to LV5. Huang Tianhao cursed the game for such an unfair system, but after realizing he stood no chance against Yun Qi, he could only think about logging out to save what little progress he had left. But when he forced the system to log out, a message appeared denying the request. Only then did Huang Tianhao truly panic, as he realized he could no longer leave the game. Yun Qi did not hesitate. He grabbed Huang Tianhao and stabbed straight through him once again. A block of green data quickly imprisoned Huang Tianhao and sealed off every chance of escape. Looking into his terrified eyes, Yun Qi coldly asked if it hurt. In despair, Huang Tianhao could only groan as the system announced his level had fallen to LV4, while Yun Qi showed no sign of stopping. The sword pierced him again and again, each strike draining the last of his strength. As Yun Qi attacked, he asked if Huang Tianhao knew what true humiliation felt like, while his level kept dropping to LV3 and then LV2. Yun Qi lifted his fading body closer and quietly asked if he had ever truly felt the fear of facing death. Agonized screams echoed across the respawn point. Yun Qi raised his sword with years of buried rage in his eyes, saying, this pain was only payback for everything the players had done to Blue Star's humanity. His final strike came down and completely shattered Huang Tianhao's arrogance. At the same time, his level officially dropped to LV1. The players watching from a distance turned pale. Some could only whisper that young Master Huang had been completely broken this time. Back in the command center, even the platinum-haired woman dropped her contempt. She stood up at once and admitted that Yun Qi could not only strip players of their levels, but also possessed skill, strategy, and power beyond expectations. Yuan Shuifeng simply smiled, knowing Yun Qi was using fear to warn every player and stop them from slaughtering the people of Blue Star. Even so, the woman still believed the game's rules prevented NPCs from truly killing players. Back on the battlefield, the now helpless LV1 Huang Tianhao looked up at Yun Qi and begged him to stop, saying one more death would erase all his remaining levels. But moments later, his fear turned into madness. Laughing like a lunatic, he convinced himself players were immortal and could always level up again, then swore he would break Yun Qi's arms and legs once he became stronger. In response to every threat, Yun Qi silently swung his sword once more. Huang Tianhao's eyes widened as blood poured from the corner of his mouth. Then a bright red system notification appeared, confirming that player Huang Tianhao had died. The entire battlefield fell silent. From Jiang Xiaoduo and Yuan Shuifeng to every viewer, no one could believe what had just happened. Only Jiang Xiaoduo broke into an excited smile after the initial shock, because Yun Qi had once again achieved the impossible. Yuan Shuifeng quickly confirmed that Huang Tianhao had not entered the respawn state again. The platinum-haired woman was completely stunned as she witnessed an NPC break the game's rules and permanently kill a player. Moments later, Huang Tianhao's livestream suddenly went offline because its owner had truly died. The news instantly shook every player outside. No one believed young Master Huang could actually die because players were supposed to be immortal. But from that moment on, fear spread everywhere. The girl who had watched everything clenched her fists as cold sweat covered her body. For the first time, she realized being a player was no longer absolute protection. At that moment, Yun Qi slowly landed before the surviving players. With a cold gaze, he declared that it was time they learned what true power really meant. The crowd immediately fell into chaos. Some backed away while crying and begging for mercy, but it was already too late. Yun Qi raised his sword and calmly told them to join Huang Tianhao before beginning the final purge. Cries for help and desperate screams echoed across the battlefield, but less than a minute later, every sound was gone. As the last fragments of data faded into the air, Yun Qi removed his mask. His handsome face showed clear exhaustion after the battle, and every player in the beginner village had been wiped out. Then Yunqi looked toward a hidden corner and calmly called Jiang Xiaoduo to come out. She peeked out from her hiding place in surprise and asked how he had known she had been following him all along. She then turned toward Da He with a suspicious look, accusing the beast of secretly giving away her position, leaving it whining as if trying to clear its name. Yunqi laughed and explained that he never needed Da He to tell him, because Jiang Xiaoduo had already exposed herself. He also confirmed that she was the one who had helped him stop the two assassins earlier. Hearing that, Jiang Xiaoduo blushed bright red and pouted, saying that if she had known he noticed her so early, she would not have bothered helping him. But only seconds later, her expression turned serious again. She urgently warned Yunqi to leave at once, because Huang Long, Huang Tianhao's father, was nearby and was far from an easy opponent. After hearing the warning, Yunqi quietly fell into thought for a brief moment. Then he looked directly at Jiang Xiaoduo and asked the question that left her speechless. As a player, why had she chosen to stand with an NPC like him, when players could simply kill monsters to earn experience? Jiang Xiaoduo immediately put her hands on her hips and proudly declared that not every player was the same. She explained that she only enjoyed taking quests, delivering letters, finding items, and doing errands for NPCs to earn rewards, and had never been interested in rushing into battle to hunt monsters. Her voice then turned serious as she spoke about Huang Tianhao and Huang Long. The wealthy father and son had founded the Twilight Legion the moment they entered the game and led their forces across the map to level up. Now that Yunqi had killed Huang Tianhao, Huang Long would surely mobilize the entire legion for revenge. Right then, the World Channel announced that the Twilight Legion was heading straight for Beginner, Village 2689. Jiang Xiaoduo immediately turned pale and urged Yunqi to run before it was too late. But Yunqi only smiled and said it made things easier since he would not have to hunt them down one by one. Jiang Xiaoduo was left speechless. Even though Yunqi's equipment had been badly damaged in the previous battle, he still wanted to face Huang Long head-on. Yunqi calmly looked into the distance and said he had never considered himself unbeatable, but as long as his enemies dared to appear, he would fight to the very end. If he could kill Huang Tianhao with a single strike, Huang Long would be no different. Those fearless words left Jiang Xiaoduo frozen for several seconds. After a brief hesitation, she suddenly stomped the ground and activated her spirit cat talent. Purple energy instantly burst around her body, greatly boosting her speed, allowing her to see in the dark and strengthening her physique in dangerous situations. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Xiaoduo dashed forward far faster than when Yunqi had first met her. Seeing this, Yunqi immediately became alert and even suspected she had been pretending to be harmless all along, while waiting for the perfect chance to kill him for experience. But what happened next was completely unexpected. Jiang Xiaoduo never drew a weapon. Instead, she flashed a sly smile, pulled out two special electric cords, and activated them. A small explosion rang out as thick white smoke instantly covered the entire area. As the smoke slowly cleared, the scene finally came into view. Yunqi was tightly bound by the special cords and sitting on the ground. Relieved that her plan had worked, Jiang Xiaoduo grinned and proudly declared that he was now her prisoner. Yunqi could only stare at her in confusion and annoyance, completely unable to figure out what she was planning. 3 minutes later, a jeep sped out of Beginner Village with both of them inside and quickly disappeared into the distance. Inside the speeding jeep, Jiang Xiaoduo happily hummed a tune as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Yunqi sat tied up in the passenger seat and sarcastically remarked that she had captured him just to give him a ride. Jiang Xiaoduo beamed and explained that her mission was to escort Yunqi safely to the next city. It sounded simple, but she knew it was an extremely rare quest, with rewards worth far more than hundreds of normal missions. For the experience and apocalypse coins, she was determined to protect him until they left Beginner Village, where it would be much safer. But at that very moment, a sharp black object suddenly flew in and pierced one of the tires. The jeep instantly lost control and swerved violently. Jiang Xiaoduo thought she had run over something, but Yunqi immediately denied it and declared that this was clearly a planned ambush. Da Hai, sitting in the back seat, growled non-stop as if warning them of danger. Both of them looked behind and saw a convoy of heavy motorcycles racing after them. It was the Twilight Legion, and the riders were shouting in excitement after finally locking onto their target. Jiang Xiaoduo immediately turned pale. She never expected them to catch up so quickly, and even wondered if it was already too late to beg for mercy. Unlike her panic, Yunqi simply sighed and asked why she had tried to play the hero if she was only going to be afraid now. It would have been much easier to let him handle everything from the start. As soon as he finished speaking, he flexed his strength slightly, and the special cords binding him instantly snapped apart. Jiang Xiaoduo stared in disbelief, having no idea when he had already broken free. Yunqi calmly opened the door, stepped out alone, and faced the charging Twilight Legion by himself. The man leading the charge immediately raised his glowing sword and loudly ordered every subordinate to rush forward and kill Yunqi. His motorcycle screeched to a stop right in front of Yunqi, leaving a long skid mark across the road. Yet Yunqi never moved. His icy gaze stayed fixed ahead, and his sword was already waiting. He curled his lips into a faint smile, and coldly said that the leader always falls first. The moment those words ended, his sword flashed. Blood sprayed everywhere, as the leader let out a few terrified cries, before his entire body dissolved into data. Yunqi calmly wiped the blood from his blade, looked at the players, who had slammed on their brakes in fear, and asked if they still had not realized that their captain would never stand up again. The entire Twilight Legion froze, as the riderless motorcycle kept sliding forward, while the only man left on the battlefield stood there, without a hint of fear. A female gamer said with a trembling voice that Lin Zi had the strongest defense on their team, yet he still fell to a single slash. No one could understand how a level 9 boss could be this terrifying. At that moment, the status above Yunqi suddenly changed and revealed his true level as LV-12, leaving everyone speechless. Only then did they realize that Yunqi's power had been suppressed inside the beginner village, and his true strength was finally unleashed after leaving that area. Even Jiang Xiaoduo, watching from inside the vehicle, was stunned as she witnessed Yunqi fully regain his peak power. Yunqi smiled to himself, knowing the potion Jiang Xiaoduo had given him was the reason his recovery happened so quickly. Still, he quickly realized the Twilight Legion was far more battle-hardened than the players from the beginner village, so this fight would not be easy. Just then, a tall blonde man stepped forward. With blazing red eyes, he roared and demanded to know if Yunqi was the one who had killed his son. That man was Huang Long. Without waiting for an answer, he summoned a massive battle axe as purple energy burst around him. He declared that no matter what kind of bug or monster Yunqi was, killing Huang Tianhao meant paying with his life today. The moment he finished speaking, Huang Long swung his battle axe down with all his strength. But against that overwhelming attack, Yunqi casually stopped it with one hand. The impact exploded like thunder, and everyone turned pale. Huang Long was blasted backward and staggered until his subordinates rushed in to catch him. His men quickly checked on him, while the female commander ordered everyone to tighten the encirclement. She believed their numbers would eventually wear the boss down. Hearing that plan, Yunqi only sneered. He calmly said it might look like they had surrounded him, but in reality, he was the one surrounding all of them. The instant he finished speaking, Yunqi vanished. Before the players understood what happened, screams echoed across the battlefield. Dahai suddenly burst out from beneath the vehicle, clamped onto a man's throat, killed him instantly, and landed lightly on the ground. The LV-12 tag appeared above its head, leaving everyone stunned. No one expected the dog that always followed Jiang Xiaoduo to be a level 12 elite monster. Snapping out of their shock, the entire team immediately switched their target to Dahai. Countless skills and non-stop attacks rained down on the beast. Yet Dahai only let out a low growl and barely took any damage. At the same time, Yunqi raised his hand and activated Death Vortex. Dark energy swept through the enemy formation, wiping out anyone in its path before quickly engulfing Dahai. Green light instantly wrapped around Dahai and healed every wound. The skill description also revealed that Death Vortex dealt massive magic damage while restoring double health to Yunqi's undead minions. That sight drove the survivors into complete despair. Some admitted it would take at least several hundred players to stand a chance against Yunqi. Just then, one subordinate reported to Huang Long that the respawn point was nearby, and Pan Dalin was already leading reinforcements toward them. Huang Long immediately ordered everyone to hold Yunqi back at all costs. He knew Huang Tianhao had already died multiple times at the respawn point, and if Yunqi reached it again, the Twilight Legion would be finished. Huang Long then sent another message through the team channel, calling every nearby member to reinforce them and cling to their last hope. Yunqi simply smiled and calmly said their reinforcements would never arrive in time. The moment he finished speaking, an intense wave of cold spread across the battlefield. Even in the middle of summer, the ground froze over in seconds and everyone shivered. From inside the vehicle, Jiang Xiaoduo sensed the strange surge of power and immediately guessed that Yunqi had just unlocked a new skill. She was right. The system announced that Yunqi had unlocked the class skill Ice Nova after defeating enough players. It dealt massive ice damage to the main target, triggered a freezing explosion within a 2-meter radius, ignored obstacles, and had a 60-second cooldown. Feeling the ice element gathering around his sword, Yunqi let out a quiet laugh. Even he had not expected to unlock the new skill so quickly, and most of the credit went to Huang Tianhao, who had already been killed by him 8 times. While Yunqi calmly gathered his power, Huang Long's subordinates grew even more terrified and tightened their formation to protect their leader, knowing their enemy had become even more dangerous. Yunqi slowly raised his sword and coldly activated Ice Nova. The blade was instantly wrapped in icy blue light, as if announcing the death of every enemy before him. He quietly said, "Disappear," and the entire battlefield fell into an eerie silence. Jiang Xiaoduo looked around in confusion because she saw no attack at all, while the other players assumed Yunqi had run out of energy and failed to cast the skill. But in the next instant, terrified screams erupted, as everyone realized Huang Long had been completely frozen. He only managed a brief cry before his entire body was sealed inside a massive block of ice. A moment later, the ice exploded with devastating force. The freezing shockwave swept through the battlefield and crushed every enemy within its range. As the blue light slowly faded, nothing remained on the battlefield except scattered data fragments drifting away. Watching Huang Long and the Twilight Legion's elite force vanish from a single attack, Jiang Xiaoduo was completely stunned. She never imagined one skill could possess such terrifying destructive power. Yunqi slowly turned to look at Jiang Xiaoduo. His icy gaze sent a chill down her spine, and countless uneasy thoughts rushed through her mind. She feared Yunqi had lost his sanity and that she might be his next target. She even suspected he had bad intentions toward her. Panicking, Jiang Xiaoduo backed away, crossed her arms over her chest, and warned him that she would fight back if he came any closer. Yet Yunqi remained silent and kept walking toward her. With nowhere left to retreat, Jiang Xiaoduo gritted her teeth and prepared for a desperate fight. But just as she was about to attack, Yunqi suddenly collapsed, rested his head on her lap, and instantly fell asleep from exhaustion. Jiang Xiaoduo could only stand there in disbelief. In her eyes, the man who had just wiped out an entire legion by himself was now sleeping peacefully, as if nothing had happened. With no other choice, Jiang Xiaoduo activated the jeep's autopilot and continued toward the next city. Yunqi did not wake until sunrise. Still half asleep, he only noticed that something incredibly soft was beneath his head and instinctively thought it was surprisingly comfortable. But when he finally looked clearly, he jumped up in shock after realizing he had been sleeping on Jiang Xiaoduo's lap. Rubbing his aching head, Yunqi realized he could not remember anything that happened after the battle. After thinking for a moment, he concluded that this was the price of using Ice Nova. The skill was unbelievably powerful, but it also placed a tremendous burden on his body. Even so, Yunqi was extremely satisfied with Ice Nova. Besides wiping out multiple enemies in an instant, it also left behind the mark of death. As long as enough players were marked and NPCs finished them off, humanity on Blue Star would still have a chance to turn the tide. Just then, a flash of blue light appeared before him. A tiny blue dragon flew around Yunqi, happily greeted him, and congratulated him on unlocking 2 new skills that made him far stronger than before. Yunqi immediately complained that the dragon had disappeared while he was fighting for his life yesterday. The little dragon quickly explained that it had not been hiding. Instead, it had devoted all its power to studying how to break the game's rules. Hearing that, Yunqi immediately asked what it had discovered. But instead of answering, the little dragon flew over to observe the sleeping Jiang Xiaoduo. After watching her for a long moment, it turned back with a serious expression and declared that this woman was unusually powerful, so much that even it could not understand why. Yunqi looked at Jiang Xiaoduo with suspicion. He admitted her speed was remarkable, but he still could not believe she was special enough to draw the Titan system's attention. As he quietly watched her sleeping face, Yunqi suddenly realized Jiang Xiaoduo was truly beautiful. However, he quickly pushed that thought aside and reminded himself not to lose focus while so many important things still lay ahead. Yunqi then asked the little dragon about its progress in analyzing the game's rules, especially its attempt to decode the world map. The little dragon confidently replied that the player's map and radar were protected by extremely powerful security, so it still could not break into them. However, it had preserved Blue Star's original map from before the game began. Using that data, it could scan everything within 1 kilometer, automatically rebuild every area they traveled through, and continuously expand its map database. After hearing the news, Yunqi immediately put every other mission on hold and focused all resources on locating and analyzing player respawn points in every region. The more respawn points they found, the more lives they could save. The dragon accepted the order without hesitation and got to work at once. Right after that, Ian Zhu happily announced that Yunqi had earned enough treasure tech points to unlock the 2nd tier of the technology tree. Yunqi opened the system interface and saw that every upgrade branch required 1,000 tech points. Thanks to the points earned from last night's battle, he upgraded everything without a second thought. After spending 2,000 tech points, he unlocked 2 new features, the Equipment Factory and the Equipment Vault. Every 7 days, the factory would automatically craft a weapon or piece of gear 2 levels above its owner, with a minimum blue rarity, a 10 chance for purple gear, and a 0.1 chance for legendary orange equipment. The Equipment Vault could store up to 20 items, but if the owner died, all 20 items would drop. After reading the description, Yunqi was extremely satisfied. He knew that even a single orange item at this stage could dominate almost every player, but the drop rate was still painfully low. With an idea in mind, he immediately told Ian Zhu to use all 10 treasure rate boost effects. The system quickly finished the adjustment. The chance of crafting purple gear jumped to 100, while the chance for orange gear increased from 0.1 to 1. Seeing that, Yunqi instantly realized how valuable this feature was. It could strengthen him while also providing equipment to sell or reward players who worked for him. Just then, Ian Zhu suddenly announced that the equipment factory had completed its very first product. A dagger called Night Assault appeared in Yunqi's hand. It was a level 12 legendary orange weapon with incredible stats and special bonuses for assassins and hidden classes. Yunqi was thrilled that the first craft produced an orange item, but he quickly realized the weapon did not suit him at all. At that moment, Jiang Xiaoduo woke up. The instant she saw the dagger, her eyes lit up and she eagerly asked to hold it. Yunqi quickly pulled the dagger back, but Jiang Xiaoduo kept begging for it, and even joked that it could be a souvenir since they had spent the whole night together. Hearing that, Yunqi instantly blushed and hurried to explain. But Jiang Xiaoduo only laughed harder and teased that he had hugged her waist while sleeping all night, so asking for one dagger was already being generous. At this stage, even a single blue item was enough to make others jealous, so there was no way she could hide her desire for a level 12 orange weapon. She kept following Yunqi and insisted that the dagger was clearly meant for her. Just as Yunqi was thinking of a way to refuse, he suddenly noticed the sky growing strangely dark. Before Jiang Xiaoduo could react, a massive explosion shook the entire jeep. Looking up, they saw a gigantic creature blocking out the sky. It let out a deafening roar before opening its fanged jaws and diving straight at them. Yunqi immediately pushed Jiang Xiaoduo aside to keep her safe while he leaped out of the vehicle. The moment he landed on the roof, he drew his sword and split the first monster in half before it could reach him. Blood sprayed everywhere, making even Jiang Xiaoduo frown at the gruesome sight. But before they could relax, another monster suddenly attacked from the side. Dahai instantly rushed in front of his master, clamped onto the creature's neck, and slammed it into the ground. Even so, Dahai was badly injured after that single clash. Yunqi immediately used Death Vortex to heal Dahai. Even as the wounds closed at an incredible speed, his expression remained grim. The fact that Dahai was heavily injured after only one exchange proved these monsters were even more dangerous than any player he had fought before. Suddenly, Jiang Xiaoduo pointed at the sky in panic. Yunqi immediately looked in the direction she was pointing. The sight froze him in place. Hundreds of identical monsters filled the sky, forming a terrifying sea of beasts. At the same time, a red notification appeared before them, confirming they had entered Dungeon ID 00398, City of the Dead, difficulty level 1. Before they could prepare, the entire swarm dived like a deadly storm and quickly surrounded the jeep. Yunqi immediately jumped off the roof of the vehicle, deciding to wipe out the monsters first, before worrying about anything else. He knew that if the jeep kept moving, it would only attract even more monsters to chase them. Just as he was about to charge in, Yunqi saw Jiang Xiaoduo jump into the driver's seat, start the engine, and shout that she had no interest in risking her life. The moment the owner left the vehicle, its emergency stop mode activated automatically. Even so, Jiang Xiaoduo slammed the accelerator, sent the monster blocking the road flying, and drove straight through. About 10 minutes later, Yunqi stood in the middle of a field of monster corpses, breathing heavily. He had finally cleared the battlefield and admitted that the dungeon monsters were far tougher than expected. Only then did Jiang Xiaoduo step out of the jeep, cross her arms, and complain that Yunqi was nothing like a normal player. In her eyes, people should avoid monsters instead of charging straight into battle. She also admitted that she hated dying and being forced to respawn, so staying alive was always her top priority. Right then, a monster that was not quite dead suddenly swooped down from above and attacked Jiang Xiaoduo. She reacted instantly, killed it on the spot, and used Analyze. The data showed it was a level 11 enhanced bear, with extremely high strength, agility, spirit, and constitution. Thanks to the dungeon bonus, its constitution gained another 50 points, making it nearly as strong as Yunqi's Dahai. Hearing that, Yunqi finally understood why the dungeon monsters were much tougher than the ones outside. Looking around, he figured that if ordinary monsters were already level 11, then the dungeon boss would be far more terrifying, though the rewards would surely match the challenge. Thinking of that, he asked Jiang Xiaoduo if she knew the boss location or had a dungeon map. She shook her head and explained that high-level maps had to be explored piece by piece, and even she had not unlocked them all. Besides, according to the game's rules, NPCs like Yunqi should never be able to clear player dungeons, so she had no idea why he cared so much about the boss. After saying that, Jiang Xiaoduo grinned and teased him again. If Yunqi was scared of the boss, he could just give her the orange dagger, and she would escort him safely out of the dungeon. As she spoke, she confidently swung the club in her hand as if nothing in the dungeon could threaten her. Yunqi saw things differently. In his opinion, Jiang Xiaoduo had amazing speed and reflexes, but whenever real danger appeared, she became too hesitant to use her full strength. Even so, he knew that having a player by his side would make gathering information about the dungeon much easier. After thinking for a moment, Yunqi suddenly told Jiang Xiaoduo that he was willing to let her have the legendary orange weapon. She froze in disbelief as all her frustration vanished, replaced by excitement, and she kept asking if he was serious. But her excitement did not last long. A blue quest window suddenly appeared. The system announced that NPC Yun-Chi had assigned her a boss rank quest: escort him through the City of the Dead dungeon and keep him alive. The completion reward was the legendary orange weapon. After reading it, Jiang Xiaoduo was completely speechless. Without hesitation, she immediately refused, declaring that she would never accept such a suicidal mission or challenge the dungeon boss. Ironically, the moment she finished saying that, the two of them continued deeper into the ruined streets of the City of the Dead together. Seeing her still pouting, Yun-Chi laughed and reminded her that someone had just sworn she would never accept the quest. Hearing that, Jiang Xiaoduo immediately turned her face away. She tried to act calm and claimed she was only tagging along out of curiosity. Deep down, though, she knew almost no gamer could resist the temptation of a legendary orange weapon. She could only blame Yun-Chi for knowing exactly how to bait her. As for Yun-Chi, everything was going exactly as planned. With Jiang Xiaotuo by his side, scouting, gathering information, and exploring the dungeon would be much easier while also reducing many of the risks ahead. After watching her fight, Yun-Chi quickly guessed that Jiang Xiaoduo's class was probably assassin, with stealth abilities and deadly ambush skills that were perfect for dealing with zombies and ghouls inside the dungeon. Just then, his eyes locked onto a strange scene ahead. The sound of repeated impacts echoed from the distance. In the middle of a wide stone road, a man knelt in a pool of blood, repeatedly stabbing the ground with a knife, like someone who had completely lost his mind. As he kept driving the blood-stained blade into the ground, the man laughed like a madman and shouted that he had finally avenged his daughter. Now that the apocalypse had arrived, money, power, and bodyguards could no longer save the man who killed her. Seeing this, Yun-Chi immediately went on full alert. He knew this place should only contain zombies and ghouls, so the appearance of a normal man was highly suspicious. Most likely, this was the dungeon boss, and bosses were far stronger than ordinary NPCs. Unsure of the enemy's strength, Yun-Chi signaled for Jiang Xiaoduo to scout first. She immediately shook her head. Fighting monsters was dangerous enough, and there was no way she wanted to approach an unknown enemy. Yun-Chi smiled knowingly. He told her she was the perfect person to trigger this side event, because she could simply turn invisible and retreat if things went wrong. But if he died instead, the legendary orange weapon reward would disappear. Hearing that, Jiang Xiaoduo could only grit her teeth in frustration. After a long internal struggle, she reluctantly agreed, but only if Yun-Chi promised to save her the moment things turned dangerous. He calmly crossed his arms, nodded, and assured her he would be watching the entire time. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Xiaoduo cautiously approached the unstable man. His grief-filled screams about his murdered daughter still echoed through the empty street. Keeping her composure, she forced a smile and gently asked what had happened to his daughter. The man slowly raised his head. His tear-covered face and overwhelming hatred sent chills down her spine. He explained that his daughter had spoken with her boyfriend for only a few moments before the man beat her to death, dumped her body into the river, and staged the scene to make it look like suicide. As he spoke, he repeatedly drove his knife into the pool of blood beneath him and shouted at Jiang Xiaoduo, asking if someone like that deserved to die. Terrified by his overwhelming presence, she could only nod with a pale face, repeatedly saying the killer deserved death before trying to leave. But the moment she turned around, a cold shout from behind froze her in place. Jiang Xiaoduo's entire body stiffened as fear overwhelmed her, and tears nearly filled her eyes. The man slowly revealed a twisted smile and said in a hoarse voice that even though the murderer was dead, his daughter would never return. If his daughter had died, then why should anyone else be allowed to live? As soon as he finished speaking, his body twisted into a monstrous form. His crimson eyes burned with murderous intent as he charged at Jiang Xiaoduo, roaring that everyone would be buried alongside his daughter. Faced with the monster rushing straight at her, Jiang Xiaoduo completely panicked and screamed in fear. Watching from behind, Yun-Chi quickly realized the situation had gone far beyond his original plan. In a panic, Jiang Xiaoduo instinctively kicked the monster as hard as she could while yelling at it to stay away. To everyone's surprise, the kick actually worked, forcing the monster back a step as it roared in pain. Even Jiang Xiaoduo could hardly believe it, but she kept backing away while desperately calling for Yun-Chi to save her, convinced she would die if she fought alone. At that moment, Yun-Chi calmly appeared beside her. He even joked that a few more kicks might be enough to defeat the boss, before asking her to share the enemy's information. With no other choice, Jiang Xiaoduo reluctantly opened the status window for him. The system data appeared immediately. The boss was Zhang Fan, the town mayor, a level 15 warrior, with extremely high strength and constitution. He also possessed the Revenge Fury talent, granting 10 extra strength and constitution, while causing him to take 15 more magic damage. After reading the stats, Yun-Chi's expression immediately turned serious. This was only a level 1 dungeon, yet its boss had already reached level 15 with attributes that even surpassed his own. Knowing he could not hesitate any longer, Yun-Chi immediately raised his hand and cast Blizzard. A wave of freezing energy erupted, sealing Zhang Fan inside a massive block of ice in an instant. Without giving his opponent any chance to retaliate, Yunqi leaped into the air, poured all his strength into his sword, and unleashed a devastating slash. But when he landed, Yunqi was stunned. The giant block of ice was covered in cracks, yet Zhang Fan remained standing inside as if the attack had done almost nothing. Right after that, the system announced that the Bloodthirst talent had activated, granting Zhang Fan another 5 strength and 15 attack speed. Yunqi could not hide his shock. It was the first time anyone had survived his strongest attack. With a furious roar, Zhang Fan unleashed his power and shattered the giant block of ice imprisoning him. His crimson eyes blazing with killing intent, Zhang Fan gripped his broken sword and charged straight at Yunqi with terrifying speed, roaring that he would kill him. Yunqi instantly raised his sword to block. A deafening clash rang out as the brutal impact shot through his arm and left it completely numb. The force blasted him backward, several steps, cracking the ground beneath his feet. Yunqi was shocked that Zhang Fan was even stronger than he expected. In the distance, Jiang Xiaoduo was still crying out for help. But at that moment, a terrified voice echoed in her mind, saying she could never kill anyone. She clutched her head as her body trembled, dragged back into a horrifying memory. She saw a hill piled high with corpses and countless broken weapons, while the sky burned blood red. In the middle of that nightmare, she stood silently among the dead, with cold, empty eyes filled with endless despair. While Jiang Xiaoduo remained trapped in that memory, Zhang Fan charged again. His sword strikes were heavy and relentless, leaving Yunqi with no choice but to defend. As he blocked the non-stop attacks, Yunqi shouted for Jiang Xiaoduo to wake up. He reminded her that no normal person could survive alone in the city of the dead or keep fighting with a broken sword. The man before them was no longer human but a monster. His words finally snapped her back to reality, and he immediately told her to attack while he kept the enemy busy. Jiang Xiaoduo slowly regained her focus, and determination returned to her eyes. She gritted her teeth and activated her invisibility skill. Her body quickly faded before disappearing completely. Before vanishing, she told Yunqi to hold on just a little longer. While dodging one sword strike after another, Yunqi kept analyzing the battle. The boss was powerful, but he had almost no way to deal with an invisible's assassin. As long as Jiang Xiaoduo found the right opening, victory would be theirs. But just then, Zhang Fan seemed to sense the hidden threat. He threw back his head and unleashed a thunderous roar that echoed through the ruined streets, triggering an unexpected disaster. From every dark corner, waves of reed ghouls came rushing out like a raging flood. Seeing that, Yunqi immediately realized the noise of the battle had drawn the entire horde. At the same time, Zhang Fan swung his massive sword straight down. Trapped between the boss and the monster horde, Yunqi spun around and kicked Zhang Fan back, gritting his teeth as the situation turned critical. Yunqi had just killed a ghoul when another danger struck. Zhang Fan instantly dove from above, his hands transforming into razor-sharp claws aimed straight at Yunqi. At that exact moment, Jiang Xiaoduo suddenly appeared and slammed a powerful kick into Zhang Fan's face. She shouted that Yunqi was the one she had to protect, and she would never let anyone touch him. The crushing kick sent blood flying everywhere. Zhang Fan staggered backward, clutching his face as he screamed in agony. Jiang Xiaoduo landed gracefully and looked at the blood on her foot with disgust. The moment their enemy exposed an opening, Yunqi seized the chance. He quickly formed a massive ice sphere in his palm and unleashed Frozen Blizzard. A loud explosion erupted as Zhang Fan was completely sealed inside a giant block of ice, unable to move at all. Inside the freezing ice, a single tear slowly rolled down Zhang Fan's twisted face. In despair, he softly called his daughter's name and painfully asked why she had chosen such a foolish path. Soon the ice shattered and exploded into countless razor-sharp shards. At the same time, Zhang Fan's body disappeared completely. The system immediately confirmed that Yunqi had defeated the level 1 dungeon boss and awarded him 300 technology points. The reward pleased him because it was even better than defeating multiple players. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoduo pouted in frustration. She complained that she had done plenty of the work, but received no experience, equipment, or apocalypse coins. Yunqi calmly explained that only the one who landed the finishing blow received the system rewards. Hearing that only made Jiang Xiaoduo even more upset. She immediately searched the spot where Zhang Fan had vanished, hoping such a powerful boss had dropped something valuable. Yunqi simply watched in silence, thinking that, although the girl loved money, she was still far better than those willing to kill people just to steal loot. He also realized that players could see information NPCs never could. Keeping Jiang Xiaoduo by his side would make exploring this world much easier. Just then, Jiang Xiaoduo suddenly let out an excited cheer. In her hand was an old, wrinkled sheet of paper that had somehow remained intact after the boss vanished. She guessed it might be an important clue. Yunqi immediately walked over and told her to read what was written on it. Jiang Xiaoduo did exactly that. The paper contained a diary entry dated October 13, 1111. The writer said Zhang Ling once brought her creditor to beg for money, while covered in injuries, claiming she would jump into the river if no one helped. But the writer no longer trusted her, because helping again would only drag the whole family into trouble. After reading it, Jiang Xiaoduo realized the writing style was nothing like Zhang Fan's, and guessed it belonged to someone else. Yunqi glanced at the man Zhang Fan had killed earlier, and quickly concluded that the diary's real owner was most likely the one lying there. Hearing that, Jiang Xiaoduo noticed there was still another section left unread at the bottom. As she continued reading, the truth turned out to be completely different from Zhang Fan's story. Zhang Ling had really jumped into the river because of her crushing debt, while her father had wrongly blamed her boyfriend. Her family never knew about the debt, and the diary's owner chose to stay silent after security footage, and the authorities proved his innocence. Only then did Jiang Xiaoduo realize Zhang Ling's death had nothing to do with her boyfriend. Yunqi fell into thought. In his view, Zhang Fan could never accept such an explanation, so he killed that man to vent his hatred. But the fact that the diary remained after the boss was defeated meant it had to be more than just a story item. With that in mind, Yunqi immediately told Jiang Xiaoduo to see if she could find anything else. As she flipped the paper over, a blue notification window suddenly appeared before her eyes. The system announced that they had unlocked the dungeon's elite quest. Deliver the diary to apartment 6028 in Building 4 of Lanyuan Community, give it to Miss Lin, and tell her that her son had passed away. Yunqi simply smiled, as if he had expected it all along, while Jiang Xiaoduo beamed with excitement, because elite quests usually came with generous rewards. Overjoyed, she even slapped Yunqi on the shoulder and urged him to hurry and finish the quest. Yunqi quickly stopped her and helplessly explained that he had just gone through a brutal battle with many players yesterday. His armor needed repairs, and he also needed some time to recover before moving on. Jiang Xiaoduo flashed a sly smile and pulled out 2 repair kits, saying she happened to have exactly what Yunqi needed. Yunqi accepted the basic repair kit and quickly checked its details. It was a basic battle frame repair kit that restored 15 durability in just 3 seconds, and its effects could stack. However, if the battle frame was destroyed during repairs, the durability loss would become even worse. Seeing another kit still in Jiang Xiaoduo's hand, he asked why she did not give him that one as well. She immediately looked reluctant and explained that the intermediate kit cost 100 apocalypse coins. Giving away the basic one for free was already generous enough, and using both at once would be a waste. Yunqi suddenly stepped closer with a playful smile and said that as long as she stayed with him and helped clear a few peerless quests, that amount of apocalypse coins would be nothing. Caught off guard, Jiang Xiaoduo blushed and shyly admitted he had a point. Seizing the moment, Yunqi continued persuading her that the most important thing now was for them to travel together and share resources. In the end, Jiang Xiaoduo handed over the intermediate repair kit as well, but she made him promise that next time, she would get a peerless quest. Getting exactly what he wanted, Yunqi immediately agreed and activated both repair kits at the same time. 2 streams of energy quickly surrounded the battle frame and restored its durability non-stop. In no time, the armor recovered a total of 45 durability. Seeing how useful player items were, Yunqi could not help wondering whether Ianzu had a way to let him access the player shop or obtain their system backpacks. Once the repairs were complete, Jiang Xiaoduo immediately pointed at the high-rise building ahead and urged him to continue the quest. Yunqi had no objections because he was eager to discover where this dungeon questline would ultimately lead. Before long, the two arrived outside an apartment complex called Lanyuan Community. According to the quest marker, this was the building they needed to enter. Instead of taking the elevator, they chose to climb the stairs, leaving Jiang Xiaoduo confused. Yunqi explained that elevators were extremely dangerous. If they were ambushed inside, escaping would be difficult, and the cramped space would make fighting even harder. After saying that, Yunqi casually joked that it probably was not a big deal for a player who could respawn. Jiang Xiaoduo immediately puffed out her cheeks and argued that dying still hurt, even if she could come back. Right at that moment, Yunqi suddenly stopped as his eyes locked onto apartment 606 at the end of the hallway. The door was slightly open, instantly putting him on guard. In the apocalypse, any normal survivor would keep the door locked to keep monsters out. That meant only 2 possibilities remained. Either everyone inside was dead, or whatever was inside was no longer human. The two approached the apartment. Just as Yunqi was about to tell Jiang Xiaoduo to scout ahead, she cut him off. Crossing her arms, she firmly declared there was no room for negotiation this time. If he wanted to deal with monsters, he could do it himself. Yunqi knew her close call with Boss Z had left a deep scar. He glanced at Daha beside him, let out a helpless sigh, and quickly put on a friendly smile. Yunqi said he would clear the nearby monsters first, and explain the plan afterward. Though still doubtful, Jiang Xiaoduo eventually walked over. But the moment she let her guard down, Yunqi suddenly grabbed the back of her hoodie and hurled her straight into the dark apartment. The door slammed shut at once, leaving Jiang Xiaoduo no time to react. She crashed onto the floor in pain and fury, pounding on the door while calling Yunqi heartless. She even threatened to haunt him first if a monster killed her, but then remembered she was a player and could not become a ghost anyway. Just then, a gentle woman's voice echoed from deep inside the apartment. "Son, you're finally home?" The sudden voice made Jiang Xiaoduo jump. By instinct, she immediately activated her invisibility skill, and her body quickly vanished into thin air. Only then did she notice a middle-aged woman standing outside a bedroom. The woman's warm smile somehow felt deeply unsettling. Looking toward the front door, she softly called for her son to come inside. Outside the apartment, Yunqi calmly watched with folded arms. He completely trusted Jiang Xiaoduo's invisibility. Even a peerless boss like him struggled to detect her, so an ordinary monster had little chance. But a moment later, the door slowly creaked open. The woman calmly stepped outside. Her gaze swept past Jiang Xiaoduo's hidden position without the slightest reaction before settling on Yunqi. The moment she saw Yunqi, her face lit up. She grabbed his hand with excitement, repeatedly calling him her son as she pulled him inside, happily saying he had finally come home and must have forgiven his mother. Caught completely off guard, Yunqi was dragged inside before he could react. What worried him most was that Jiang Xiaoduo had disappeared without a trace. The woman quickly switched on the living room lights. Still holding tightly onto his coat, she affectionately said it had been so many days since she last saw her son. The longer Yunqi observed her, the more convinced he became that she was far from an ordinary person. At that moment, a blue status window appeared before his eyes. Yunqi immediately realized Jiang Xiaoduo had secretly sent him the information. Thanks to her, the woman's true identity was finally revealed. Her name was Lin Shu, a level 15 mage boss. She had 12 strength, 12 agility, 66 constitution, and an incredible 74 spirit. Her rage talent increased casting speed by 30%, reduced cooldowns by 30%, made her immune to stun while casting, but doubled mana consumption. The effect lasted 20 seconds with a 10-minute cooldown. Still hidden, Jiang Xiaoduo quickly warned Yunqi to stay extremely careful. The most ordinary-looking people were often the greatest threats, so he should never trust her gentle appearance. To Yunqi, that kind smile was nothing more than a disguise hiding a terrifying boss. Her spirit stat alone, combined with the rage talent, was enough for him to judge that Lin Shu was at least as dangerous as Zhang Fan, if not even worse. This time, he could not afford a single mistake. Seeing Yunqi remain silent, Lin Shu gently asked why he still looked at his mother like a stranger. She believed he still resented her for forcing Zhang Ling to leave him, but insisted the two of them were never meant to be together. She then revealed a truth that left Yunqi stunned. She admitted she had hired someone to lend Zhang Ling money so he could see her materialistic nature. But Zhang Ling borrowed far too much, and the creditors eventually pushed her to her death. Hearing that, Yunqi felt a chill run down his spine. He never imagined that Zhang Ling's death had begun with the woman standing right in front of him. Even Jiang Xiaoduo, hiding behind the door, was stunned. She could not believe something like this had really happened. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Lin Shu forced a smile and said the past was over. From now on, mother and son only needed to live well together. She reached out to help him take off his coat. Yunqi simply replied, "No," then stepped back to keep his distance. That single rejection instantly changed Lin Shu's face. Her smile vanished as rage took over. She screamed that he still could not forget Zhang Ling, even though everything she had done was for his future. The more she spoke, the more she lost control. Her face twisted as she kept yelling that he had grown up and now dared to defy his own mother for another woman. The moment she finished, Lin Shu charged straight at Yunqi, screaming that only his mother truly loved him. The attack came so fast that Yunqi barely dodged aside. Shocked by the boss' sudden mood swing, he still stayed calm and explained that she had mistaken him for someone else. He was not her son. After saying that, Yunqi immediately called for Jiang Xiaoduo to help. She reluctantly peeked out from behind the door and complained that she really did not want to fight such a terrifying boss. Yunqi shouted that if she still wanted to clear the mission, she had to throw him the paper right now. Any later would be too late. Startled, Jiang Xiaoduo quickly pulled out the glowing blue paper and tossed it to him. The instant Yunqi caught it, he held it toward Lin Shu and firmly declared that her son had been murdered long ago. The killer was Zhang Fan, Zhang Ling's father. The truth struck Lin Shu like lightning. Her eyes widened in horror as she trembled and asked if her son was really dead. Yunqi calmly confirmed that everything was true. A second later, Lin Shu burst into mad laughter as blood slowly flowed from the corner of her mouth. A blazing red aura exploded around her as the rage talent activated. In despair, she screamed that her son had ignored her warnings and stayed involved with the family she always knew was dangerous. She kept insisting that only she could protect him from every disaster. The terrifying pressure erupted at once, forcing Yunqi to retreat again and again. Realizing he could not face her head-on, Yunqi quickly gave out a plan. He would hold the boss in front while Jiang Xiaoduo and Da He attacked from behind. As long as they survived the 20-second rage state and stopped Lin Shu from using bombardment, they still had a chance to win. Jiang Xiaoduo agreed without hesitation and rushed in with Da He to support him. Yun Qi charged forward and opened with his strongest sword technique. But the powerful strike was completely blocked by an invisible wind shield. Yun Qi was stunned. Even his strongest move could not break that defense. Before he could recover, Lin Shu countered with countless razor-sharp green wind blades. A violent gust instantly wrapped around Yun Qi's legs and pinned him in place. While enduring the storm, Yun Qi quickly realized the boss had overwhelming attack and defense. Her boosted spirit stat made her nearly impossible to defeat with a single move. Right then, Jiang Xiaoduo and Da He finally flanked her from the side. Jiang Xiaoduo shouted that they had arrived, but Yun Qi turned around and urgently warned them to be careful. The warning came too late as a violent gale blasted both Jiang Xiaoduo and Da He away. Yun Qi swung his sword to block another wave of incoming wind blades. He immediately rushed over to rescue his teammates. Instead of catching Jiang Xiaoduo, Yun Qi leaped into the air and grabbed Da He before he was blown away. Jiang Xiaoduo froze in disbelief, completely confused by what she had just seen. While she was still stunned, another gust slammed right into her. Even so, she landed safely and quickly dodged the attacks that followed. While dodging, Jiang Xiaoduo complained that heroes were supposed to save the girl first. Still carrying Da He, Yun Qi calmly replied that Da He needed protection, but she could take care of herself. While they kept arguing, Lin Shu continued screaming like a madwoman. Her body began mutating as long claws grew from her hands, and her eyes glowed blood red with killing intent. Realizing the boss was entering an even more dangerous phase, Yun Qi immediately set Da He down, poured all his frost energy into his sword, and unleashed Frozen Blizzard. A massive wave of freezing ice surged forward, aiming to freeze both Lin Shu and the entire room. But just before it landed, a wave of dark energy swallowed the blizzard and reflected the entire attack back at him. Yun Qi was hit by the backlash of his own ultimate, and his armor lost another 2 durability. He realized the cramped room made every shockwave damage his gear, and Lin Shu's defense was far stronger than expected. With no other choice, he immediately called for Jiang Xiaoduo to coordinate. But when he looked back, she had completely vanished. At first, Yun Qi thought she had run away, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Someone as reward-obsessed as Jiang Xiaoduo had to be hiding and waiting for the perfect finishing blow. With that in mind, he changed the plan on the spot. He shouted that he and Da He would hold the boss, while Jiang Xiaoduo struck when he counted to 3. Without waiting for a reply, Yun Qi and Da He attacked from opposite sides, forcing Lin Shu to focus entirely on them. As they fought, Yun Qi silently counted each second, while the boss grew more and more frenzied. The moment he sensed a familiar killing intent behind Lin Shu, Yun Qi knew the final chance had arrived. Jiang Xiaoduo suddenly emerged from stealth, her dagger flashing with an icy glow. She coldly reminded everyone to never turn their back on an assassin before driving the dagger into Lin Shu's back. The critical strike froze Lin Shu in place before she slowly collapsed to her knees. With her final breath, she quietly muttered in confusion, wondering if she had truly been wrong. Her phone slipped from her hand as Lin Shu fell to the floor, and blood quickly spread across the room. After the battle ended, Yun Qi walked over with his arms crossed. He praised Jiang Xiaoduo for finishing the boss, but also scolded her for acting on her own, instead of waiting for his count. Jiang Xiaoduo pouted and replied that Yun Qi had already been in danger. Waiting any longer would have been pointless. She had been hiding behind the boss all along, waiting for an opening instead of following a rigid plan. After saying that, she happily rushed toward the boss' body, shouting for everyone to move aside, because nothing excited her more than collecting loot. Seeing that, Yun Qi laughed and teased that she was slow during the fight, but always the fastest when it came to loot. He even joked that the boss was still alive, making her spin around in confusion. Jiang Xiaoduo immediately insisted she had already received experience points, so there was no way the boss could come back. Yun Qi could only admit that he had been joking. Jiang Xiaoduo cheered when she saw the ground covered with loot, including enhanced gauntlets, an enhanced chest armor, and a magic stone. Every item made her eyes sparkle. She hugged the pile of loot with a huge grin, knowing she could make a fortune by selling everything at the trading market. Seeing that, Yun Qi calmly reminded her that he had carried the entire fight by holding off the boss so she could land the finishing blow. Purple, blue, and green loot had all dropped, so was he really supposed to take the cheapest item? At that moment, the system displayed the enhanced level 10 green gauntlets with +2 defense. Jiang Xiaoduo quickly hugged the other 2 items and explained that NPCs like Yun Qi only gained basic defense from equipment. They could not activate the core bonuses like players, so giving him the better gear would be wasted. The system then displayed the blue enhanced chest armor, which granted +2 defense and +2 agility. While she was still deciding how to split the loot, Yun Qi suddenly grabbed the purple magic stone, making Jiang Xiaoduo shout in frustration because it was the most valuable item. Holding the stone, Yun Qi immediately offered her a trade. He would keep only the magic stone, and every other reward from the dungeon would belong to Jiang Xiaoduo. Hearing that offer, she tightly hugged the two pieces of equipment and happily agreed. Her only request was that Yunqi stop competing with her for loot from now on. He nodded without hesitation. Soon after, the system asked whether he wanted to use the magic stone, and Yunqi immediately confirmed. A purple light quickly enveloped his entire body. The system announced that he had obtained a purple epic head enchantment. It could automatically absorb energy, store spirit power equal to 100 of his current amount, and let him use that reserve any time during battle. A faint energy mass gradually appeared across Yunqi's face. He quickly realized that attaching this enchantment to his helmet was like gaining a free reserve of energy, making it incredibly useful in the early game. Remembering what Jiang Xiaoduo had explained before, Yunqi understood that source energy was the foundation of every skill in the apocalypse. Attacks, support abilities, healing, and even pet summoning all consumed this energy. That enchantment nearly doubled his usable energy, letting him keep high-cost skills like Frozen Blizzard active without worrying about running dry. Even so, Yunqi was not fully satisfied. He remembered the interface still had one final non-combat enhancement left after boosting technology and gear optimization tenfold, so he used it on the magic stone. The system instantly confirmed a successful Titan enhancement. The enchantment evolved from Epic Purple to Mythic Red. Its energy capacity jumped 15 times higher, remained fully usable in battle, and gained an extra 25 energy recovery. Right then, a tiny green dragon suddenly flew out and happily greeted Yunqi, saying it had brought him a special gift. He instantly recognized it as Yanzi. Seeing the crimson-purple aura around its body, Yunqi quickly realized Yanzi was the one who upgraded the enchantment from epic to mythic. It raised the bonus from 10 times to 15 times and added energy recovery, pushing his strength to a whole new level. Hearing that, Yanzi proudly puffed itself up and declared it was the greatest intelligence humanity had ever created. While checking the loot, Jiang Xiaoduo curiously asked why it showed up now after hiding the moment it saw her before. Yanzi immediately denied ever being afraid of a little girl. Yunqi teased it again, asking why it vanished. The instant Jiang Xiaoduo woke up in the car if it was not scared. Yanzi awkwardly claimed it had entered strategic hibernation to save its nearly depleted energy. But the moment it finished speaking, it quickly said it was relieved to see its master safe, then returned to hibernation and disappeared before Yunqi could ask another question. Just then, Jiang Xiaoduo excitedly ran over, holding Lin Shu's phone up like she had found hidden treasure. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen, asking them to meet at number 39 Xinhuai Road in the Old Town, and promising to reveal the whole truth. At the same time, the system updated a new mission, ordering the group to head there and personally bring this cycle's tragedy to an end. After reading the mission, Yunqi immediately turned serious, because he guessed this was likely the final stage of the entire dungeon. 3 hours later, the group arrived at a deserted old district, where everything looked worn down and forgotten. Jiang Xiaoduo was surprised such a desolate place still existed inside the city. Yunqi stayed calm, saying fewer people also meant fewer monsters blocking the way. As they walked, Jiang Xiaoduo pointed out that the previous 2 bosses were both tied to family tragedies, one a father who lost his daughter, and the other a mother who never knew her son had died. So the final boss had to be the last key figure still missing. The thought sent a chill through her, and she guessed it might be Zhang Ling's ghost. Yunqi lightly tapped her head and told her to stop scaring herself because Zhang Ling had died long ago. After checking the mission guide, Jiang Xiaoduo pointed ahead and confirmed the destination was just around the corner, under the dim purple moonlight. The 3 of them stopped in front of an old warehouse, as dry leaves drifted across the path in the night wind. The heavy iron door slowly creaked open, its eerie hinges sounding like an invitation into a place full of secrets. But the moment they stepped inside, Jiang Xiaoduo was stunned because the interior looked nothing like the ruined exterior. The entire warehouse was reinforced with thick steel plates, strong enough that even a whole pack of monsters would struggle to break in. After taking a closer look, Yunqi realized the place had clearly been built as a complete survival bunker. Inside were generators, water purification systems, air filtration, and enough supplies for a family of 3 to survive in isolation for at least 2 months. That only made Yunqi more suspicious, because whoever prepared this place seemed to know the apocalypse was coming. Suddenly Jiang Xiaoduo pointed toward the end of the hallway. In the darkness stood a woman in a blue dress, silently waiting without moving. She slowly walked closer with a sorrowful voice, repeatedly asking why that person still refused to come see her. Jiang Xiaoduo was horrified when she realized she could not view the woman's status panel at all. She clung tightly to Yunqi, almost certain it was Zhang Ling's ghost, while knowing her knife could never hurt a spirit. Terrified, she turned to run but tripped over an empty can and crashed to the floor. Embarrassed beyond words, Jiang Xiaoduo instantly switched into chibi mode and blushed, complaining that she could not believe she had fallen into such a cliché situation. But a moment later, the woman in the blue dress suddenly rushed over with a joyful smile, calling out, "Auntie," and saying she had finally come. Both Yunqi and Jiang Xiaoduo froze because this was completely unexpected. Just a few seconds later, the girl's smile vanished when she realized the visitor was not Lin Shu. She cautiously asked who they were and how they found this place. Cold sweat ran down Jiang Xiaoduo's back as she realized they were trapped in an awkward situation with no way out. Yunqi, however, quickly regained his composure and decided this unexpected meeting was probably their best chance to uncover the whole truth. He held the trembling Jiang Xiaoduo behind him, stepped forward, and said that Lin Shu was the one who sent them here. Then he asked about her relationship with Lin Shu and confirmed whether she was Zhang Ling, the girlfriend of Lin Shu's son. The moment Lin Shu's name came up, the woman turned away with eyes filled with hatred and pain. She choked back tears and said Lin Shu had really received the message but still refused to come. If she had only shown up and learned the truth, the loan sharks would never have driven her to jump into the river, and she would not have been forced to hide inside this shelter. Yunqi bluntly replied that the reason was simple. Lin Shu had never liked her or cared about her. To Lin Shu, she was nothing more than an unknown phone number, and whether she lived or died meant nothing. Even Jiang Xiaoduo was shocked by how brutally direct those words were. She tugged on Yunqi's sleeve and complained that he should be more careful with his words instead of provoking the boss. She might be beautiful, but she was clearly dangerous. Yunqi only shrugged, saying he had no interest in Zhang Ling's love story and did not want to waste time beating around the bush. Those cold words left Zhang Ling completely stunned. She painfully wondered if she had really been nothing more than a stranger to Lin Shu, even though she had once been her son's girlfriend and future daughter-in-law. Unable to accept the truth, Zhang Ling suddenly turned and ran, shouting for Jiang Xiaoduo not to believe Yunqi because he was just an overly blunt man who understood nothing about women. Yunqi immediately called after her and asked why she was still alive after jumping into the river. Zhang Ling answered that the loan sharks had pushed her to the point where she had no choice but to jump. 3 months earlier, she had a powerful premonition that the apocalypse would happen this year. Trusting that feeling, she borrowed an enormous sum of money to build this shelter so her family could survive together. In the end, the apocalypse came exactly as she predicted. Everyone else died, while she survived because of this bunker. She laughed like someone who had lost her mind, insisting that anyone who failed to prepare for that day deserved whatever happened. Hearing that, Yunqi became even more cautious. He silently admitted that a woman's intuition could be terrifying, but what troubled him most was whether Zhang Ling was truly alive or not. Zhang Ling's hatred quickly shifted toward Lin Shu. In her eyes, Lin Shu's wealth meant a small amount of help could have changed everything. Since the apocalypse came anyway, no one would have collected the debt. If she had not risked her life by jumping into the river and swimming away, she would never have survived. The more she thought about it, the more furious she became, screaming to know why they had abandoned her. Jiang Xiaoduo finally spoke up and revealed the truth. The person behind the loan was actually Lin Shu. Her goal was to prove Zhang Ling only cared about money, so her son would break up with her. Unfortunately, Lin Shu never expected that scheme would indirectly send her own son to his death. Seeing Zhang Ling frozen in shock, Yunqi calmly said that people were naturally driven by selfish motives. Even if the apocalypse had never happened, the two of them might never have stayed together. Those words became the final blow that shattered all of Zhang Ling's hope. Drops of blood slowly fell onto the ground. Zhang Ling clutched her face as blood poured from her eyes and mouth, laughing in utter despair. She could not accept that her sincere love had been crushed by everyone around her. The moment Lin Shu was mentioned, all her resentment exploded. Her fingernails stretched into blade-like claws. A dark purple aura engulfed her body. Her hair turned white, and a pair of demonic horns grew from her head. In a fit of rage, Zhang Ling roared that the entire world deserved to be destroyed. The system immediately displayed her information. Zhang Ling had become a level 17 assassin leader boss, with 56 strength, 60 agility, 50 spirit, and 72 constitution. She also possessed the vengeful soul talent, granting 15 bonus speed and ignoring 15 of the target's defense. Jiang Xiaoduo sends all the boss's data to Yunqi. He realizes this ability is a major headache. A stealthy killer that bypasses armor is a nightmare. Jiang Xiaoduo backs away, blaming Yunqi for angering the boss, before going invisible to scout. Yunqi tells her to stay out of trouble, knowing he is the primary target. Zhang Ling's arms shift into razor-sharp blades, lunging at Yunqi with lethal streaks of purple light. Yunqi retreats quickly, activating his energy mask to cloak himself in a protective green glow. Zhang Ling leaps into the air, preparing to deliver a killing blow. Yunqi immediately fires energy chains to bind her, following up with his death whirlwind skill. The impact knocks Zhang Ling away, leaving blood splattered across the floor. But in a blink, another Zhang Ling emerges from the shadows. Yunqi adjusts his mask, slightly disappointed that the boss feels fragile. He thinks a frost blizzard would have ended this quickly. As that thought crosses his mind, a piercing alarm siren echoes through the base. Jiang Xiaoduo reappears, screaming for Yunqi to move because the shelter is crawling with combat robots. At the end of the hall, armed droids emerge, their electronic eyes glowing in the dark. Before Yunqi can react, the squad fires a barrage of blue laser beams. They dive for cover, as the system warns that Yunqi's armor durability is rapidly dropping. He is grateful that thermal weapons are weakened in this apocalypse. Otherwise, his armor would be shredded by now. Yunqi realizes Zhang Ling isn't just a killer. She controls the entire base's automated defense system. Brute force isn't enough. Yunqi orders Da Hao to charge and draw the enemy's fire. Da Hao roars and rushes the robot squad, soaking up the heavy fire to clear a path for Yunqi. Simultaneously, Yunqi casts green energy chains, unleashing the death whirlwind once more. The green energy envelops Da Hao, healing its wounds instantly so it can stand its ground. Seizing the opportunity, Yunqi accelerates, spawning 3 clones to attack the robots from all sides. He leaps over the machines, coldly remarking that they are far too slow. A giant X-shaped slash cuts through the entire robot formation. The machines short-circuit and explode, leaving nothing but scrap metal. Yunqi lands smoothly, assuming the boss fight was finally over. Suddenly, a shrill scream from Jiang Xiaoduo echoes from behind him. Yunqi turns to see Zhang Ling has used stealth to pierce Jiang Xiaoduo's body with her claws. Jiang Xiaoduo coughs blood, joking that the boss isn't weak, before dissolving into a block of data. Yunqi grits his teeth, blaming his carelessness. Zhang Ling might have low defense, but her lethality is off the charts. Not wasting a second, he and Da Hao launch a counterattack. Just as Yunqi closes in on the target, a combat robot jumps out to intercept him. In a rage, Yunqi kicks the machine to pieces and charges back at Zhang Ling. But Da Hao is faster, leaping to bite the boss's shoulder, making Zhang Ling shriek in pain. Yunqi yells for Da Hao to step back, channeling energy into his blade to prepare a frost blizzard. Zhang Ling vanishes into a shadow, making his attack miss its target. Yunqi realizes she is using hit-and-run stealth tactics. He calls Da Hao back, needing to find Jiang Xiaoduo first. Zhang Ling's hateful voice rings out. She declares that anyone who knows her secret won't leave alive. Da Hao doesn't hesitate, rushing in to shield Yunqi despite his protest. Zhang Ling's sharp claws tear through Da Hao's body, blood spraying everywhere. Yunqi freezes in horror, but the system alerts him that Da Hao is immortal and will revive in 3 minutes. 10 minutes later, Jiang Xiaoduo runs in, demanding to deliver the final blow to the boss. But seeing Yunqi slumped on the ground, with blood dripping from his arm, her expression shifts as she rushes to patch him up. Yunqi remains silent. Jiang Xiaoduo asks where Da Hao went. Yunqi looks away, stating heavily that it sacrificed itself to protect him. Jiang Xiaoduo goes silent, at a loss for words. She gently remarks that even if Da Hao was aggressive, it was loyal. Being a creature that knows no pain, meeting someone who actually cared was a decent end. Yunqi looks up with a freezing gaze, questioning if such a thing could ever be called decent. He stands up, noticing the clumsy bandage on his arm, and feels a rare warmth. He hadn't expected Jiang Xiaoduo to be so comforting. Seeing his smile, she acts grumpy, claiming the expensive bandage is effective, and telling him not to get hurt again. Yunqi smiles sincerely, thanking her and promising to be more careful. Testing his arm, he finds the wound healing. He wants to challenge the boss immediately. Jiang Xiaoduo is surprised, but he refuses to rest. Yunqi realizes his easy wins made him complacent. He vows never to underestimate an enemy again as they stand before the warehouse doors. Yunqi observes that Zhang Ling doesn't chase outside, meaning the robots are bound to the instance. Using the layout is their best bet. Jiang Xiaoduo asks for his plan. Yunqi smiles slyly at a nearby mouse. He infuses green energy into the mouse, turning it into an immortal beast to scout the warehouse. Yunqi reveals his resurrection skill, allows him to share senses with his summons. He can now see everything through the mouse's eyes. Through this view, Yunqi observes the area filled with destroyed robots. Soon, Zhang Ling's bare feet enter his field of vision. She seems to sense something, but ignores the tiny mouse as a non-threat. Jiang Xiaoduo is skeptical about what a mouse can do against armed robots. Yunqi calmly replies that they might be surprised. The mouse crawls over crates, while Yunqi deduces there must be more defenses than just a few robots. Sure enough, the mouse finds a charging station with 12 heavy armed droids. Jiang Xiaoduo turns pale. If those wake up, they are finished. Yunqi grins and asks if she wants to see some fireworks. The immortal mouse climbs onto the station and chews through the main power cable. Power surges through the system, causing all the robots to overload and go paralyzed. The sudden noise draws Zhang Ling out to investigate. Yunqi watches through the mouse's eyes, waiting for her to step into position. The perfect moment arrives. The charging station explodes, engulfing Zhang Ling in a sea of fire and triggering a chain reaction. Jiang Xiaoduo watches the massive fireworks display from outside with delight. Yunqi seizes the opening and charges into the warehouse. Though wounded, Zhang Ling glares at Yunqi and fights back. Jiang Xiaoduo jumps in, taking the hit for him. At the same time, a stray robot crawls out from the wreckage. Yunqi leaps up, using Frost Blizzard to crush the reviving machine. On the other front, Jiang Xiaoduo holds off Zhang Ling, dodging lethal strikes. Yunqi admits that while she is usually playful, she can definitely hold her own in a serious fight. Unfortunately, the power gap is too wide, and Jiang Xiaoduo is struck. She spits blood and tells Yunqi to take over. Both she and Zhang Ling vanish into stealth, leaving Yunqi alone in the empty warehouse. He realizes he is now the only target and needs to stop playing defense. Yunqi's eyes lock onto a fire extinguisher on the wall. He smashes the display cabinet. He grabs the extinguisher and sprays white powder to coat the area in front of him. Invisibility only tricks the eyes, not physical traces. The thick powder quickly revealed the two figures hiding in plain sight. The problem was that Yunqi could not tell which one was Jiang Xiaoduo and which was Zhang Ling. Suddenly, one of them lunged at him with incredible speed. Without hesitation, Yunqi shouted that Jiang Xiaoduo's precious orange weapon had vanished. The attacker hesitated, while Jiang Xiaoduo panicked, thinking her gear was actually in trouble. That moment allowed Yunqi to identify Zhang Ling as the target. He swung his sword, striking her directly. Zhang Ling screamed in pain, cursing everyone, and claiming they all deserved to die. Yunqi remained calm, stating he sympathized with her past, but refused to let her use it as an excuse for evil. Having said that, he knocked Zhang Ling into the air and ordered Jiang Xiaoduo to deliver the final blow. She immediately accelerated, rushing forward. Her figure became a streak of light, piercing through the boss to finish it off. Global announcements congratulated Jiang Xiaoduo for clearing the City of the Dead dungeon and earning the title Sharp War God, granting +20 to all stats. Her level jumped to 12, leaving her stunned and overjoyed. The system confirmed she completed the boss quest, escorting NPC Yunqi successfully, and awarded the legendary orange weapon, Shadow Raid. Seeing her rapid growth, she checked the rankings and was proud to reach top 3, trailing only Mu Jingshu and Long Hoding. After celebrating, she checked the loot while Yunqi felt a pang of regret. He didn't expect the clearance reward to be so valuable, but wondered if he would have received the same if he had killed the boss himself. Leaving the warehouse, they entered a quiet courtyard. There, a new grave stood with an inscription, Grave of Da Hai. The sight left Yunqi silent and Jiang Xiaoduo surprised. She knelt before the grave, placing her hand on the stone, vowing to protect its master in Da Hai's place. The system rewarded her for the memorial quest with experience, apocalypse coins, and favor with Yunqi, though their bond remained distant. Jiang Xiaoduo was stunned by the generous rewards for such a simple task. Yunqi looked at the grave sadly, mentioning Da Hei was his only companion for a long time. He mused that with such rewards, many players would soon flock to care for the dog's grave. Hearing he was his only friend, Jiang Xiaoduo felt slighted and asked if she was just a convenient escort. Yunqi calmly replied that her escort quest to the next city was technically over. Jiang Xiaoduo blushed, knowing he was right but unwilling to leave, as traveling with him made leveling up incredibly easy. After some thought, she fabricated an excuse to stay, asking if he was headed to Zhongdu, the rumored final dungeon, and offered to escort him further. Yunqi was surprised to hear Zhongdu was the final dungeon. Jiang Xiaoduo explained that the main storyline seemed to end at the Zhongdu Watchtower, where players must defeat Marshal Fang Jin, a name that changed Yunqi's expression. Game rules allowed NPC leaders to turn their domains into dungeons for massive stat buffs. However, they would be permanently trapped there like shackled souls. If a player conquered the dungeon, the owner and all NPCs inside would lose their true selves. Driving, Yunqi caught up on news. Lu Shen asked about Zhongdu. Wang Sitong was furious at turncoats siding with Wu Wentan against humanity, calling Fang Jin a traitor, yet Fang Jin still held the Eastern Front. Yunqi gathered that, after clashing with Wu Wentan, former commander Fang Jin split Zhongdu, turning the east into a massive dungeon to protect his followers, becoming the boss himself. Yunqi pondered that no dungeon was truly impenetrable, so Fang Jin's fate was sealed the moment he chose to sacrifice himself. As he thought, Jiang Xiaoduo fell asleep, unaware that players saw humanity's last stand as just another boss to be farmed. He recalled her saying she would join Wu Wentan to defeat Fang Jin and hoped to be the first to clear it. Yunqi debated keeping her. Though she hadn't killed anyone yet, she would eventually be an enemy, but her player status was too useful. Seeing her wake up and stretch, he realized she was quite pretty. She caught him looking and asked why. He deflected, pretending to cough, and suggested they share information for better cooperation. He explained that since she knew his stats but he didn't know hers, teamwork was inefficient. She was annoyed, having not seen his skills either, but agreed after he analyzed their previous fight. Before revealing her stats, she set 3 conditions. Don't insult her cooking, don't dump all work on her, and never kill players. Yunqi agreed immediately, which was why he kept her around in the first place. Right after that, Jiang Xiaoduo showed her hidden class, Shadow Ranger, a mix of assassin and sniper, but kept her skills secret. Yunqi was shocked to see her stats were high, with speed exceeding his by 30 points. He asked if she dumped all points into agility. She shrugged, saying if you can't win, you must be fast enough to run. At that moment, a loud explosion rang out as a flock of zombie crows shattered the windshield. With the sky blocked, Yunqi accelerated to escape, but the monsters clung on. One dove down, clawing the roof, forcing him to use Frost Storm to kill a few. The crows were too fast, and his cooldown was 1 minute. He asked her to use sniper skills, but she admitted she couldn't use guns and lacked a good bow. Yunqi was speechless, and she retorted that he was a knight who never rode a horse. Both were left without a comeback. Just then, she remembered players could buy gear from the store. Yunqi told her to buy a basic bow. Once done, he activated his enhancement ability, upgraded it to SSS rank, and tossed it back. Before she could recover from the shock, he urged her to shoot. She huffed, drew the bow, and prepared to show him the power of a Shadow Ranger. She hopped onto the roof, charging a lightning-infused arrow. Yunqi was internally impressed, knowing he couldn't survive that hit without his energy shield. But as the arrow flew, the crows scattered, making the shot miss entirely. She froze, blushing with shame while Yunqi was stunned. Frustrated, she channeled power into her hands, deciding to finish them with her daggers. Realizing they couldn't run, Yunqi braked, stopping the car to fight. Jiang Xiaoduo used Frost Storm, coordinating with Yunqi to face the swarm. 10 minutes passed. The battle ended with feathers everywhere, and Yunqi cleaning up the stragglers with his death vortex. Exhausted, Jiang Xiaoduo lay on the roof, complaining that even city zombies were easier than these birds, and asked how far the next city was. Yunqi checked the 3D map, pointing toward Nanjiang. He realized the crows came from that direction. Since they gathered where corpses were, a major disaster likely happened ahead. Thus, they decided to head to Nanjiang to investigate. The jeep drives through the vast desert, yet they find no monsters for a long time. Yunqi suddenly smells a strong, pungent scent of blood in the air. Suddenly, Jiang Xiaoduo points forward in a panic. A ruined battlefield lies ahead, filled with charred military vehicles and countless bodies in uniform. Yunqi concludes that the troops were ambushed by mutant wolves while retreating from Namjiang City. The duo gets out to inspect. Jiang Xiaoduo feels pity, while Yunqi wonders why such a well-equipped army entered the wild. At that very moment, Jiang Xiaoduo spots an overturned yellow jeep with an officer holding a mysterious notebook. Touching it triggers an elite quest to warn General Shi Gang that law enforcement captain Luo Zhen has betrayed them. Jiang Xiaoduo is excited by the quest, but Yunqi senses the urgency in Namjiang and decides to leave immediately. Just then, the roar of engines echoes from the distance. 3 heavy motorcycles speed toward them, quickly encircling the two. Yunqi pulls Jiang Xiaoduo behind him, eyes locked on the newcomers with caution. The leader removes his helmet, and Jiang Xiaoduo gasps, recognizing Long Hao Ying. She introduces him as the top genius player, the Dragon Knight class awakener, and leader of the Huang Long group. Yunqi senses Long Hao Ying has massive destiny power and feels genuine pressure for the first time. A subordinate mocks Jiang Xiaoduo for clearly being a fan of Long Hao Ying. Long Hao Ying ignores the banter, coldly stating his mission is to kill anyone carrying intel to Camp 7. Long Hao Ying's gaze shifts as he realizes something important. Without hesitation, he coldly demands Jiang Xiaoduo hand over the notebook. Jiang Xiaoduo grips the book tightly, refusing to give up the hard-earned evidence. As tensions peak, Yunqi covers Jiang Xiaoduo's mouth, tosses the book to the group, and pretends they are just scavengers. Yunqi tries to leave, but Long Hao Ying clearly has no intention of letting them go. In a split second, Long Hao Ying appears directly in front of Yunqi, blocking his path. Yunqi remains calm, taunting Long Hao Ying about his reputation and questioning his motive for detaining a girl. Long Hao Ying smiles enigmatically, revealing that his true target has always been Yunqi. Even Long Hao Ying's subordinates are stunned by this revelation. Yunqi realizes the situation has turned critical. He whispers for Jiang Xiaoduo to retreat, but she vanishes instantly. Yunqi sighs, realizing she is gone, but decides it is better to fight without distractions. He summons his black armor, fully prepared for the coming battle. A member of the Huang Long group recognizes Yunqi as the monster from the livestream who defeated Huang Tianhao. Long Hao Ying is intrigued, ordering his team to stand back while he tests Yunqi's true strength. Long Hao Ying strikes like lightning with a flaming spear, activating his fire-pierce skill. Yunqi is startled by the speed, but successfully blocks the attack with his sword. The clash creates a shockwave. Yunqi realizes Long Hao Ying is a top-tier opponent worthy of a serious duel. The Huang Long members are shocked that Yunqi blocked their captain, and even managed to counter. Suddenly, an older deputy commander shouts for Long Hao Ying to dodge. Yunqi smirks with a mysterious expression. He slams his foot into the ground, launching himself into the air. Frost gathers around his blade as Yunqi unleashes his blizzard skill. A massive ice pillar slams down, leaving everyone in the enemy team pale with shock. A member tanks the hit, but his armor durability drops by 90%. The team's mage yells in concern for his comrade. The support quickly casts healing magic to pull the fighter back into the battle. Yunqi observes the formation, identifying the archer as the most dangerous target, after the captain. Long Hao Ying orders a pincer maneuver, keeping the archer and support safe at the rear. The brawny warrior Pan Song Tuo roars and charges directly at Yunqi. Yunqi remains calm, summoning a green aura that forms a massive skull. His Death Vortex skill hits Pan Song Tuo, forcing him to a sudden, painful halt. Seeing the gap, Long Hao Ying seizes the moment to attack from the flank with his burning spear. Yunqi realizes he was baited, as Pan Song Tuo was merely a distraction. The spear strike lands, forcing Yunqi to defend. He loses armor durability, but holds his ground against the intense pressure. Meanwhile, Quan Tan finds the perfect sniping position. He waits patiently for Yunqi to show a weak point to pierce his armor. Just as he is about to fire, Quan Tan senses something wrong behind him. Before he can turn, Jiang Xiaoduo appears like a shadow behind him. Quan Tan panics, but Jiang Xiaoduo strikes, declaring she cannot let her partner be attacked. After a series of rapid strikes, Jiang Xiaoduo delivers the final blow to the sniper. Seeing the sniper fall, Ho Yi triggers a charge skill to save him. The impact sends Jiang Xiaoduo flying into the air. Ho Yi laughs confidently, telling Quan Tan to stand up, but Quan Tan's body dissolves into blue light and vanishes. A level 12 undead wolf rises in his place, shocking the Huanglong group. Yunqi smiles with green fire in his hands, saying he controls the dead best. He is glad he prepared backup plans before this encounter. Long Hao Ying realizes he underestimated Yunqi's hidden skills. Quan Tan messages the team that he lost a level and will be gone for 20 minutes. Long Hao Ying is even more determined to defeat Yunqi to secure his group's dominance. Without hesitation, Long Hao Ying charges back into the fray. Sparks fly everywhere as the two exchange intense blows. Pan Song Tuo tries to charge in to assist his captain. Yunqi strikes first with Death Vortex, forcing him to stop again. Pan Song Tuo calls for Da Pan to provide backup. Da Pan tries to advance with his shield, but Jiang Xiaoduo rides the undead wolf to harass him. Frustrated, Da Pan changes his target to chase Jiang Xiaoduo. She laughs, using her speed to outrun him easily. Da Pan grinds his teeth in anger, shouting at her to stop running. Jiang Xiaoduo calmly claims that no one is foolish enough to die when they cannot win, and they just need to wear the enemy down. As Da Pan is pinned down, Pan Song Tuo panics and begs Quan Tan for a protective barrier. The female mage immediately casts Radiant Shield, reducing his incoming damage by half. With the new defense, Pan Song Tuo regains his confidence and loudly provokes Yunqi. Yunqi analyzes the barrier and calculates he can handle at least 3 hits from the boss. Just as Pan Song Tuo feels confident, a massive wave of freezing air strikes from above. He only has time to scream before being swallowed by the second ice storm. His painful wails echo as Long Hao Ying and Quan Tan watch in helpless despair. Yunqi stands amidst the ice with a cold smile, watching Pan Song Tuo vanish and commenting that another one has fallen. Seeing his allies fall, Long Hao Ying loses his cool, his spear erupting with fire as he vows to defeat Yunqi to prove his worth. Yunqi smiles mockingly, telling Long Hao Ying that he will soon join those who have already fallen. Meanwhile, the calm Quan Tan calculates that the cooldown for Ice Storm is only 2 to 3 minutes, concluding that Yunqi is saving it for the right moment. Da Pan notices Jiang Xiaoduo has vanished into stealth and yells at everyone to prepare for an ambush. However, the warning comes a step too late. As Long Hao Ying charges, Yunqi moves his glowing arm and quietly summons Xiao Hui. The massive immortal wolf lunges from the void straight onto the battlefield. It bites Long Hao Ying, who screams in pain and strikes the wolf away with his spear. Yunqi closes in with his sword, launching a relentless chain of attacks that escalates the battle. Long Hao Ying notices something odd. If Yunqi were using both hands, his spear should have been shattered by now. He focuses on Yunqi's glowing arm, realizing his opponent is still hiding a trump card. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoduo uses the immortal wolf to harass Da Pan, prompting Long Hao Ying to warn his teammate. But Da Pan is still a beat too slow when he turns around. Yunqi coldly declares that dodging is futile as his skill can penetrate any obstacle. He unleashes another ice storm, locking down the remaining members of the Huanglong group. Desperate screams ring out before the last 2 members shatter into data fragments before Long Hao Ying. Jiang Xiaoduo appears, panting, and scolds Yunqi for lying about the 1-minute cooldown, which almost got her killed. Yunqi apologizes, explaining that announcing the skill would have ruined the element of surprise, though she insists on a secret signal next time. Yunqi laughs and nods in agreement. His expression then turns serious as he looks at Long Hao Ying, declaring that defeating the leader will end the battle. In the vast desert, Yunqi in his black armor stands face to face with his opponent. Opposite him is Long Hao Ying, the head of the Huanglong group. Long Hao Ying narrows his eyes, asking if Ice Storm really has a 1-minute cooldown. Yunqi smiles mysteriously and asks if he would believe it if it were 30 seconds. Long Hao Ying laughs, admitting he has never met anyone he wants to challenge this badly before. Long Hao Ying orders his revived team to stay back, insisting on finishing the duel with Yunqi one-on-one. As his team reluctantly obeys, Long Hao Ying prepares for a real showdown. He charges forward, his spear igniting as he unleashes a fire thrust. Yunqi counters with Death Vortex, but his opponent is ready. Long Hao Ying maneuvers his spear to shatter the force, closing in for a direct confrontation. The energy collision creates a massive explosion. Yunqi admits Long Haoying's strength is formidable. Seeing an opening, Yunqi prepares a finishing blow. Suddenly, Long Haoying activates his ultimate skill, Dragon Guardian. Golden light envelops him, doubling his defense and granting immunity to magic for 5 seconds. Jiang Xiaoduo screams for Yunqi to retreat, identifying the skill as Long Haoying's strongest, and Yunqi complies. Yunqi calculates that wasting Ice Storm now is risky, so he maneuvers and waits for the skill to expire. Neither gives an inch, with swords and spears clashing frantically across the battlefield. At the critical moment, Yunqi strikes, successfully chipping the tip of Long Haoying's spear. Long Haoying freezes in shock, never expecting his epic-grade weapon to be damaged. Yunqi smirks and delivers a powerful blow that knocks his opponent back, cracking his armor. Recognizing the end of Dragon Guardian, Yunqi seizes the moment to unleash Ice Storm again. A massive ice pillar descends, burying Long Haoying completely. Trapped in the ice, he gasps in disbelief that he has been defeated by an NPC. Yunqi appears in the air, raising his sword to finish him, mocking the player's arrogance toward NPCs. The sword strikes decisively, sending Long Haoying flying. Though wounded, Long Haoying refuses to yield, claiming he will defeat Yunqi next time. Yunqi retorts that he is lucky this time, but the next encounter will end like it did for Huang Tianhao. Before Long Haoying can reply, his body disintegrates into data. In a flash, the server's strongest player disappears, leaving Yunqi alone in the sand. Yunqi sighs, noting that Long Haoying was truly top tier and that breaking the spear was key to winning. Jiang Xiaoduo runs over, excited, but Yunqi modestly gives her credit for the victory. Jiang Xiaoduo beams with pride, making Yunqi chuckle at her lack of humility. The quest scroll lies quietly on the sand. Jiang Xiaoduo asks if they should continue their journey. Yunqi retrieves the scroll, deciding that they need supplies and should aim to finish the mission. They climb back into the jeep and continue along the highway toward their next goal. Jiang Xiaoduo checks the 3D map, while Yunqi expresses relief that the Titan system kept the old world's data. Jiang Xiaoduo cheers, announcing that Boss Yun is now famous across the server. The forum is exploding with news of their win, and Yunqi frowns at the extreme detail of the reports. He turns to Jiang Xiaoduo with suspicion, asking if she was the one who posted it. Jiang Xiaoduo immediately protests, insisting she would never betray him. Yunqi laughs and teases her, but as they talk, a new post appears on the forum. The forum is buzzing with a viral post revealing the mysterious boss and his female companion, leaving Jiang Xiaoduo in a state of shock as her own identity is exposed. To her surprise, the comments are mostly positive. Users are praising their chemistry and calling the mysterious boss more handsome than expected. Jiang Xiaoduo is anxious, not because of her looks, but because the whole server now knows she is allied with Yunqi against the Huanglong Corporation, which could make her a target. Yunqi gently comforts her, promising that he will protect her against anyone who tries to cause trouble, leaving her momentarily stunned. Seeing his calm demeanor, a sense of safety and relief washes over her. Back to her cheerful self, she playfully tells Yunqi to take responsibility for her safety, and he nods in agreement. Privately, Yunqi analyzes the situation, suspecting Long Haoying is a cunning strategist and deciding it is better to boost Jiang Xiaoduo's strength rather than fight head-on. After an hour of traveling across the wasteland, their jeep finally reaches Outpost 7. The outpost is heavily fortified, a true military stronghold. The guards immediately point their weapons at the approaching vehicle, demanding they stop or face fire. Yunqi stops the car, they step out with their hands up, and he explains they are delivering a final message from a commander in Nanjiang to General Shi Gang. Jiang Xiaoduo whispers to Yunqi, asking why he didn't just mention it was a quest delivery. Yunqi laughs, explaining that as an NPC, he can't risk being shot by mistake like a player can. The guard chuckles upon realizing Jiang Xiaoduo is a player and tells them to wait while he reports to his superior. 15 minutes later, they are led to a reception room where General Shi Gang is waiting. The general stands with his back turned, asking if they are indeed the messengers from Nanjiang. Yunqi hands him the notebook recovered from the fallen officer. Yunqi observes the general, noting that Shi Gang lacks the battle-hardened aura he expected from a military leader. Shi Gang reveals that after the apocalypse, his camp lost half its troops, leaving them unable to reclaim the city. He turns around with a cold gaze, declaring that he does not welcome players under any circumstances. Jiang Xiaoduo is furious, feeling insulted, despite having risked their lives to deliver the warning. Shi Gang sneers, accusing them of potentially leading the army into a trap set by players. As Jiang Xiaoduo prepares to argue, Yunqi stops her and asks if she has received her quest rewards. She checks her system notification, confirms the XP and Apocalypse coins have been credited, and nods. Yunqi calmly states their mission is finished, and turns to leave, but Shi Gang suddenly orders them to stop. Yunqi turns back, clearly confused by the general's next move. Shi Gang declares they are low on supplies, and attempts to seize their vehicle and cargo, cold-bloodedly asking if they have any objections. Jiang Xiaoduo is outraged, calling him out for refusing to help Nanjiang while robbing the people who tried to save them. Yunqi realizes that despite their similar uniforms, Shi Gang is nothing like the noble soldiers he has met before. Shi Gang uses his troops to intimidate them, forcing Jiang Xiaoduo to realize they are trapped in a new mess. While Jiang Xiaoduo worries, Yunqi remains perfectly calm, smiling directly at the general. He tells Shi Gang that he can take their supplies, but warns they won't live long enough to use them anyway. Shi Gang's expression shifts, and he demands to know exactly what Yunqi implies. Yunqi explains they were ambushed by players on their way here, proving someone in Nanjiang wants to keep Shi Gang from returning. Shi Gang remains overconfident, claiming his 3,000 troops are enough to hold their position without retaking the city. Yunqi sits down and mocks the general, pointing out that his desperate need for their supplies proves the base is already starving. He warns that with limited supplies and mutated beasts roaming outside, the base will collapse under the next massive beast tide. Yunqi stares down the general, questioning how much longer his fragile authority will last. He concludes that reclaiming Nanjiang is their only path to survival before Luozhen takes full control. Jiang Xiaoduo applauds his logic, while Shi Gang falls into a deep, worried silence. After weighing the situation, Shi Gang admits Yunqi is right and agrees to launch an assault on Nanjiang. Jiang Xiaoduo is overjoyed, thinking the ordeal is finally over, and admires Yunqi's negotiation skills. Suddenly, Shi Gang smiles maliciously, insisting they still need their supplies for the war, so he is keeping everything. He tells them they are lucky to be alive, and orders them to get out of his camp immediately. Jiang Xiaoduo snaps, unleashing her icy aura and calling him nothing but a common bandit. Without another word, Yunqi raises his hand to cast his frost storm magic. A massive wave of freezing energy sweeps toward the general and detonates right in the center of the room. The violent explosion rocks the building, drawing guards rushing in from outside. As dust fills the room, Jiang Xiaoduo freezes in panic, fearing that harming the general will make the entire camp their enemy. When the smoke clears, a battered and bruised Shi Gang is still alive, struggling to stand. Yunqi nods coolly, stating he doesn't want to kill allies, and that blast was merely to crush a bug. Facing such overwhelming power, Shi Gang breaks into a cold sweat and immediately offers to cooperate, inviting them to join an elite recon squad. Before Yunqi can react, Jiang Xiaoduo excitedly accepts, signaling that a new quest has appeared. The rare quest involves infiltrating Nanjiang to spy on the local guards. The rewards are huge, including a purple-tier epic gear piece. An hour later, Jiang Xiaoduo rides a motorcycle with Yunqi through the wasteland toward Nanjiang. Stopping at the city outskirts, she is stunned by the horrific sight before her. The city is reduced to shattered ruins, with collapsed buildings everywhere and no sign of life. Yunqi remembers Nanjiang as a prosperous metropolis of 10 million people, now turned into a tragic graveyard of the apocalypse. As they enter the suburbs, Jiang Xiaoduo suddenly clutches her head, turning pale as if hit by a surge of painful memories. Haunted by ghosts of the past, she mutters that things were never supposed to end this way. She repeats the phrase in a trance until Yunqi calls out to snap her back to reality. Jiang Xiaoduo took a deep breath, quickly calming down and claiming she was fine. Realizing she was not ready to talk, Yunqi shifted focus to searching for survivors, and she followed him deeper into the city. They had not gone far when Yunqi suddenly stopped. He pulled Jiang Xiaoduo behind a collapsed wall, whispering for her to stay hidden and silent. Peering through a crack in the wall, they saw armed men forcing civilians to scavenge, with their leader threatening to withhold rations if they failed to meet quotas, adding that Le Zhen would execute anyone who tried to escape. Yunqi identified them as Le Zhen's scavenging squad, disgusted by their disregard for human life as they forced innocent people into dangerous zones. He turned to Jiang Xiaoduo, asking if players could identify factions through their system interface. She explained that local human NPCs like Yunqi appeared with red names, player faction NPCs were yellow, and actual players were green. Pointing at the group, she identified the armed men as players and the laborers as local human NPCs. Notably, their levels were quite low, mostly below level 5. After observing longer, she realized the squad leader was the strongest, barely reaching level 10. The leader was yawning, loudly complaining about how tedious the work was. Yunqi warned Jiang Xiaoduo to remain calm, as the city's overall situation was still unclear, and they shouldn't act recklessly. Just then, a soldier grabbed a young woman, leering at her and promising extra food if she served him. Terrified, the girl broke into tears, begging and struggling, but she was trapped. A nearby man trembled and urged her not to resist, while a female soldier coldly called him a coward. Cornered and desperate, the girl cursed the soldier for his filth, pushing him away with all her might. Enraged by her resistance, the soldier slapped her hard, knocking her to the ground. He grabbed her by the hair, laughing wickedly, and vowing to punish her in front of everyone as an example, while her desperate cries echoed through the ruins without anyone daring to intervene. At that exact moment, a streak of green light cut through the air, In a flash, the soldier's arm holding the girl was severed, blood spraying everywhere. He screamed in agony, clutching his mangled limb. The others stood frozen, bewildered by the sudden attack. Yunqi and Jiang Xiaoduo then slowly emerged from their hiding spot. Yunqi looked at the rescued girl and declared that while some things can be endured, there is no need to yield to monsters. The soldiers aimed their weapons at them, shouting about an attack on the law enforcement team before opening fire. A barrage of bullets glowing with yellow light flew toward them. Unfazed, Yunqi raised his hand to cast his skill, Death's Vortex. A massive green shockwave slammed into the squad. All their weapons were knocked to the ground instantly, leaving the oppressed civilians stunned by the display of power. Seizing the moment, Yunqi shouted to the crowd that if they didn't want to die, they had to take up weapons and fight, because passivity meant certain death. The crowd wavered. Some saw the weapons on the ground as an opportunity, while others feared the consequences of rebellion or lacked the courage to kill. While hesitation hung in the air, the girl who had been assaulted wiped her tears and stood up with grit. Filled with rage, she told everyone that whether it was stones or knives, they had to fight back, as resistance was the only way to survive. No sooner had she finished than she grabbed a sharp stone and lunged toward the soldier who had tormented her. The stone pierced his body, and blood splattered across the ground. That sight awakened the resolve of the paralyzed crowd. An old man shouted that the girl was right, and a woman joined in, urging everyone to kill the devils now that they were unarmed. In an instant, dozens rushed forward, grabbing guns, bricks, and knives to join the fray. The young girl led the charge, screaming in hatred that those scoundrels deserved their fate. A girl with pink-colored powers quickly joined the fight, determined to let no one escape. Shortly after, a slash of sword energy streaked across, finishing the soldier off on the spot. The man who had been rescued bowed in trembling gratitude to Yunqi. Meanwhile, the former laborers had transformed into an army, their cries of vengeance echoing as they hunted down the remaining soldiers. Watching from the side, Jiang Xiaoduo finally understood Yunqi's plan. He could have wiped them out alone, but he wanted the victims to reclaim their own future, choosing to stay back to let the civilians take charge. Reflecting on this, Jiang Xiaoduo smiled with a sense of helpless admiration. 20 minutes later, the battle finally came to an end. Exhausted but victorious, the survivors cheered, celebrating their liberation from the tyrants. The girl who was assaulted and her friend thanked Yunqi, choking back tears as they expressed their deep gratitude. Yunqi calmly told them that they saved themselves by choosing to fight, then pivoted to asking about the situation in Namjiang and the fate of other survivors. Tears welled up again as the girl explained that outside of those present, almost all the residents of Namjiang had been killed by La Zhen and his players. Even Yunqi was stunned by the grim reality. She recounted how the apocalypse flattened most of the city, leaving only the center intact, which La Zhen and the players seized and renamed the Central City. The survivors were forced into slave labor, and their numbers had dwindled to less than 1% of the original population. Recalling the horror, she shivered, describing how the monsters from the sky launched a merciless massacre. To gain favor with the monsters, La Zhen personally murdered countless humans, holding their lives in total contempt. She sobbed uncontrollably, repeating that those people were no longer human. Clenching his fists, Yunqi felt his killing intent flare and resolved to accelerate his plan to help Shigang reclaim Namjiang. He asked about the location of the law enforcement headquarters, but the girl admitted they were just struggling to survive and knew nothing of such details. Just then, a man stepped forward, identifying himself as a former member of the law enforcement team who had refused to betray humanity to join La Zhen. He revealed that after the rebellion, La Zhen gathered the law enforcement forces and personally drew up the city's defense plans. He noted that the map was kept in La Zhen's office, which would be vital for any attempt to retake the city. Taking note, Yunqi instructed the survivors to gather all usable weapons, from guns to scrap metal. He urged them to find shelter within the ruins, to avoid mutated beasts, emphasizing the need for unity and trust to survive. The girl who sparked the rebellion refused to hide, volunteering to accompany him and fight to her last breath. Many others followed suit, with some claiming magical abilities, and others insisting they were ready to fight as long as they had weapons. Seeing their determination, Yunqi smiled, gently telling them he saved them so they could live, not to die in battle. He told them to stay hidden until Shigang arrived with reinforcements from Camp 7, while he and Jiang Xiaoduo infiltrated the central city to deal with the oppressors. Inside the central city, soldiers continued to bark orders at the exhausted laborers, threatening to cut their food rations if they failed to meet the day's quotas. A man checked his mission panel in despair, seeing only half a bun and a single apocalypse coin as his reward, lamenting the brutal exploitation. Yunqi and Jiang Xiaoduo, now fully disguised, quietly infiltrate the central city. Yunqi sighs at the miserable lives of the residents. He knows true freedom only comes when Nanjiang is liberated. Analyzing the heavy security, Yunqi realizes stealing the map and escaping safely will be incredibly difficult. He suggests they split up, but Jiang Xiaoduo protests, insisting it is safer to stay together. Yunqi explains that since they need military intelligence, Jiang Xiaoduo's stealth makes her perfect for infiltrating La Zhen's office. She understands the plan, agreeing to provide backup and cause a distraction if he needs to escape. Still worried, she warns him that a single NPC entering enemy headquarters is basically a death sentence. Yunqi calmly insists it is a job someone must do, but she stops him just as he prepares to leave. She hands him a high-grade shield, trying to sound indifferent, while secretly fearing for his life and the success of her mission. Touched by her gesture, Yunqi realizes the girl has finally started to show genuine concern for others. On the surface, he remains calm, joking that he will be done before needing a shield, and that the guards are no match for him. Jiang Xiaoduo gets annoyed, realizing he completely missed the fact that she was worried about him. Yunqi laughs and warns her to be careful, as many players are targeting her after the fight with the Huanglong Corporation. Jiang Xiaoduo retorts that the one infiltrating the headquarters should be the one watching his own back. She smiles confidently, determined to prove her skills and stealth capabilities to Yunqi. Meanwhile, the old law enforcement headquarters is now a makeshift command center, guarded by 2 soldiers. One soldier complains about being reduced from a former soldier to a mere gatekeeper. His partner warns him to be quiet, noting that they are no better than NPCs in the eyes of the players. Suddenly, a faint sound from behind puts them on high alert. One guard stays put while the other goes to investigate. As soon as he turns the corner, he falls right into Jiang Xiaoduo's trap. Terrified, he immediately confesses the defense map is locked in the 3rd drawer of La Zhen's desk. Jiang Xiaoduo frowns, realizing the plan has hit a snag. The soldier suddenly pulls a gun to counterattack. Jiang Xiaoduo is angered that he tries to kill her, despite her intention to spare him. She knocks him out instantly, but the noise alerts the other guard. Seeing his comrade defeated, the 2nd guard raises his gun, ready to fire. Jiang Xiaoduo smirks, confident that no one can catch her, and executes her plan. She shouts about an intruder to cause chaos, climbs high, activates her stealth, and vanishes with a playful goodbye. Long Hoying watches the 2 fallen guards from a window in another part of the building. Quan Tan grumbles about how useless the NPCs are for losing the map so easily. Long Hoying just smiles, feeling that everything is going exactly according to his plan. He explains to a confused Quan Tan that the intruder is a female player with stealth abilities. Quan Tan realizes it must be Jiang Xiaoduo, and news arrives that their supply team has lost contact, confirming Yunqi's involvement. Long Hoying sees this as the perfect chance to move from defense to offense and kill Yunqi on his own turf. Meanwhile, Yunqi hides under his cloak, wishing he could contact Jiang Xiaoduo to check on her progress. Suddenly, the street turns into chaos as a crowd chases after a female thief. Yunqi worries it might be Jiang Xiaoduo. A closer look confirms it is not her, leading him to realize it is a trap. He knows that if Jiang Xiaoduo were compromised, she would lead enemies away, not into a crowded street. The woman being chased is exhausted, desperately looking for an escape route. Yunqi recognizes her as nothing more than bait. He understands that the players set up this scene to force him to reveal his position. The mob behind her screams, promising food to whoever catches the thief. Yunqi waits in the shadows, knowing that snipers are likely lying in wait. Sure enough, the lens flare from a sniper scope flashes from a nearby building. Quan Tan, lying in ambush, asks Long Hoying if Yunqi will really fall for this trick to save someone. Long Hoying is confident that NPCs in this world possess enough emotions that Yunqi won't abandon his allies. He orders his men to track the crowd and prepare to gun down Yunqi the moment he appears. Long Hoying ignores Quan Tan's talk of fame, wanting instead to capture the attention of Mu Qingxuang. To speed things up, he broadcasts a reward of 10 kilograms of rice and 3 crates of water for catching the girl. The desperate crowd, driven by hunger and the promise of survival, chases her with mindless ferocity. Cornered, she screams at them to back off, revealing her affiliation with the Huanglong Corporation. To the starving mob, she is merely a ticket to food, causing them to pursue her even harder. Out of options, she activates her pink energy, warning everyone that they will pay with their lives. She kills the first man who dares to rush her. The violence shocks the crowd, but a player loyal to Long Hoying offers more food and alcohol to lure them back in. The offer breaks the crowd's hesitation, and hundreds of people charge forward. A Huanglong Corporation member is stunned that NPCs would dare attack a player. Angry, he raises his gun and threatens to kill the entire mob. Before he can fire, he is instantly frozen solid, alarming his teammates. Long Hoying realizes someone is attacking from the shadows. The civilians, now crazed, believe the players are working together and swarm them in a savage frenzy. Long Hoying and Quan Tan are stunned by the NPC uprising, and Quan Tan identifies the ice magic as Yunqi's. Quan Tan reports that Li Ping lost a level, proving Yunqi is definitely here. Long Hoying orders his forces to pull back and regroup at the command center. He coldly decides to have La Zhen return to massacre all the rebellious civilians. From a rooftop, Yunqi watches the entire event unfold. His eyes turn icy upon hearing the order to slaughter civilians, and Jiang Xiaoduo's voice calls to him from behind. She smiles playfully and asks if he was surprised to see her. Yunqi plays along, acting amazed and wondering how she found him. Jiang Xiaoduo explains their original plan. She would draw attention to lure him out, but realized the fake version of her was a trap. She quietly followed the enemy and finally tracked down Yunqi's hiding spot. Leaning on her crutches, she smiles proudly and asks if she did a good job. Yunqi nods, impressed that she dismantled the Huanglong group's plan so easily, which makes her beam with joy. She then pulls out a scroll, excited to show off her hard-earned prize. Yunqi is stunned, realizing it is the defensive layout map of Nanjiang City. Jiang Xiaoduo says, delivering this to Shigang will help the army retake the city, completing her mission. Yunqi is amazed that the usually reckless girl finished such a vital task so cleanly. Deeply touched, Yunqi pats her head, leaving Jiang Xiaoduo blushing and shy as he sincerely thanks her. Yunqi tells her to deliver the map to Shigang immediately for the counterattack, but she worries about what he will do. Yunqi stares coldly at the command post, deciding to give the Huanglong group a painful lesson before leaving. At the command post, Long Haoyang orders his teams to secure all respawn points to prevent any ambushes. He promises compensation for any level losses, which stabilizes the morale of his troops. As the orders finish, Quan Tan reports a new situation. Long Haoyang asks for Yunqi's location. Quan Tan confirms he is hiding in the woods between the city and suburbs. Suddenly, a massive ice explosion hits outside, and Quan Tan yells that Yunqi has launched a blizzard attack. A soldier reports that those killed by Yunqi suffer from the death mark, reducing their stats by 10. Furious, Long Haoyang orders a massive hunt, determined to crush the boss regardless of the cost, leaving Quan Tan shocked by his rage. Just as tension peaks, a voice calls out from behind. Luo Zhen walks in, offering to lead his troops to handle the small boss, instead of wasting the main player's time. Long Haoying agrees, seeing Luo Zhen as mere cannon fodder to weaken Yunqi before he delivers the final blow. Amidst the ruins, Yunqi waits calmly, knowing Long Haoying would eventually react. As soon as Luo Zhen sees Yunqi, he orders his men to fire. Bullets rain down, and the system warns that Yunqi's armor durability is dropping. Yunqi raises the shield given by Jiang Xiaoduo to block the barrage. The shield absorbs most of the damage, leaving his armor barely scratched. Yunqi realizes they are using real Earth-made firearms instead of game weapons. Luo Zhen walks forward, mocking Yunqi for being an NPC and questioning why he bothers fighting players. He tries to bribe Yunqi, promising to protect him if he bows down to Long Haoying. Yunqi laughs coldly, saying he was looking for Luo Zhen, and here he is, offering himself up. Yunqi scathingly rebukes him for betraying his own people just to suck up to players, calling him a loyal dog. Humiliated, Luo Zhen rages that he is just doing what is necessary to survive. Luo Zhen claims he saved thousands of lives, but Yunqi immediately interrupts him. Yunqi exposes the truth. Luo Zhen keeps the survivors as slaves to gather resources for himself. Yunqi mocks his false morality, noting that even a bit of grain is worth more than his dignity. Realizing his lies failed, Luo Zhen decides to kill Yunqi instead. Yunqi wastes no time and unleashes the Death Vortex skill. Green death energy surges toward the enemy line. The energy pierces through a soldier, leaving a massive hole and spraying blood. Luo Zhen screams for his men to attack, but they fall one by one into pools of blood. The bodies suddenly rise again, their eyes glowing with the resurrected dead effect. Chaos ensues as the fallen soldiers turn their weapons on their former allies. Seeing the carnage, Luo Zhen realizes in despair that it was all a trap. Yunqi unleashes an ice blizzard, crushing the remaining survivors and wiping out the squad. Severely wounded, Luo Zhen turns and flees toward the city to ask for help. He reaches the gate, only to find it locked, realizing Long Haoyang has sacrificed him to die outside. A blast of death energy from Yunqi strikes Luo Zhen, slamming him against the city gate. Broken and bleeding, Luo Zhen struggles to his feet, refusing to die without a fight. Yunqi closes in, determined to finish off the traitor as he relentlessly chases him. The chase spans 15 minutes, leading them from the city center to the outskirts. Luo Zhen is exhausted and covered in wounds but continues to run for his life. Yunqi calmly declares that Luo Zhen has nowhere left to run. Suddenly, a giant swarm of zombie crows descends from the sky. The monsters attack everything in sight, targeting both men indiscriminately. Yunqi draws his blade, hacking through the swarm to clear a path. During the fight, his gaze settles on the ground below. Endless streaks of dried blood stretch as far as the eye can see. He realizes this is the site of the original player invasion and the massacre of Nanjiang citizens. Left alone, Luo Zhen is swarmed by the crows and screams in terror as he fights back. Yunqi appears on a rock above, coldly telling Luo Zhen that his end has finally come. Luo Zhen yells, asking why Yunqi cares when the dead cannot be brought back anyway. These desperate excuses only fuel Yunqi's burning rage. Yunqi charges and lands a devastating punch, knocking Luo Zhen to the ground. He pulls Luo Zhen up by the hair, forcing him to look at the blood-soaked land. Yun-Chi questions how he can be so devoid of guilt after witnessing so much slaughter. Luo Zhen laughs manically, insisting he is right and that he would rather turn deaths into his own achievements. He mocks Yun-Chi, challenging him to try and save the city if he thinks he is such a hero. Yun-Chi replies calmly that he is nothing like Luo Zhen and owes him no proof of his worth. Yun-Chi raised his sword like a judge, vowing to honor the innocent souls with La Zhen's blood. The blade pierced La Zhen's shoulder, drawing a scream of agony from him. Instead of killing him, Yun-Chi left him bleeding among zombie crows, declaring he must suffer for his sins. La Zhen tremblingly asked why he was being spared. Only the harsh cawing of crows answered his desperate plea. The zombie crows swarmed down, tearing La Zhen's body apart as his screams vanished into the fray. 3 minutes later, only a skeleton remained, still pinned to the ground by the sword. Watching the scene, Yun-Chi sensed the souls of the departed finding some peace in their enemy's tragic end. The system suddenly notified Yun-Chi that he had unlocked a special event, granting him the Will of the Dead skill, boosting his mental power and skill effectiveness significantly. Despite gaining such a powerful ability, Yun-Chi sighed, wishing he hadn't needed such tragedy to obtain it. While lost in thought, he suddenly detected someone hiding nearby. Without hesitation, Yun-Chi struck, launching a cold blast that forced his hidden observer out from behind a rock. It was the female mage who had previously traveled with Long Hao Ying. She knelt, begging for mercy and explaining that she wasn't tracking him, but had just followed him after witnessing the confrontation with La Zhen. Looking at Yun-Chi, she admitted she understood his hatred for the players after the suffering they caused his village. She recounted the start of the apocalypse. When she saw players slaughtering residents, she refused to view them as mere NPCs, knowing they could feel fear and pain. She confessed she no longer believed Yun-Chi was a normal NPC and wondered if the players were actually the real monsters. Yun-Chi replied calmly that he didn't care for her recognition, but most players had long ago lost their humanity. She urged him to stop, arguing that he couldn't take on the entire Huanglong Corporation alone. She suggested he should focus on surviving, which made Yun-Chi laugh out loud. He found it ironic that a player was advising an NPC to try and live on. Suddenly, a hail of golden bullets tore through the air. 2 Huanglong Corporation members had finally tracked him down. Without hesitation, Yun-Chi pulled the female mage behind him, shielding her with his own body. When she asked why, Yun-Chi coldly stated that while he never wanted this war, the world's corruption demanded that the Huanglong Corporation pay the price. He suddenly turned and drove his sword through the female mage's body. As she disintegrated into data particles, she asked with her last breath why he had done it. The Huanglong members watched in shock, unable to comprehend his actions. Yun-Chi watched her vanish, feeling that she had retained her conscience, and he hadn't truly wanted to kill her. Yet he knew that if she returned after meeting him, the corporation would have executed her anyway. He turned to the 2 soldiers and mockingly told them to tell Long Hao Ying that his beauty traps needed to be more skilled than hers. Terrified, the 2 soldiers scrambled back toward the city to report the news. Watching them flee, Yun-Chi remarked they were too slow before instantly appearing in front of them. He unleashed a freezing blizzard that shattered them in a massive explosion. Yun-Chi smiled toward the city, wondering if Long Hao Ying was brave enough to bring the full legion to face him. Back at headquarters, Long Hao Ying exploded in rage, smashing his desk at his resurrected subordinates. He was furious that they had found the target, but failed to report back, berating the mage for losing 2 levels. The mage bowed in silence, still confused by the strange beauty trap Yun-Chi had staged. After calming down, Long Hao Ying asked Ho Yi about the status of the troop mobilization. Ho Yi confirmed that the entire legion was assembled and ready for orders. Outside the command center, the Huanglong Legion stood ready. Fully geared and high in spirits, they were certain they would crush the boss this time. Long Hao Ying ordered them to stay spread out to avoid being wiped out by Yun-Chi's area of effect skills. Hiding in the shadows, Yun-Chi watched everything unfold. He calculated that it would take at least half an hour for reinforcements to arrive. Seeing the scattered NPC corpses, he devised a plan to wipe out the entire legion in one go. A green energy surged as he raised a corpse, turning it into an undead puppet under his control. While Long Hao Ying rallied his troops, sudden gunfire shattered their morale. Huanglong members dropped one by one as panic broke out. Long Hao Ying snapped his head around to face the threat. Quan Jin reported that they were being fired upon by regular bullets, suspecting the boss's accomplices. Long Hao Ying ordered his snipers to immediately locate the shooter. He also directed his healers to tend to the wounded. Suddenly, a wave of frost swept across the battlefield, freezing the entire formation. Yun-Chi launched his meteor skill, raining sharp ice shards that pinned the players to the walls. Players screamed as they lost levels, realizing the boss had finally appeared. Furious, Long Hao Ying roared, trying to goad Yun-Chi into a direct duel. Yun-Chi just sneered, completely ignoring the childish provocation. He ignited blue flames in his hands, launching attacks from multiple angles and throwing the legion into chaos. Amidst the chaos, a sniper finally locked onto his target and pulled the trigger. The bullet accurately struck Yunqi's undead companion in the head. The system announced a 3-minute respawn time. Yunqi noted Hou Yi's impressive marksmanship, unfazed as it was all part of his plan. Long Haoying ordered his men to track Yunqi, but forbade them from engaging alone, fearing another trap. But just then, Long Haoying felt a surge of impending danger. A military truck loaded with oil drums barreled toward their formation at breakneck speed. Long Haoying ordered his troops to fire, but the truck didn't slow down. They realized it was being driven by one of Yunqi's undead puppets. Long Haoying screamed for his men to disperse while the snipers tried to take out the driver. A stray bullet hit an oil drum, triggering a massive chain reaction. Explosions ripped through the area, turning it into a sea of fire as players screamed in despair. While they reeled from the blast, Yunqi struck again with his frost blizzard, wiping out even more players. Watching his troops fall, Long Haoying could only grit his teeth in rage. Fire engulfed the surrounding buildings, transforming the area into a massive inferno. Trapped players begged for help, as the flames outpaced the healer's ability to sustain them. From afar, La Zhen and Jiang Xiao Duo watched in horror, stunned by the sheer destructive power Yunqi possessed. Oppressed residents cheer, hoping to see the arrogant players finally get what they deserve. Yunqi watches the chaos unfold with a cold and calm expression. He knows burning enemies is cruel, but it pales in comparison to what players did to humanity. Suddenly, Yunqi senses an unfamiliar presence nearby. He shifts his position, confident that only Jiang Xiaoduo could hide from him. He unleashes the death whirlwind, forcing the hidden assassins to reveal themselves. Long Haoying expects victory, but his assassins keep respawning one by one. Long Haoying rages at his team for ignoring his orders to avoid direct combat. The trembling assassins explain that Yunqi spotted them before they could even strike. Realizing the danger, Long Haoying orders a full retreat to the north, warning his team to stay hidden after respawning. Long Haoying promises to compensate for losses and protect his guild members. A massive wall of fire suddenly erupts, sealing off their escape path. Long Haoying senses a trap and halts his team from attacking the wall. Yunqi calmly steps out from the flames with a chilling smile. He promises the players an unforgettable night, holding a glowing green energy sphere. Furious, Long Haoying taunts Yunqi for hiding in the shadows and charges at him. Yunqi easily deflects the attack, noting that the level-drained Long Haoying is no longer a threat. Yunqi realizes this is the perfect chance to wipe out the entire Huanglong Legion. The female mage commands the healers to focus all their energy on Long Haoying. Supported by healers, Long Haoying regains his confidence, but Yunqi shatters his armor, leaving it at 13 durability. Yunqi notes the healers are a problem, and wishes Lu Xin were there to help. Suddenly, healing energy begins to flow into Yunqi's body. He realizes the survivors from Planet Blue are risking their lives to support him. Rescued citizens cheer from afar, urging him to drive the invaders out of Namjiang. Word spreads on the global channel that reinforcements are rushing to the scene. Many survivors arm themselves with salvaged guns, ready to join the counterattack. Yunqi smiles, declaring that while the Legion has their guild, he has the people of Namjiang. His sword pulses with a brilliant green light. Declaring the real fight has just begun, he unleashes a frost storm. Long Haoying screams in panic, ordering his troops to scatter. It is too late. A massive ice wave sweeps across the plaza, freezing the players. Long Haoying orders an all-out charge to stop Yunqi's skill casting. Yunqi moves faster, kicking Long Haoying in the face and diving into the enemy lines. His sword and death whirlwind sweep through the crowd, thinning their numbers. The Legion's forces plummet, leaving Long Haoying in total despair. Knowing they will be mocked if they fail, Long Haoying bets everything on one final strike. Long Haoying pours his remaining power into his ultimate attack. Yunqi doesn't dodge, choosing to block the strike head-on with his sword. Yunqi asks if that is his full power, then knocks him back with a flick of his blade. Before Long Haoying can steady himself, Yunqi impales his shoulder. Long Haoying collapses and dissolves into data, finally defeated. Yunqi prepares to spawn camp the remaining enemies, to wipe them out completely. Shigang sends an urgent message. Long Haoying called for reinforcements, and a massive wave of players is incoming. Yunqi is impressed that Jiang Xiaoduo used the NPC global channel to contact him. He turns to see hordes of players arriving, led by other guild leaders. Arrogant leaders underestimate him, greedy for the reward on his head. Yunqi realizes the odds are stacked against him if he fights here. He sends a death whirlwind toward the commander to test their strength. The attack forces them to realize Yunqi is no easy target. Yunqi chooses not to fight, instead turning and sprinting away to lure them. He leads them into a trap at a location he prepared earlier. The players chase him, but Yunqi's speed outpaces their armored vehicles. The captain orders the snipers to hinder his movement. Yunqi channels power into his legs, surging ahead at incredible speed. He deflects the incoming fire with an energy shield. Gathering frost magic, he prepares to unleash a new skill. A massive ice spike pierces through the player formation. The blast flips an armored car and scatters the pursuers. The players start hesitating, fearing the heavy losses. A scream from behind alerts everyone to a new event ahead. A giant blue pillar of light descends, forcing Yunqi to stop. Sensing immense power inside the light, Yunqi is wary. Then a familiar female voice calls his name. Before he can identify the person, Jiang Xiaoduo rushes over. Xiaoduo explains. She came to help after hearing he was being hunted. Yunqi tells her to leave, but she refuses to abandon him. She grips her hands, determined to face the outcome with him. Yunqi is stunned, as she usually runs from danger. His mood lightens, and he decides to face whoever is inside the pillar. Jiang Xiaoduo feels shy as Yunqi takes her hand. They both look toward the glowing blue light. The energy sphere shatters, bolts of lightning paving the way. A woman in white ceremonial robes steps out, followed by an elite legion of mages. With ruby-colored eyes, she looks at Yunqi and greets him after a long time. Recognizing Lu Xin, Yunqi is shocked. He tells Xiaoduo that she was his former comrade. Lu Xin coldly eyes Xiaoduo and asks if Yunqi has finally decided to open up to others. Yunqi blocks Xiaoduo, asking Lu Xin if she brought her army to kill him. Lu Xin trembles, admitting she never wanted to become his enemy. She regains her composure, claiming it is the will of the Light King to defeat the darkness, leaving Yunqi confused by her transformation. Yunqi is confused as Jiang Xiaoduo readies her weapon, sensing Lu Xin is far more dangerous than just a mere healer. Suddenly, Lu Xin points to the sky, summoning a swirling vortex of brilliant light. A massive column of magic erupts from the vortex, piercing straight through the clouds. Jiang Xiaoduo trembles in fear, questioning how a healer could wield such devastating power. Even Yunqi is shocked by Lu Xin's rapid growth. High above, Lu Xin arrogantly offers Yunqi a chance to surrender, promising him safety and a fresh start within the player faction. Yunqi remains unmoved, summoning his blue energy shield and raising his sword to challenge her. Rejected, Lu Xin's expression turns icy, warning him that this is his own choice, and he should not blame her later. The overwhelming pressure traps Yunqi, making it impossible to escape by speed alone. Jiang Xiaoduo suggests a desperate plan: capture Lu Xin as a hostage. Before they can react, a colossal blue battleship descends from the sky, targeting the mage army. A blonde man named Mark Vest leaps from the ship, announcing that reinforcements from Central City have arrived. Hearing the news, Yunqi finally lets out a sigh of relief. However, they both stare in disbelief as Mark Vest plunges from the ship while clutching a massive shield. Jiang Xiaoduo is stunned, calling him insane for attempting such a dangerous landing. He hits the ground with a deafening blast, creating a massive crater while posing heroically on one knee. Yunqi watches in awe, unable to fathom how he survived such an impact unscathed. The man stands up, hiding behind his Titan shield, and introduces himself as the sixth final walker, Lin Yi, sent by General Fang Gan. Yunqi recognizes the legendary Titan shield, feeling relieved to have such a powerful ally. Lin Yi glares at Lu Xin with arrogance, demanding to know who dared to block his path. Lu Xin coldly dismisses him, claiming he is unworthy to stop the light and ordering him to step aside. Lin Yi coolly points to his battleship, threatening to open fire and daring Liu Xin to gamble on the result. Liu Xin ignores him, raising her staff as her white-clad army glows, vowing that the light will protect them as they capture Yunqi. The army chants in unison, their fanatical aura so intense that even Lin Yi begins to break a cold sweat. He realizes they have no fear of death, making his plan to use heavy artillery problematic. Yunqi sighs in frustration, realizing his new ally talks more than he acts. Taking charge, Yunqi steps in front of Lin Yi, determined to handle the situation himself. Liu Xin casts her holy shield, confident that her defensive layer is impenetrable. Yunqi grips his dark energy blade with a cold smile, remarking that they chose the wrong battlefield to challenge him. Countless soul fragments rise from the ground, covering the sky in a ghostly glow. Liu Xin whispers in confusion, asking what those strange lights are. Yunqi explains that they are the memories and grievances of the countless souls massacred by players on this very land. Witnessing this tragic scene, both Lin Yi and Jiang Xiaoduo fall silent. Wrapped in death energy, Yunqi declares that today, the players will pay for their blood-soaked sins. Even behind her shield, Liu Xin trembles as the crushing pressure invades her mind. Without hesitation, Yunqi activates his ultimate skill, Will of the Departed. A purple energy wave ripples through the battlefield, boosting his mental power and skill strength based on the fallen soul's resonance. Liu Xin orders her mages to retreat behind the shields, hoping the attack is merely a psychological tactic. Yunqi smirks, warning them that the final gift is yet to come. His sword flares with blue light as he unleashes the Frost Star technique. A massive ice pillar descends like a meteor, slamming directly into the holy shield. The shield shatters on impact as the vengeful spirits merge with the ice magic. The system announces the evolution of Frost Star into Winter Blizzard, engulfing the battlefield in a lethal storm. Liu Xin watches in horror as her army is consumed by the freezing tempests. the mages are frozen solid and shatter into shards, effectively wiping out the entire legion. Liu Xin collapses in despair, unable to believe the overwhelming power Yun Qi just displayed. Lin Yi and Jiang Xiaoduo are speechless, realizing the combination of skills turned a minor spell into a battlefield-level catastrophe. Yun Qi sheathes his sword and turns to leave, telling Liu Xin her comrades have respawned, and she should leave too. His mercy cuts deeper than defeat, and she demands to know why he did not kill her. Yun Qi walks away, coldly stating that her failure means she is already irrelevant and no longer his concern. Leaving Liu Xin behind, he asks Jiang Xiaoduo if she still wants to follow him as he prepares to board the ship. She beams, declaring she would never let go of such a powerful companion. Suddenly, Lin Yi drops his playful facade, stating he never intended to return to Central City. His words leave Yun Qi and Jiang Xiaoduo completely baffled. Lin Yi explains his mission. The fate of the entire blue planet may rest on Yun Qi's shoulders. He points toward the ship, noting there is something important Fang Gan wanted delivered to Yun Qi personally. Jiang Xiaoduo notices Liu Xin still watching them from afar and wonders why she remains. Yun Qi calmly replies that it does not matter, as she will leave eventually. Lin Yi pulls out a control device and activates the ship's core system. The cargo bay opens with a blue glow, and a holographic projector comes to life. Yun Qi's eyes widen in shock as the image appears before him. The colossal face of Titan, the supreme AI created by humanity, fills the screen. A small blue dragon hologram emerges, surprised to see Titan appearing ahead of schedule. Titan warns that the spirit beasts have located the blue planet, and the Three Kings plan must be accelerated immediately. The little dragon is terrified, asking why such a vital warning was delayed until now. Yun Qi interrupts, demanding they explain what spirit beasts and the Three Kings plan actually are. Titan apologizes, stating that as a final walker, Yun Qi finally has the authority to know the truth. Nearby, Lin Yi and Liu Xin listen silently to the revelation. The expressions on everyone's faces turn heavy and tense. Titan declares that to understand, they must learn the truth behind the apocalypse game. A hologram fills the air, showing a bustling city, burning under a giant, glowing red celestial body. Yun Qi assumes it is the blue planet, but Titan quickly clarifies that is only partially true. Suddenly, space near the red celestial body was torn apart as a massive monster with terrifying horns emerged, radiating destructive power. An ancient dragon covered in thick scales appeared with a blood-red gaze that sent shockwaves through the surroundings. The beast unleashed a dark red energy beam that tore through the cosmos, instantly obliterating an entire planet. Titan revealed this was the first world, erased by the star beasts, warning that Earth would suffer the same fate if left undefended. Lin Yi watched in shock, while Yun Qi and Ya Xiaoduo stood frozen in absolute terror. Titan explained that a century ago, the star beast civilization invaded this planet, quickly wiping out all human life. Despite a desperate 3-year resistance, the civilization of the fallen planet was completely annihilated. Titan revealed itself as the supreme AI, saved by survivors with the hope of one day reclaiming their homeland. Titan determined Earth was the next target, so it created a massive virtual simulation to protect humanity while they grew stronger. Titan confessed that in this simulated world, regular citizens were NPCs, while the players were actually survivors from the fallen planet. Their memories were wiped, leaving only fighting instincts to accelerate their evolution through constant conflict. Yun Qi was stunned to realize that the Doomsday game was actually a giant illusion enveloping all of humanity. Titan insisted this was the only way to prepare humans for the impending arrival of the star beasts. Yun Qi immediately questioned where everyone's physical bodies were currently located. Titan showed a massive underground base filled with cryopods, confirming everyone was safely preserved until they could wake up with their powers. Titan warned that power retention depends on compatibility, and with Yun Qi's low score, he would only keep a fraction of his strength. The original plan was to reveal the truth only after humanity reached level 100. Yun Qi questioned why the secret was being exposed now, while most players were still weak. Titan displayed the real world, where star beasts were already attacking, threatening to repeat the tragedy of the fallen planet. Yun Qi immediately asked if they needed to mobilize their forces for battle right away. The small AI dragon explained that Titan had maintained a defensive shield, but it wouldn't last, and simulations showed humanity was doomed. The only hope left was to gather the 3 successors of the thrones to lead the fight. Confused, Yun Qi asked exactly what these thrones were. Titan revealed 3 magnificent thrones, black, red, and gold, created from its own energy, capable of granting ultimate power. The mystery deepened as the Light Throne chose Liu Xin, explaining why she referred to herself as the Light King. Titan urged Yun Qi to claim the human throne at the center to lead humanity's counterattack. Lin Yi felt a surge of excitement at the revelation. Yun Qi, however, was drawn to the Black Throne and asked who its owner was. Titan warned that the Dark Throne belonged to a powerful survivor from the fallen planet who was already here. Yunqi was shocked to realize the owner of the Dark Throne was standing right next to him. A cold realization dawned upon him as he guessed the truth. Suddenly, Xiaoduo released a heavy dark purple magical aura that paralyzed the surrounding air. Lin Yi trembled from the pressure, while Yunqi was caught completely off guard. Xiaoduo looked at Yunqi with regret, apologizing for the deception. Before she could finish, Liu Xin attacked her with a blast of holy light. Despite Liu Xin's full effort, Xiaoduo effortlessly neutralized the attack with one hand. Xiaoduo countered with a powerful kick that struck Liu Xin's stomach. Liu Xin was sent crashing through a metal wall, causing a massive explosion. Xiaoduo, annoyed, demanded to know why Liu Xin was attacking her. Liu Xin stood up, declaring that light and dark could not coexist, and she had to destroy the Dark Queen. Xiaoduo's status screen appeared, revealing a 75% compatibility with the Dark Throne. Xiaoduo lamented Liu Xin's obsession, reminding her that the game was just a setup for the real fight against the Star Beasts. Yunqi intervened, urging them to unite against their common enemy to save Earth. Liu Xin bit her lip and slowly began to accept the reality of the situation. Xiaoduo thanked Yunqi for his trust, admitting that her memories were gone, but their time together was precious. Yunqi promised to stand by her side until the very end of the war. Xiaoduo nodded, her eyes welling up with emotion. Suddenly, alarms blared as violent winds swept through the area. The sky of the virtual world cracked open, revealing a massive spatial rift. Yunqi stared in shock as Lin Yi pointed to the sky, signaling the arrival of the Star Beasts. Titan warned that the Star Beasts had tracked the energy of the thrones and arrived early, threatening to destroy the simulation within an hour. Titan ordered Yunqi to undergo the test for the human throne, while he anxiously looked toward the two women. Liu Xin and Xiaoduo joined forces, Xiaoduo declaring she would guard the front while Yunqi completed his test. Seeing them united for the sake of the world, Yunqi felt a surge of resolve. Yunqi erupted with green energy and vowed to accept the challenge of the human throne. A pillar of light instantly enveloped his entire body. He found himself in a strange digital space filled with flowing data, questioning if this was real. The AI dragon appeared, explaining that this was just his mental projection. Yunqi asked why the dragon was here, and it confidently vowed to guide him through the test. The dragon gestured to the end of the hall, where the three great thrones stood. Yunqi saw the silhouette of Xiaoduo and Liu Xin sitting on the dark and light thrones respectively. Yunqi was stunned, believing they were still fighting outside. The system clarified this was a reflection of their current status as they fought in the real world. Yunqi understood he needed greater power to fight alongside them and save the world. He stepped forward, but was immediately crushed by an overwhelming pressure. Severe pain and memories of Shenxing's destruction overwhelm Yunqi, causing him to collapse as sweat pours down. Yanzu explains these are the planet's final memories and urges Yunqi to prevent the blue planet from suffering the same fate. Motivated, Yunqi endures the searing physical agony and the mental torture of those tragic memories. Despite the immense struggle, he inches toward the glowing red Renwang throne in the center of the hall. His trembling hands finally reach out to grasp the armrest. Yunqi sits firmly on the throne, loudly declaring his intention to claim its power. A massive column of red energy erupts, completely engulfing his body. As the light fades, a panting Yunqi smiles, knowing he has finally succeeded. Yanzu rejoices while the system confirms Yunqi is the new Renwang, with a compatibility level of 10. Yunqi realizes level 10 is too low, noting the Dark Queen reached 75, making it the game's limit. Realizing his current power is insufficient against the beasts, he decides to bet everything on a risky move. He activates his talent, Son of the Dimension, demanding to increase his compatibility tenfold. Yanzu frantically tries to stop him, warning that it could cost him his life, but Yunqi remains resolute. A punitive energy bolt strikes him, yet when the light vanishes, Yunqi remains unharmed. The system reveals that only a permanent 100-fold increase is possible, with no temporary options. Yunqi laughs bitterly at the lethal price, lamenting that he might die before ever finding a wife. He stays firm, insisting that without this risk, the blue planet will surely fall. Settle into the throne, he triggers the talent to permanently increase compatibility by 100 times. The system immediately confirms his request. A giant red lightning bolt descends, and Yunqi screams as he feels his body being torn apart. Yanzu watches in terror, realizing the upgrade has shattered the game's limits. The system displays critical errors, ultimately deciding to delete the user to protect the game's stability. Red lightning strikes continuously, leaving Yunqi's body on the verge of total collapse. Yanzu realizes the system is attempting to purge Yunqi to restore balance. In this desperate moment, the little dragon's expression turns steely and determined. Yanzu dives into the lightning, offering his Titan essence to reconstruct Yunqi's body. Amidst the agony, Yunqi asks what will happen to Yanzu. Yanzu smiles proudly, calling this sacrifice his greatest honor as a servant of humanity. Yanzu dissolves into light, merging with Yunqi's chest and leaving his final message. Yunqi cries out, but the dragon's voice echoes, promising to fight by his side until the end. A vibrant green light erupts, purging the system's chains and lightning strikes. Mysterious blue data streams begin to flow across Yunqi's hands. His body is reborn through the pure power of Titan essence. He emerges with divine strength, radiating an aura of overwhelming power. Yunqi steps out, his body etched with blue data, each footfall creating shockwaves. He vows to honor Yanzu's sacrifice by saving the planet at all costs. The system grants him a new talent, faith condensation, as the real world faces a brutal invasion. Lu Xin and Lin Yi struggle to hold back waves of beasts on the front lines. Lin Yi realizes that even with the Titan artifact, he can only contain one beast at a time. He begins to doubt whether humanity can survive this massive onslaught. Global battlefields are engulfed in fire and blood as everyone buys time for Yunqi. They know that if the game's illusion collapses, all hope dies with it. Jiang Xiaoduo suddenly senses an incredibly terrifying presence. The sky cracks open like a giant red eye, raining down endless monsters. A massive demon wolf descends, radiating and suffocating killing intent. The system identifies the beast leader Dewen with perfect compatibility. The world descends into chaos as the planetary destruction event begins. Lu Xin realizes the system can no longer withstand Dewen's overwhelming pressure. Dewen fires a devastating beam of red energy without hesitation. A massive explosion wipes out everything in its path instantly. The group realizes no one has the power to block such an attack. Lu Xin and Xiaoduo are sent flying by the sheer force of the blast. Just as all seems lost, an unknown power intercepts the destructive beam. Xiaoduo opens her eyes, stunned to find herself unharmed. A familiar figure stands before them, and Xiaoduo cries out in joy. Yunqi has returned. Yunqi smiles confidently, telling them to leave the rest to him. He locks eyes with Dewen, knowing the leader must be taken down. Surrounded by green energy, he vows to reverse the tide of the war. He unleashes Death Entanglement, a flaming green skull hurtling toward the sky. Dewen casually dissipates the attack with a single wave of his hand. A strange, shimmering drop of water appears, signaling a darker turn of events. Yunqi stares in shock as his move vanishes completely upon contact. Cold sweat beads on his forehead. He never expected such an easy dismissal. Dewen grins, launching waves of red shockwaves across the battlefield. A sea of monsters pours down like a black tide, blocking out the sun. Yunqi barely dodges a massive beast and warns his team to stay alert. He realizes Dewen's spirit storm negates all physical attacks, making him untouchable. Lu Xin turns pale, realizing that if Dewen cannot be defeated, humanity faces inevitable extinction. Jiang Xiaoduo falls into a heavy silence, making the atmosphere feel even more hopeless. Yet, contrary to everyone else, Yunqi smiles with total confidence. He calmly declares that it is not over, revealing himself as the plain child chosen by the Titan. Golden light bursts forth, enveloping Yunqi like a god descending, as he uses the belief condensation talent to empower the world's 100 strongest warriors as his subordinates. Lu Xin and Jiang Xiaoduo receive system notifications confirming their new status as subordinates of the human king, Yunqi. Across the entire planet, from the central capital to every battlefield, all elite warriors receive the same notification. Some were fighting demons, while others were desperately holding back the tide of spirit beasts. The talent grants Yunqi +1 to all stats per subordinate, while subordinates gain 1/10 of his power, with a limit of 100. Lu Xin is stunned, realizing that even one subordinate significantly boosts Yunqi's strength. Lin Yi immediately spots the terrifying truth. The subordinates also benefit from the king's shared power. Jiang Xiaoduo realizes that this is the humanity's only hope against the spirit beast army. Yunqi feels it is not enough. Using the supreme authority gained from Yanzu, he removes all cooldowns for his skills and talents. He uses the plain child power to permanently upgrade belief condensation and increase the subordinate limit 100-fold. The system confirms the subordinate limit has surged from 100 to 10,000. Lu Xin is left speechless, completely shocked by the massive change. The second upgrade arrives. The stacking bonus limit now reaches 10,000, while maintaining the shared power ratio. Jiang Xiaoduo understands that as Yunqi grows, all 10,000 subordinates will gain massive, simultaneous power spikes. Suddenly, all human soldiers are covered in golden light, feeling a surge of energy and renewed morale. A general draws his sword, calling for a counterattack as the army roars with newfound spirit. Thousands of soldiers charge, turning the tide and forcing the spirit beasts into a retreat. Warriors kill giant beasts with single punches, finally seeing a path to victory. Lu Xin watches Yunqi in awe, realizing he has reached a level of power beyond measurement. Covered in holy fire, Yunqi senses his power reaching its peak as he prepares for the final strike. A massive energy sword tears through the sky, hanging like a divine weapon. Yunqi grabs the hilt, challenging Dewen to a final life-or-death battle. He dives from the sky like a meteor, putting all his strength into a single killing blow. The strike lands with the collective will of humanity, causing a massive explosion. The blast engulfs Dewen in blinding light. As the smoke clears, the demon wolf stands unharmed, staring coldly at them. Yunqi is stunned, unable to believe his strongest attack did nothing. Lu Xin and Jiang Xiaoduo rush in to support him with a coordinated attack. A single roar from the beast sends both girls flying hundreds of meters away. Seeing them defeated so easily, Yunqi shifts to a different tactical approach. He orders Lin Yi to lead the army in holding off the low-level beasts. Yunqi faces Dewen head-on, while the girls provide support from the flanks. Dewen charges a bizarre blue energy orb in its mouth, sparking with erratic electricity. Recognizing the mental attack, Yunqi warns everyone to cover their ears to avoid mind control. The orb detonates, releasing a sonic and mental wave across the entire battlefield. Yunqi braces himself for the mental assault, eyes squeezed shut. To his surprise, nothing happens, leaving him confused as to why the attack failed. He looks into Dewen's eyes and sees rotating purple magic circles, realizing the first attack was just a distraction. Suddenly, the spirit beast army surrounds Dewen, forming an impenetrable defensive wall. Yunqi realizes he must lure the beast out of its formation to get a clean shot. He jumps off a beast's back, vaulting high into the air. A scream interrupts him. He turns to see Lu Xin standing frozen as a giant beast closes in. Lu Xin's eyes turn purple, signaling that she has fallen under Dewen's illusion control. Yunqi changes direction, rushing at top speed to save her. He smiles, reaching out to her and reminding her that they are comrades. Jiang Xiaoduo screams from afar, telling him to back away because Lu Xin is fully controlled. It is too late. With vacant eyes, Lu Xin attacks Yunqi with her scepter. A massive beam of holy light pierces Yunqi, forcing a cry of pain from him. Horrified, Lu Xin regains her senses and stares at her own hands, devastated by what she has done. Dewen lunges to devour the wounded Yunqi, while Jiang Xiaoduo screams in pure terror.